Sword of Coming Chapter 9:13. In the early morning, Qin Pingan stretched out his hand to hold the hidden official jade plate in his sleeve, shrank the mountains and rivers, and came to the steps outside the summer palace in one step. It was different from the summer palace where the gate was closed all day long. Meaning, unlike those vassal cities, there are no concierge monks here, and there is no hindrance to visit the door if something happens. Just don't wander around. If you have something to say, leave after talking, simply and neatly. If you want the hidden official xianxia to take out a drink and treat the guests, don't think about it. In the early summer palace, apart from the eldest sword fairy, Qin Shi and Qi Tingji were unable to cross the gate. Ning Yao never set foot in the summer palace before landing in Feishing City and temporarily taking the position of hermit official. Fan Dach was cleaning the courtyard early in the morning. He was tapped on his shoulder and someone shouted with a smile, "Dach." When Fan Dach heard such a familiar voice, he almost didn't cry on the spot, turned his head and shouted, "His Lord Hidden Officer." Qin Pingan patted Fan Dach's arm lightly and said, "Let's walk and talk." In fact, the general situation of the hidden official line has been heard by Ning Yao before, but Fan Dach obviously said it more carefully and Qin Pingan listened patiently. The first 5 young sword repairmen who entered the summer palace were all extremely qualified sword fairy embryos. Even if they were not the golden core sword repairers now, they were already in Feishing City before they became the hidden official sword repairmen. Inside the ancestral hall, each has a seat. Within a few years, the group of teenagers and girls have officially become hermits one after another. Today's golden and jade genealogy in Feishing City can be divided into the ancestors of the monks, the 3 inner monks of the criminal officer, and the 4 cities, 8 mountains and 12 vassal forces outside Feishing City, such as the chief worshipper Deng Liang. Zifu Mountain, this sword repairman in the Jade Pure realm is equal to the qualifications to build a mansion, and he can pass down his own Dao Pulse. Of course, a monk can have multiple identities. After the 5 genius sword repairs, the Summer Palace collected another group of members, all of whom were still young girls with good aptitudes. However, for the time being, they can only be regarded as alternates, and they still need to conduct regular inspections for 3 to 5 years. This is a rule established by Lin Junbai and Song Gaoyuan that year. The new Jinshi, similar to the secular officialdom under the mountain, will walk in various yamen as a formal fill-in. In the previous experience, not all candidates can become true hidden official sword repairers. Some sword repairers who fail to become full members in the end, and the fertilizer does not flow into the field of outsiders, they went to the summer city, where Dongbu and Suning errand. Qin Pingan nodded and said, "In this matter, the hidden official line is indeed suspected of pinching." Fan Dach smiled and said, "His master in Feishing City, no one is ashamed to fight with us. Besides, for those young sword repairers, it is undoubtedly the first choice to become our hidden official sword repairer. So, it's not that the threshold here is too high. The number of sword repairs in the Summer Palace today has at least doubled." Qin Pingan asked a series of questions. "There's no rumors outside? Is there anyone who is arguing about the hermit sword repair style? The Summer Palace did not open a separate account book for those who speak justice?" Fan Dach smiled, "There are some gossips, but it's not too much, so we don't care too much." Qin Pingan patted Fan Dach on the shoulder, "Dache, you are still honest. Now the hidden official sword repair is mainly responsible for 3 things in monitoring. Collect espionage and train dead men. Responsible for all the affairs of the summer city. There are actually less than half of the Jianxia who stayed at the Summer Palace today. Luo Jini and Fan Dach have been responsible for the daily affairs of the Summer Palace for these years. Wang Xinshui and Chang Taiqing are responsible for the collection, screening and inquiries of various types of intelligence. Dong Wu is now the city lord of the Summer City, and Su Ning is the deputy city lord. They need to be on time every day to train spies and dead men. Landed in the Summer City. Gu Jianlong is still traveling outside as the protector of the hidden official line, and the criminal officer in the same line of sword repair experience, each with a group of young sword repairs, in a distant enclave with a monument. The 5 masters of the Feishingcheng Ancestor Hall passed on sword repairs, and now they are also scattered around, performing their duties and practicing outside. Outside the entrance of the Summer Palace, there is a pair of couplets, which are the unusual pair of dragon gates, written in scripts with divine and ancient steel scripts. The beauty of the ages has resulted in the clean energy of the mountains and rivers, the high mountains and the deep swords, and the light of my sword like a rainbow. The barren world bowed its head to this for 10,000 years. One city is high, the sky is wide, the sky is wide and the sky is full of wine, and there are two kinds of swordsmanship in my hometown like a cloud. With Howren Jojo there are two kinds of swordsmanship. Fan Dach smiled knowingly. This couplet is naturally the handwriting of our hidden officer. It is said that it was a time between the wars that year, when Choumiao Jianxian invited the hermit to write a couplet, but the hermit refused, saying that her own handwriting was not good enough. As a result, even the four guardians led by Guizhuzhou were included. After the rebellion, the hidden official only agreed to dictate the content, and asked Choumiao and Lin Junbai to write the upper and lower couplets separately, but the result was still not successful, and finally there was this couplet that was later known to all the young and old in Feishing City. It is the local sword repairmen who have a bad view of the hidden organs. They can't fault this couplet. They have to pinch their noses and say, "That dog day does not have such a small padded jacket." No wonder the old sword fairy would let this. The guy is a hermit. Chen Pingan crossed the threshold of the lobby and entered the familiar lobby. There was almost no change in the seats. It was still a small table, a futon. At most he changed the owner. Above the table, the four treasures of the study and the book master. The books are placed at will according to the owner's preference. Chen Pingan did not sit on the main seat, but chose the seat that once belonged to Lin Junbai. The furnishings on the watch table should be the position of Gu Jianlong, 2 sword scores, a number of seals, and a confession from the palace treasury in exchange for his military exploits. After hearing the news, Luo Zhini, Wang Xinshui, Chang Taiqing, and the 3 young people who were in the summer palace in their early years are now regarded as old men in the line of hermits. Seeing the blue shirt, Luo Zhini was stunned. She quickly recovered her expression, smiling and clasped her fists and said, "I have seen the hermit." Wang Xinshui and Chang Taiqing also smiled and held their fists, and naturally they called the hidden officials. Even if Ning Yao is present, it is estimated to be the same. Chen Pingan smiled and waved his hand, one idler. Especially Wang Xinshui, one of the 4 big doglegs in the past, tears in his eyes, slipped his footsteps, and he sat next to Master Yingguan and began to sigh and ask warmth. As a result, Chen Pingan slapped him on his forehead. Wang Xinshui was sad. "Return to your seat." Chang Taiqing asked, "His lord hidden officer, do you want to call Dong Bu and them all from the summer city?" Chen Pingan smiled and shook his head, "No." Luo Zhini seated each of them. On top of her table, there was a pot of winter plums, which was cut properly, and next to a pot of calamus, the verdant was dripping. At the moment, Jianxiu staying in the summer palace, almost all teenagers, still have a bit of childishness on their faces. At this moment, one by one was jammed at the door, staring wide-eyed, carefully looking at the legendary hidden officer. When Chen Pingan was the second shopkeeper of the wine shop, they were still young. At that time, most of them were sword repairs in the lower 5 realms. Of course, it was impossible to go to the wine shop to drink. After becoming a hermit, Chen Pingan stayed in the summer palace without showing up except for going to the battlefield. Besides, every time the young hermit rushes to the battlefield, there are so many tricks, who can recognize it? Had it not been for Lu Ji's words, who would have believed that the stranger woman, who made so many bachelors miss her, would be the second shopkeeper? Therefore, because of this move, the current monks of Quanfus line have circulated a well-known famous saying. There is really no reason to make a shame and not even pick up money without making money. However, 2 of the teenagers had seen the second shopkeeper ask a boxer from a woman from a foreign country from afar. Anyway, they were pitying xianxia with 1 punch. More ways they are not pure martial arts and they can't see much. But in the street, the cheers rang loudly, especially when the second shopkeeper was knocked down by a punch. All the people who watched the game and bet were just like being beaten up and whistled vigorously, especially the Guizhuzhou who had beat gongs and drums all the way on the wall. Luo Zhini glanced at the door, "All go back to work." It can be seen that Luo Zhini, as the Jianxiu who is second only to Ning Yao in the summer palace, is still very dignified in her daily affairs. The young girls immediately dispersed and returned to the government office to handle affairs. It's just that the young sword repairers were happy and talked all the way. Today's summer palace, although the sparrows are small and complete, there are many departments, supervision departments, inspection departments, book records, secret archives and stolen punishment warehouses. Often there is only 1 room in a government office. Except for the 2 largest supervisory departments and inspection departments, there is only 1 person in the other official government offices. Jianxiu, a young man who returned to the government office of the government office, was born in Yuhu Street and was born in Yuhu Street. He was now in charge of the archives room. The bookshelves in the house are attached to 3 walls, and books and brochures are stacked on top of each other. On the roof, thousands of slips of paper and memo pads are all in the same kind of handwriting in a book. If the couplets in the lobby of the summer palace are written like a slightly drunkard who is drunk, they look ancient but they are sharp and vigorous, then the lowercase text on these notes looks like someone who never drank alcohol. People who are always sober are meticulous and never make mistakes. Therefore, the young sword repairer who could have entered the Xianxia division voluntarily asked to work here, and dealt with the secret records all day long, and became a gentleman who did not have the opportunity to go out to practice and who would pass the sword. In the lobby, Qin Pingan wiped the case with his sleeves and smiled casually. The 8 hills outside the city, including Zifu Mountain, the criminal officer Wuxian Mansion 3, are so divided up. We should take at least 2. In this position, even if you are scolded as squatting in the pit and not shit, it doesn't matter. When the Zhu Shirtang is discussing matters, you can directly ask for 3 at the beginning. Of course it is not easy for Ningyao to talk about this kind of thing, but you, for example, let Fan Dash take the lead and Wang Xinshui to follow, and then let Gu Jianlong say a few words of justice. In the end, 2 of the hills were finally won. It was nothing more than 1 from each of the criminal official Xuanfu. I think it's not a big problem. The 422 pattern, Qi Shou and Gao Yi's bottom line at the time, was almost like this. The 8 hills are different from vassal cities such as the Summer, Drag the Moon and Wukue. If the latter wants to operate properly, they have to take out a considerable amount of sword repairs to distract themselves from general affairs, but Zifu Mountain, this kind of feng shui treasure land, in addition to constructing a second great defense formation, is more like a place of cultivation. It will not share too much manpower in the hidden official line. Besides, if there are more sword repairs in the Summer Palace, 2 more will be made. In this dojo, in the future, the 2 Yuaning sword practitioners will have a chance to cultivate their swords. Luozhini couldn't help it, say it earlier? Qin Pingan held sleeves with both hands and smiled and said, "Do you treat me as the fortune teller of the unexplored prophet, or should I bang my head against the colorful world, and then greet you with my throat?" Luozhin intends to deflate endlessly. Chang Taiching held back his laugh. Qin Pingan stretched out a hand, tapped his finger on the case table lightly and slowly said, "I have a suggestion, you can listen to it. The line of hidden officials can open up a city alone, we just need to pay for it. Ask for it in the same line as Xuanfu. Of course, people are willing to take the initiative to give it. The larger the size of the city, the better. It can be built in Dalongzhuo and Xialongzhuo, which are 800 miles northeast of the Summer City. Inside the Summer Palace, except for the sword repairs in a few key positions, it may be necessary to put everything at hand for the time being. Let it go, of course it is best to take care of it. Go, grab someone." Chang Taiching was shocked immediately and said, "How much do you want to grab?" Qin Pingan continued, "Strive to a population of 600,000 to 1 million from Fuyazhou and Tonggishao within 30 to 50 years. It doesn't matter if there are any trainers here. As for the construction of a new city, I have previous experience in the Summer City, I must not need outsiders to help, but to draw the flow of people, the north and the south, without 100 sword repairs to escort, it is difficult to guarantee that there will be no accidents. During this period, a large number of Xinjia ferry boats need to be used. As well as 2 stable routes, formulate detailed and accurate road maps, and set up a series of station points along the way. The criminal officer and Xuanfu must cooperate with each other, but remember that they are only cooperating with us, and..." Wang Xinshui smiled and answered, "No reward." Luozhini raised his eyebrows. Talking about remuneration involving the great cause of Fei Xingqing should have been sincere cooperation. In the matter of robbing people, you don't need to be a treasure for any training person. By the way, it is the best. It doesn't matter if you don't have it. The only thing to do is to grab those farm monks. I know that they are very expensive now, and all forces are respected as guests. You may not be willing to travel long distances and leave your homeland just after you settle down. So it's okay to sap and cover sacks. Since you can't do it first, you can't do it. It's a must. We can make promises to these monks. Given the status of worship and guest, the number of peasant practitioners must be at least 20 or 30. The more the better. We must make an agreement with them early. First of all, in addition to guaranteeing their personal interests, they can also be allowed to take people to leave the country and rush to the new city. They can be relatives, family members, or direct disciples. You are similar to the household registration status of a summer city. Even if they leave the household registration and return to their hometowns in the future, it can be regarded as a special kind of customs, which can be hereditary for 3 generations, which means that their descendants will be guided by this way in the future, and they will be able to come and go freely for almost 100 years. The place of all the vassals of Feixingcheng including the Summer Palace. Wang Xinshui nodded and said, "It is necessary for everyone in wuxialover to feel that it is a privilege to obtain the household registration and the certificate issued by Feixingcheng, which in itself can attract foreigners to take root here. Secondly, within Jiazi, the Feixingcheng monks must give them enough respect within the framework of the rules. Once the 60-year time limit is over, if they still want to leave, they will never force them to stay. They should give money, don't hesitate. It's a good time to get together and have a good time, and the two sides have a long-lasting fragrance of incense. So if they leave Feixingcheng and want to go back to open the mountain, or seek official status in various new dynasties and vassal states, we can help, such as the sword repair of the Summer Palace, or even serve for a certain year. For worship and guest, remember that you must agree on a good number of years, otherwise it will be too worthless. In this way the group of farm monks will have no worries about the future, and the trip to ascend to the city can become a precious qualification for them. It's a trade of forcing melons, but it makes people chew and sweeter." Hearing this, Luozhini asked tentatively, "If we secretly find the mountain power of those farmer monks and make a discussion, will we not have to grab people? Maybe many powers are willing to go on polls and ask for help." We cooperated because according to the various spy reports collected from the Summer Palace, the farm monks in the north and south, either taking the initiative or being instructed by others, have begun to lower the threshold and collect disciples arbitrarily, let alone become farm monks. The threshold is not high. In the past, in the wild and awe-inspiring world, no one wanted to be a farmer's child only because of low status and low income. Today is different from the past. The higher the status, the more the income, so the so-called 30 there are not many people. Maybe we find 2 or 3 schools and we will have them. Now he is a fool, and he also knows what Feixingcheng means in this colorful world, otherwise no one will try to guess whether it is a Middle-earth Confucian temple in the vast world or by Yujing in the Qingming world. Chen Pingan hesitated for a while, seemingly worried, but finally nodded and said, "This matter is feasible, you should hurry up and work out a general charter." Luo Zhen thought for a while and promised, "I can come up with a draft plan within a day. It's a pity that Lin Junbai and the others are not there, otherwise Luo Zheni would be more confident. The book is mad, the literati is noble, always feel that he has done the world's things, in fact he can't even do a few things at hand." At the time Lin Junbai and Chao Dagon were young, but they were very familiar with the economy. Chang Taiching immediately realized a potential hazard and asked, "If you just sap and grab people, the problem is not big, but if it is too much involved with the mountain dynasties and mountain forces, we will inevitably get involved in the Summer Palace. To cause too much trouble, will it affect the detached status of the hidden official line in Feixingcheng?" Although Chang Taiching and Luo Zheni are on the same mountain, but the matter is very important, Chang Taiching will never hold back because of personal friendship. What's more, there is a tacit understanding in the Summer Palace, and the wrong person is right. Since no one can avoid making mistakes, then anyone can check for others to fill in the vacancies. Qin Pingan nodded and said, "Of course. Once we can't grasp the measure, we will lose more than we gain. If one day in the future, Ascension City and all the vassal forces question at least the strength of rewards and punishments of the hidden official sword repair, the severity of their actions may be. If there is a certain problem, it becomes a habit to question whether the hidden official line should take action against someone, which means that there is a big problem in the Summer Palace." Luo Zheni was a little guilty because he thought it simple. It's no wonder that someone hesitated just now because he had expected this hidden danger caused by spreading along this vein. Qin Pingan smiled and looked at them as if saying, "What you do, isn't it just to solve the problem?" Chang Taiching tentatively said, "It's better to let the criminals do this kind of thing, and we should appropriately separate some of the interests. On the table, let the criminals and monks to manage relations with those outside forces, anyway their number. If there are too many, we are only responsible for secretly planting spies and dead men, and to cooperate with the criminals and monks so that the emperor is not far away. If our sword repair encounters an accident, we will fall into the danger of being weak and weak. If you don't pay attention you will suffer damage. Hermit, what do you think?" There is also an unwritten rule in the Summer Palace. Whoever raises doubts and denies others, it is best to have some solution to the problem himself, but it is not demanding. Choumiao Jianxian once chatted with Luo Zhenya's friends in private. He spoke highly of this. He said that as long as the summer residence develops this kind of cognition, it will eventually form a good inertia similar to customs, traditions, and rules. The official can be said to have done a great job. Still very Jianqi Great Wall. Otherwise I just blindly talk about Tai Haoren. Very good, it can be regarded as 3 birds with 1 stone. Qin Pingan lost a glance of approval and nodded, but you can't tell the whole story. The hidden official line has to continue top-inch the tip. Under the premise of judging the situation and keeping a few private sites, the number can be small, but the background is deep. The potential is good, and in addition, it is necessary to ensure that the sword repair embryos and all allied forces in the future, as long as they want to practice superior swordsmanship or travel far away, they will have to think of the Summer Palace at the first time, not the criminal officer's line. Luo Zhen was relieved. I will formulate a specific plan in accordance with this general direction. Qin Pingan suddenly asked, Jiachen's 7-year discussion, the golden pill repairer who was thrown out of the Patriarch Hall by Ningyao? Luo Zheni said, for these years, Gu Jianlong has been in charge of staring at this person in secret. The fact that he was removed from the genealogy back then was regarded as a shameful shame by this person, but he has hardly said a complaint outside, and he has been in retreat for many years. To concentrate on sword training should be to enter the nascent soul realm as soon as possible so that you can return to the Patriarch Hall. Qin Pingan asked, where are the 2 recommenders and guarantors? Luo Zheni shook his head. Qin Pingan said, you didn't let you avenge your personal revenge. Luo Zheni nodded and understood. Qin Pingan squinted his eyes and said, to understand the truth, pure sword repair is pure love, hatred, and hatred. The sword repair of the Great Wall of Sword Qi has nothing to do. It can't be solved with the questioning sword. So I am afraid, but there is. So one thing is destined to ask the sword to be useless, and hard work for a lifetime is useless, so what should I do? It's hard to get rid of my anger. Should I go to my shop to drink? In the past, the big deal was to hand over swords on the battlefield, to see who had the greater combat exploits and killed more monsters, and whoever had a louder voice and more reason. All personal grievances are often limited to a few private nagging, at most a few cursing on the wine table. Once at the Great Wall of Jianghu, I went to the head of the city, and when I got off the head of the city I saw you at the wine table, but there was no dead person? In today's Great Wall of Sword Qi, the sword repairers go out to practice again and begin to gradually deal with various forces. When they return home they are dead. Qin Pingan suggested, actually the threshold of the summer residence can be high, but the door face is big. It only talks about the installation of spies and the training of dead men. Whether it is sword repair, good aptitude, high realm is not the most important thing. The monk is careful and cruel at the same time. Chang Taiching said, he'll talk to Dongbu and Suning about this when I look back. From beginning to end, Fan Dach couldn't put his mouth in. Now there is a mantra in Fei Xingcheng, you can't even see the gate of the summer residence. There was a young sword repairman who failed to fill the vacancy before, and went to the summer city to take a job as usual. Once laughed at someone on the wine table. After leaving the summer palace, I gradually found myself an ordinary person. But before that I always felt like I was a waste. Qin Pingan said with a serious expression, be careful of the various infiltrations of Fei Xingcheng from the outside world. Although all the outsiders in the 4 vassal cities have established separate archives, I heard from Dach that there are currently 1,600 records in the book. Many people, to say ugly, their responsibilities, the criminal officials and the 2 lines of Xuanhu, are their business, but our summer residence has to regard them as potential enemies. In today's colorful world, there is a mixture of fish and dragons, and even weird gas trainers will be there. Just talk about the Hauran world, there are Nanhai lone horsemen, passers, plagues, corpses, hangers and mirror sellers and other monks, and the Qingming world there are also rice thief, corpse Jiexin, rolling red and crisp hand, porter, the man who carried the coffin, the envoy of the mountain patrol, the lady dressing officer, the knife hunter, the one-character teacher, he was a master. All kinds of unbelievable magical powers, various methods and weird methods, cannot be prevented, such as the plague that seems to erupt without warning. Maybe it is a certain plague god, which has long been hidden in a certain vassal city, especially the kind that specifically targets the city. The large-scale, natural disasters and man-made disasters of gas trainers must be prepared early. In the same way, all hilltop mansions including Zifu Mountain will definitely charge different numbers of maids and handymen in the future. 8 hills? Is it necessary to beware of those the infiltration of the mountain patrol envoy? Does the hidden official sword repair need to inspect the water sources in various places on time? In this matter, apart from the secret investigation of the summer palace, there must be no slack. It must be implemented in specific matters. The criminal officer must work together with Xuanhu to make preparations together early, just in case. Moreover, this matter must be the top priority of the entire Patriarch Hall. Besides, you guys should be very clear about one thing. We couldn't find all the wild and dark chests in the summer palace. Chen Pingan raised his finger and pointed at the sky. Assuming that there is a rainstorm that has passed away his hands and feet, how can the ordinary masters cover it? What if someone moves his hands and feet in the rain? Is it necessary for someone to look at the 4 cities? Right? Chen Pingan shook his sleeves again. If you want to do something in the rain, it must be covered with dark clouds before it rains. At any rate, there is still a sign. What about the wind? Or the city will be expanded in the future, and there will be various plantings on the streets. What kind of floral scent will be planted with ornamental plants and flowers? Chen Pingan opened a booklet casually, twisted his fingers and said in a deep voice, "Don't forget, there are also some books on the school." Chen Pingan seemed to be talking to himself. In the future, the dead men and spies we will cultivate will suddenly start the two-sided business. How should the summer criminals guard and discriminate? Luo Zhenya's scalp was numb. Chen Pingan returned to his senses and said, "The bystanders are clear, so some young sword repairers in the summer palace must put themselves in the ground, pretending to be the enemy of Fei Xingcheng, and do offensive and defensive deductions with you on the battlefield. The enemies of Fei Xingcheng Jianxiu are no longer the only ones fighting face-to-face on the battlefield. There will be more and more conspiracies and tricks of this kind. The one who can really shield Fei Xingcheng from wind and rain is not the large moats that stand still, but here, you. It is the sword repair of our summer palace and the hidden official line. But in the final analysis, if you want to really solve the problem, you still have to ask the sword. In the colorful world, there is no thing that Fei Xingcheng Jianjian can't solve. If there is, there will be 2 games. If it is not enough, it will only be 3 games. The world is scared, and no one dares to easily reach out to Feishing City. For example, when you follow the vines to find out a certain behind-the-scenes power, Fei Xingqing must kill the chickens and the monkeys. There is no hesitation. The questioning sword must be fast and accurate, and it must be huge. The opponents, whether it is the sect on the mountain or the dynasty under the mountain, only uprooted, cut off its incense and cut off its country. On the premise of ensuring that it will not kill indiscriminately, it will truly cut the weeds and roots. Fan Dach finally had the opportunity to speak and asked softly, "Isn't it better to hold a meeting in the Patriarch's Hall? For the hermit, isn't it better?" Qin Pingan said helplessly, "I won't stay for long this time. In a few days, there will be a celebration for the creation of the next sect of Luapa Mountain in Tonggishao. I must hurry back. Next time I return here, it may take 20 to 30 years. Later. And for some reasons, I am not suitable for showing up in the Patriarch Hall at the moment." Chen Pingan rubbed his eyebrows. "Our chief worshipper will definitely establish a sect in Wuxia Tianxia in the future, and Deng Liang will probably personally serve as the first suzerain of the Judu Xianxia sect." Luo Zhenyi frowned slightly and asked, "Is he worried that the next sect created by Deng Liang will be a Kendo sect with a real name? The Daxuandu Temple is similar to the Qingming world. As a Taoist sword immortal, the monks in the Taoist temple are of course the identity of the Taoist genealogy, but in fact, quite a number of direct disciples are actually pure sword cultivators with the title of Taoist priest. All the cultivation of the Taoist priests, the study of all the Taoist magic techniques handed down by the ancestors of Xiandu Guan, are all for the purpose of assisting swordsmanship." Chang Taiqing said, "With Chief Deng's character, even if he will leave Fei Xingcheng in the future, I believe he will actively choose to go out of the house. Except for a small group of direct disciples, he will not take away more sword repairs." Chang Taiqing was not embarrassed to speak too bluntly. Even if Deng Liang is the chief consecrator, he dare to think so, dare to do it? To put it bluntly, even if it was deep in Chang Taiking's heart, Deng Liang was still half an outsider, and he could only be regarded as half a hometown sword repairman. Chang Taiqing is still so, not to mention the ordinary local sword repair. Chen Pingan shook his head and said, "Even if Deng Liang took away a group of local sword repairmen who took refuge in Zifu Mountain, these are nothing. I don't care about this. Even if the sect sword repairs more, occupy the colorful world, it will be soaring. Sword luck in a part of the city is still not a problem. These are what Deng Liang and the future sect should get, and the colorful world is so vast, even if there is one more Kendo sect, it happens to be Deng Liang and the Juda Mountain. For Fei Xingcheng and Deng Liang, they are both good things. I'm just worried that Deng Liang's successor, as well as members of the Patriarch Hall, have no relationship with Feishing City, but this person thinks that Feishing City should make concessions to their sect. In addition to his identity as a sword repairer, Deng Liang is also the master of the peak of Judu Mountain Swearan Peak, and he is also a veiled and green man who bears part of Judu Mountain's luck. Therefore, Deng Liang's existence itself is an invisible bridge connecting Judu Mountain and Wuxialover. In Deng Liang's hands, especially the next time the colorful world opens, Judo Mountain Chichi practitioners will flood in, and within a few years, they will be able to cultivate a large number of Yinling and ghost cultivation, maybe in just 300 to 500 years. With this, Haran Judo Mountain can leap into the authentic, with both the upper sect and the lower sect. Deng Liang's cultivation aptitude and his close relationship with the three-sword repairmen of Shizhou can definitely learn from the masters of Bojizai's lineage. Qin Pingan would only open one eye and close one eye on this matter. Just as Chang Taiqing said, he believed in Deng Liang's character. Qin Pingan was only worried that the former hidden officer's fellow swordsman, the current chief worshipper of Feishing City, and the future first suzerain of the Juda xianxia sect, due to the gradual change of identity, one day he was caught in an embarrassing dilemma. Feishing City does a good job of gathering and dispersing, starting well and ending well. If the powers are divided according to the yamen of the Yamashita dynasty, the criminal officer line is almost equivalent to holding the official department and the military department. Xuanhu is in charge of the household and engineering department. The Summer Palace is equivalent to the Ministry of Justice. As for the rest of the Ministry of Rights, it is estimated that it depends on the college that is about to be built. Not surprisingly, Deng Liang and the 6 branch offices of Feishing City would have a pretty good relationship. In the best case, the covenant between the two parties is long and stable. The worst outcome is that the appearance is in harmony, and the eyes are turned into enemies. Pursue the former and avoid the latter. Once Deng Liang chooses to practice purification in the future, such as pursuing an ascension realm, but Judo Mountain sect, because of a conflict with Feishing Qing, becomes more and more intense and becomes out of control, and eventually turns to a force like Bai Yujing? Wang Xinshui was a little puzzled. This kind of thing is at least the worst in hundreds of years. Although people must have near-term worries without far-sightedness, they still appear extremely abrupt in the series of words of Lord Hermit today. Qin Pingan quickly gave that reason. Ascension City doesn't need a pawn, but Ascension City needs a large number of true allies. The whole wuxia world is watching every move of Feishing Qing. For example, the Ascending City is like a big dungeon. If the water is turbulent and unpredictable, there will be fewer people building a city next to the water. If the water is flat and droughts and floods will ensure harvest, more people will build a city on the water. The robbing I mentioned earlier is not only to seek a vital benefit for Feishing City and the Summer Palace, which must be done in this way, but also to show the colorful world by the way. Those peasant gas trainers will be seen after the Jiazi contract expires. With the support of Feishing Qing, their respective forces can grow vigorously, that is, at a low place. Qin Pingan stretched out a palm, placed it on the table and then raised it up. Then Deng Liang's next sect was established at a high place. There are one high and one low, and Feishing Qing is handled properly, the relationship is harmonious, and the hearts of the people are stable. In the future, the whole colorful world, when you look at the Great Wall of Jianxi, your vision and mentality will be different. This is the entire Ascending City. Qin Pingan twisted his wrist, drew a big circle and then a small circle. This is a sword repair of the hidden official in the Summer Palace. Then put together and lightly tap the center of the circle, ourselves, personal selfishness. In the end, Qin Pingan drew the largest circle. If possible in the future, consider the problem and think about the whole colorful world. If there is no conflict between the big and small, this is the main road. The sun rises and the moon sets, the stars shift, the sword repairs the sword and the road trip. Chang Taiqing nodded gently. Luo Zhini was dazed. Wang Xinshui was silent for a moment and screamed, "The vision is so high and the mind is so big, but the truth is so simple, only we are the hidden officer, don't think of it as a second person." The Hermit Sama did not speak with a straight face. A certain small mountain leader Guomeng was absent, and the other 3 doglegs were also absent. For a while Wang Xinshui was embarrassed and Fan Dach was really too, and didn't know how to join in. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "If I don't speak, it will take at least half an hour in the cold." Wang Xinshui smiled. Turning his head and glanced at the warm sun outside the lobby, it was especially warm today. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "To be honest, not only our summer residents but the other criminal officials, Xuanhu, are actually doing very well. Just talking about Qi Shou's criminal officer's line. It's very difficult for me to deliberately pick his thorn." Qin Pingan found that Fan Dach's eyes were a little strange after he had said this sentence. Qin Pingan had to clarify, "There is no talk in the words." Wang Xinshui immediately said, "The hidden official has the final say. Let's talk about the line of Wufu who hides in the cold palace. Qi Shuming knows that Nianxin is very close to the line of the hermit. He still spares no effort to cultivate the wufu. He specially arranged 2 Jindan realm sword repairs and several surrenders. The military cultivators of the official line will regularly go to hide from the cold palace to feed the sword, and feed the move, to help young warriors who don't have much mobile phones temporarily, and try to increase their actual combat experience. Chen Pingan took out an object from his sleeve, threw it to Wang Xinshui and said, "There are all kinds of official history books and local county chronicles about the old mountains and rivers of Tonghishao. I have no time to sort them out. I just wrote 2 temporarily." A booklet similar to a bibliography as well as a booklet dedicated to recording notes, are all kept here at the Summer Palace, but the criminal can transcribe a copy in 1 line. If it is troublesome, you can only run away and you can come to us in the future. Borrowing books here is convenient for the 4 major vassal cities of Feixingcheng to verify the identity and birthplace of the monks from other villages and the genealogy of the mountain. Wang Xinshui caught the object that had been lifted from the ban on landscapes, and glanced at the scene inside his eyes, which was a veritable mountain of books. He couldn't help but be shocked. So many books? Even if you use some mountain magic, copying a book or engraving, it is definitely a huge and practical project. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "My brother Qi, I must be busy at this moment to save the abdomen of a gentleman with the heart of a villain, and he will panic for him." When Chen Pingan stood up, the 3 Jianxio stood up together, crossed the threshold with the hermit and walked out of the lobby. Chen Pingan stopped at the top of the steps, raised his head with his arms folded, squinted at the sun and said softly, "Some people are deliberate. If we find a certain what-if by accident, then they must be careful. Be careful. For example, when Bai Yujing moved his hands and feet and we found conclusive evidence, then in the next 100 years, Bai Yujing Taoist monks will not be allowed to enter the colorful world. Then next time you open the door, it'll take the lead in blocking the door. When the door is open next time, I believe that I should at least regain the peak strength, return to the Jade Pure realm, and the martial artist will return to the true level, catch each other and fight a Bai Yujing immortal." Walking down the steps, Chen Pingan walked side by side with Fan Dach and Wang Xinshui, casually strolling around the various departments of the Summer Palace. Chen Pingan only entered the archive room. As for other places, he stood at the door and took a few glances. The person in charge here is a young man named Huaizongji. He is only 14 years old and is already a sword repairman in the Sevuing realm. If you were at the Great Wall of Jianxi in the early years, you wouldn't be too genius, but don't forget that when a boy was young he followed Feixingcheng to wuxialover, breaking through the border so quickly. In Chen Pingan's eyes, it was a super fast. Therefore, Chen Pingan was very curious about why the teenager chose the file room. According to theory, there was no difficulty in going to the 2 departments with the highest relative threshold for monitoring and censorship. After hearing the inquiry from the hermit, Huaizongji smiled shyly and only said that he liked reading. Chen Pingan didn't get to the bottom of the question. From the jade box on the east bookcase in the house, he pulled out a book of 7 secret records that recorded Bai Yujing's forces. Reading it casually, the easternmost part of a world, purple qi rising, the Taoist rhyme between heaven and earth is rich, all of them come from the Taoist forces of the Qingming world, of course led by Bai Yujing, followed by Xuanhuan and Sui Qugong. In the inner hills and beyond there are some ordinary sect prefixes, and finally those small sects or casual cultivators with clear steps. In accordance with the old rules of the Summer Palace that year, Feixing City specially compiled 2 files of the Master and the Deputy, which recorded all the martial arts in the world and the monks of the upper 5 realms and the Earth Immortals. As the 2 booklets continue to thicken, the content of the archives gradually increases, which means a brand new world, with more and more vigorous muscles and flesh and blood. It's just that these 2 top secret files will not be placed on the side of the Summer Palace, but placed in the Patriarch Hall of Feixing City. Chen Pingan opened a page of the book and pressed his finger against a sticky note sandwiched between the pages. Unlike the previous white and black characters, this entry is written in red characters, which is obviously a more important comment. He turned his head and looked at the one standing beside him. The boy said with a smile, "Songji, is this your own opinion?" The boy nodded vigorously. Chen Pingan smiled, "Similar opinions. If it's not a particularly urgent matter, you can slowly gather them together. When you have collected 30 or 50 items, they will be handed over to Luozhini or Fandach for a look. If possible, they will be formed on our file room. With a certain kind of rule, if there are more people in the future, there will be no rush. There is a rule-based charter so that colleagues who enter the archives later can act step by step. You, the top leader, will also save a lot of effort." The young man nodded vigorously, silently remembering. Songji, you must know that you are the first chief official of the archives of our summer residence. Apart from the daily affairs at hand, you can't be sloppy. You have to think more about how to make a way for future generations. The boy still pecks rice. Songji, do you know that the chief of a government office, besides setting an example and working diligently to do his job well, what else should he pay attention to? This time the boy finally didn't nod his head but looked blank. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "It is not too much. It is necessary to have a clear separation from the government offices, so that the water in each other's wells does not interfere with the river, and it is not allowed to intervene in other matters outside the house. But there is a threshold for this truth. It will only be needed in the summer residence many years later. So now you can take the time to read a few miscellaneous books, the changes in the yamen of some secular dynasties in history, and learn more about it. The phenomenon of officialdom and the rule of subordinate staff, and why the more the court was abolished, the more organizations eventually became more numerous, which eventually led to bloatedness. The more various government offices, the lower the efficiency of work. It seems that everyone is busy every day and wait until the real if you want to advance a certain measure, it will only be extremely slow. Today's archive room does have a special meaning to Qin Pingan. After all the secret files and books that were moved from the Hinter Palace to the Summer Palace in those days were Qin Ping's categorized separately. It is not a simple and easy thing. So here, Qin Pingan will naturally get a little extra close. Huai Congji nodded and said, "Remember." After Qin Pingan left, Wang Xinshui deliberately slowed down and suddenly slapped Huai Congji's head with a slap, lowered his voice and cursed with a smile. "Couldn't I finally saw the hidden official? I didn't know how to seize the opportunity, so I can talk a few more words?" Wang Xinshui squeezed the boy's ears. "Do you know that our hidden officer only entered the threshold of your archives room? Don't say you're messing with me in the future." The Hermit Sama said that the beating must be done as soon as possible. Especially those young geniuses, maybe 100 years or several hundred years later, is a sword fairy. Huai Congji tilted his head, stood on tiptoe while smiling, quietly spread his hands towards Wang Xinshui. It turned out that the palm of the boy's palm was full of sweat. "Even if you speak, you will definitely stammer. Let me talk about it." Wang Xinshui smiled and asked, "What do you want to say?" The teenager whispered, "It's better for him to be a hermit. As for Ning Yao, who is temporarily holding the position of hermit, he should be the lord of the city whom everyone has come to expect." Wang Xinshui felt bad and immediately covered the boy's mouth. Sure enough, at the door, a green shirt reappeared with a smile on his face. Huai Congji was immediately dumbfounded. Fortunately, the Hermit Sama smiled and said, "It's okay. The young man has no taboo. It is a good thing to dare to think, say dare to act and take it seriously. But Wang Xinshui's good governance is impressive." Wang Xinshui categorically said, "My conceited official, I really don't want to conceal it. In fact, I am also a greenish youth." Luo Jini and Chang Taiqing chose another hand-shoveled veranda, ready to return to their respective yams for official duties. Mentioned about Chief Deng earlier, did you worry at the beginning that Lord Hidden Officer would dismantle Deng Liang's bridge across the river, and then abandon it after using it? Chang Taiqing asked in his heart. "I was relieved when we discovered that this was not the case. On the contrary, we needed to build roads and bridges for Deng Liang and his next sect." Luo Jini was silent. Chang Taiqing smiled and said, "Even if this is the case, you don't have to feel disappointed by the actions of the hidden officer. After all, he is dedicated to us ascending the city, seeking government in his place, practicing public practice, and in the officialdom there can be no only Qingfeng, bright moon." Luo Jini nodded and remained silent. Chang Taiqing finally ran to his mouth and swallowed it back forcibly. There is no need to be harsh on the hermit, but if you are disappointed with Qin Pingan, it is normal. Chang Taiqing was very thankful that he held it back, otherwise he guessed that Luo Jini would hold his hatred for a long time. In the other corridor, Qin Pingan went to Wang Xinshui's room to sit for a while after strolling through the houses, and then left with Fan Dach. Fan Dach hesitated for a while and told the truth. "My lord, if you come a few years later, I might have to leave the Summer Palace on the initiative. I always feel that I can't help much. I think the only thing I can do is to make room. The position is given to others. In your words, it means squatting in the pit, drinking, eating and sleeping but not shit." "I haven't said such a thing?" "Yes. I remember clearly that Qin Sanqiu and Dong Huafu were both at the shop drinking." Deche, speaking so straightforwardly, "I can't blame others for saying that you entered the summer residence by going through the back door." Fan Dach laughed. Che, believe me, the summer palace needs smart people, but you also need silent people who will see people's hearts over time. You have to believe that they will see, and you must believe that you can do it. Qin Pingan whispered, a truly strong man has not only impressive feats, but also perseverance and meticulous dedication. Even in the end, we still won't be known and we won't be understood if we know it, but at least we know by ourselves that we have done something for this world. Just this sentence, Qin Pingan did not say it. Tugua Castle, one of the 4 vassal castles, is the same as Wuxia Castle, and it is also a city under the name of criminal officers. The current city lord is Puyu and the deputy city director Yi. Both of them are sword repairs in the Golden Core realm. The young geniuses of the Great Wall of Sword Qi are naturally members of the Patriarch Hall of Feishing City. These 2 people were both guarding sword repairs who blocked Qin Pingan back then, but at that time Ren Yi, who was responsible for guarding the first pass, was still at the Dragon Gate level. Ren Yi broke the realm of formation after landing in Feishingcheng. In contrast, City Lord Puyu, because the injury was serious and the rain curtain of a natal flying sword was severely damaged, making it very likely that Puyu would be very difficult to break the bottleneck of the Golden Core realm in this life. This is also one of the reasons why Puyu is the leader of Dragoon City. Ren Yi, a friend who doesn't want to achieve higher achievements on the road, is too distracted by the worldly affairs. In the early years of the Great Wall of Jianghu, in a fierce battle outside the city, they were all rescued by an old sword repairer with a strange face. On the battlefield there was an old sword repairer, who turned out to be born. During this time he passed by a battlefield, handed his sword tricky and made a tough shot, just in time to rescue a group of young sword repairers including Puyu and Ren Yi. The fight was dangerous, and claimed to be a small win by fluke. Although the other party did not have a self-registration number, Puyu guessed the other party's identity at the time, and he must be the young hermit who is best at picking up omissions. South Shochin Beiyingguan, 2 rival sword repairmen can win this title. It is by no means a vain name. Both sides are treacherous, chicken thieves and sinister. In today's Toyua City Deliberative Hall, in addition to the 2 city owners, the criminal officer Qishou and Shueyu, who came from the line of Dejizhai, and the group was circulating the pile of paper. In addition to the 4 sword repairmen who were about the same age, there was also an old Yuan Ing. Shueyu shook the paper in his hand and smiled. What a strange name. The pseudonym is Doi. It is indeed a very rare word. Puyu smiled and said, the word Yi means governance and stability. If you add another word to form the word Yan, it will have the meaning of the world is peaceful again. Now that he was destined to be hopeless, Puyu was relieved to be the lord of the city. Over the years he had accumulated a lot of miscellaneous books and turned over if nothing happened. Puyu even wondered if one day he took off the burden of the lord of the city, and whether he could become a teacher. Qishu drank the tea silently and had a headache. With that guy's consistent virtue he would definitely change his way to trouble him. At the beginning of the spring of the 7th year of Jiachuan, Feishing City once held the second very formal meeting of the Patriarch Hall. It was also that crucial discussion that really laid the foundation for the division of internal responsibilities of Feishing City and the plan for external expansion. Back then there were 41 chairs in the Patriarch's Hall. Later 6 were added, but the 2 chairs under the hanging image were always empty. The 2 old Yuan Ing Jianxiu who belonged to the line of criminal officers came from Taixiang Street and Yuhu Street respectively. They were once vassal portals of the 2 large families of Qin and Nailan. Over the years, the 2 old men have been teaching swordsmanship to young people. In Feishing City and Toyua City, the criminal officers' line set up a Soshan Division and Demon Slashing Academy respectively. The 2 old Yuan Yings sit in one of them, and occasionally leave Feishing City quietly, both for those who go out to experience. The 5 realm sword repairmen secretly protect the road, and this so-called experience is not the travel of the genealogical monks in the world. What is the so-called red dust experience? Most of the sword repair casualties in Feishingcheng have appeared. In the course of the experience, in order to open up the site, determine the safety of the route, and venture to explore the treacherous landscapes and secrets, encountered some unheard of weirdness, and several guardians of the sword fell because of this, and even no bones existed. In the end they were all ascended to Qingning. Several senior 5-level sword repairmen, including Yao, personally went to these dangerous places with their swords. Just like the criminal officer who went out together with the hidden official sword repair this time, the guardian behind the scenes is an old Yuan Ing Jian repair. 4,000 of years in the Great Wall of Sword Qi, aside from those sword repairs that are inherently restricted by the flying sword, there has never been a weak sword repair papery realm. This tradition must not be lost in Ascension City. But I have to admit that after leaving the Great Wall of Sword Qi, the speed of all sword repairs is getting slower and slower. Of course Ningyao is an exception. And the emergence of the youngest generation of sword repairs, and it is becoming less and less unable to one crop after another like before, and it has sprung up like bamboo shoots after rain. At the same time, the two old men were also in charge of a key to the sword building. Although the sword repairs of Feishing City still have their own masters, Feishing City has built a library, named Wenjian Tower. With the 18 stops of sword qi improved by a liang, all sword repairs can now be practiced, and as for the ultimate divine essence to be learned, each depends on good fortune. In addition, the Summer Palace collected and sorted out a large number of Dao tactics, sword scriptures, and secret books that were originally forbidden for sword repairs of the past dynasties, all of which were collected in the heavily guarded Wenjian building. Many of the swordsmanship that had long since broken the inheritance of incense have a certain chance to find intergenerational disciples. For example, Tao Wen, Wu Qingpei, Song Kaiyun, Yin Shen, and Gao Kuei, who had used swords for the last time in his lifetime, was to ask Long Jun about the sword, and so on. There are even two sword immortals, Luoshan and Zhuan, who betrayed the line of hidden officials. As long as the unique swordsmanship of these swordsmen has been recorded in the Summer Palace, young swordsmen in Feishingcheng today have hopes to learn them, but they do not force future swordsmen to recognize their ancestors and return to their ancestors. In the process of the sword repair of this swordsmanship, they must not deliberately conceal this matter during the inheritance of the swordsmanship that they have developed, and must write down the origin of this inheritance. At the beginning, the Summer Palace compiled a detailed booklet, which roughly stated the inheritance requirements and the threshold of practice for a certain line of swordsmanship. Therefore, if you want to pass on those swordsmanship, there are two requirements. One is that one's own natal flying sword and swordsmanship are compatible, and the other is that the battle is sufficient. Then, after the confirmation and approval of the criminal officer and the hidden officer, the young swordsman can ask the sword tower. Look through a certain book of swordsmanship and a certain cheat book corresponding to practice. Old Yuanying asked curiously. Ningyao said vaguely on the previous trip to the wilds, only that it was the beginning of the hermit, but the group of them, since they have lost the Xuanpu and Toyue of Xinjiang City. The two culprits of the mountain are ascending to the realm. Could it be that there are two new characters engraved on the head of the city? In fact, even this old monk knew that there was a criminal officer in the Great Wall of Jianxi, named Haosu. Breaking that fairy hairpin city into two parts is of course very pleasant. But for the sword repairmen of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, the issue of lettering has been the biggest issue since ancient times. Qi Shou looked at those sites and said helplessly, "Even if I ask, is it useful?" Ning Yaoming didn't want to say anything more. Shuiyu was also very surprised. Since so many important things have been done, why not tell the whole Feishing City directly? There is no reason to hide and tangle. Puyu laughed and joked, "If you don't understand it, it's right, so you can't enter the summer residence." Back then, the three brothers from Bojizhai really wanted to enter the Summer Palace, but Ningyao didn't agree. Otherwise, the current line of hidden officials is completely capable of fighting against the line of criminal officials. Today's Feishing City, there are 4 upper 5 sword repairmen. Ascension Ningyao. There are no immortals for the time being. There are 3 sword repairmen in the Yupu realm, Qishou, Gaoyu, and Deng Liang. There are 4 people in Yuanying realm. The old Yuanying Jianxiu from the line of 2 criminal officers, Shizhou from the line of Dojizhai, and Luo Zhini from the Summer Palace. In fact, at the Qin Mansion on Taixiang Street, there are Qin Ji and the maid beside him, Qin Hui. Former master and servant, the 2 masters and disciples today are Yuanying realm and Yupu realm. It's just that, except for Ningyao, no one knows for the time being. Qi Shou said coldly, if in the next meeting of the Patriarch's Hall, Qin Pingan asked us and Quan Mansion to take out a mountain top and hand it to the Summer Palace to take care of it. Do you agree or not? Old Yuanying slowly said, why? Qi Shou said, is it still a if the person who engraves is it exactly Qin Pingan? Old Yuanying immediately said, then give it. Although it was the sword repair of the criminal officer's line, the old man had nothing to hesitate about this kind of thing, and he had to give it. Qi Shou nodded, as it should be. Shuiyu gloated and said, sir, if Qin Pingan doesn't leave, what will you do? Qi Shou smiled and said, the home is full of people, the time and age are abundant, the muscles are healthy, the Lawali is happy, the gentleman drinks, and the joy is endless. The old Yuanying was confused. What is it? Puyu explained with a smile. From Mr. Kang Jie's Kang Yang Ji, there is also a copy on the copy of the Jiangxian seal, which is the side of the seal of one party, and the seal of the bottom is but I have not reached the quartet. It was Mr. Kang Jie's feelings when he was young when he was studying Lao Shao. You and Mr. Kang Jie still have the same surname, and you can reprint the score when you look back. But what the criminal officer meant is that fighting with people is full of fun. Rennie smiled and said, "It's a shame that Lord Hermit is not present, otherwise I will put on a smiley and playful expression right now." The old Yuan Ying's surname Xiao rubbed the handle of the chair with her palms and said, "A scholar is like a bowel and you can curse a flower." But if Chen Pingying could really engrave a new character in the city, the old Yuan Ying would go to the wine shop to punish himself for 3 bowls. The wine bowl over there is not big anyway. After all, the old Yuan Ying was most disapproving of the seal. He has complained a lot over the years. All the flowers are pretty, and if you have the ability, you, the hidden official, go to the city to engrave a word. The matter of drinking, both thinking and not thinking about it. The reason for not wanting is simple. The old man can't save face. But after thinking about it carefully, the old man still hoped that the young hermit would actually engrave most of the letters. The hiding Han Xing Palace, which originally belonged to the private property of the hidden official line, now seems to have become a place exclusively for the pure martial arts of the criminal officer line. It's just that there is a tacit understanding between both sides on this matter. There are only 3 ancient official positions in the Great Wall of Jianghu. In addition to the hidden official and criminal officer, there are actually sacrificial officials, but the line of sacrificial officials has long been lost. It's rumored that the hiding Han Palace was the first place where the official's office was located, but the line of hidden officials, which was too eye-catching in Xiao Sun's hands, occupied the long-abandoned hiding hall. Anyway, the old sword fairy didn't have anything to do with it. What to say, over time, hiding in the cold palace is naturally regarded as the private property of the hidden official line, so that many young sword repairers who don't like to turn to the yellow calendar don't know any priests in the history of their hometown. The earliest Wufu embryos of the gang of hiding in the cold palace, and the first group of children who entered this place to practice martial arts and boxing, have all grown up. As a line of criminal officers under the jurisdiction of Wufu, there are now a total of nearly 100 people, and the number and influence will become more and more significant in the future. A tall and handsome young man between the 2 boxing masters was alone in the martial arts arena today, throwing his punches like a dragon, whistling into the wind. There are a lot of big children squatting next to them, all of whom are the youngest in seniority. If you say that you become a sword repairman, it depends on God's reward or not to eat, or you can't ask for it, so it's recognized that the martial artist must learn boxing early. As a master, Zheng Dafeng twice a day in the morning and evening came to the cold palace to teach boxing and fisting, each for an hour and a half. Jiang Yun brags while punching. "Back then, the hermit came here to teach us some boxing. I was the only pure martial artist who got on the corners of the hermit's clothes, so what is my martial arts aptitude, do you understand? Actually, the hermit found me on a special trip in private. He said that among the 10 people back then, I was considered the best talent, which was much higher than others, so I had to make a small kitchen for me so that my martial arts training would not be wasted. Qualification: what does it mean to open a small stove? What does it mean, you know? I'm optimistic. I grab the white blade with my bare hands and can grab the flying sword casually. It is the true biography of the hidden official. According to the rules of his hometown, under normal circumstances, the right or wrong is never passed lightly. Even the Guai may not have learned the bamboo wine. Now I hand it out with a punch. It is mostly because the blue is better than the blue. So even if the hermit feeds me the punch again, I have to be careful." On the edge of the martial arts field, someone said, "Oh? How careful?" Jiang Yun tipped his ears and immediately became unhappy. "Oh, who doesn't believe it? Stand up." The man stood there and replied with a smile, "I don't believe it." Jiang Yun rubbed his eyes and made sure that it was not his dazzling. He secretly swallowed his saliva, his eyes rolled sharply, thinking about how to remedy it to escape the catastrophe. The man smiled and stretched out his hand. "No need to remedy it, come, practice your hands just as I help you start a small stove so that no one will believe you." Jiang Yun cautiously rubbed his hands and said, "My lord hidden officer, I have missed you all these years. I am not like Su Gong and Yuan Zhaohua who have no conscience. Before practicing boxing every day, I have to say 3 sounds of hidden officer in my heart. Only then will he deliver the first punch full of energy. Don't worry if you know the truth. Who doesn't know that the second shopkeeper is famously fair in business and the most reasonable? Then I will be moved with affection." There was an uproar around the martial arts field. Is that the legendary master hermit? The problem is that it's not so handsome, tall and mighty. It looks tall and thin. Well, it seems to be similar to the teacher in the school. Is he really a great master of martial arts? Master Zheng said that he had carefully taught Master Hermit a lot of boxing techniques, and now it seems that most of them are true. Chen Pinggan temporarily let go of Jiang Yun's little thorn, and fisted and smiled with the two out-of-town martial arts who walked quickly to his side. Thank you. A man and a woman, both in golden status, are almost in their 60th years, but their faces are obviously young, only in their early 40s. The two martial artists said in unison, "Don't dare to be." If it were elsewhere in Wuxia xianxia, they would choose any place to start a mountain and establish a faction, which would have been a trivial matter. As for why the two martial arts masters who were among the three realms of refining gods came to Feixingqing, they have hard-to-read scriptures, and they flee from the enemies on the mountain. Besides, in addition to the identification of the Summer Palace, Zheng Dafeng and Yen Xen stared at them, and couldn't make a mistake. Just like before in Wukuei City, asking outsiders to fill in their hometown and resume is a kind of boring thing that seems to be superficial and easy to get confused. But in fact, it is a typical external looseness and internal tightness, and the more recorded outsiders if there are more, the easier it is for Feixingqing to verify each other. Once someone is found to have moved their hands and feet, deliberately concealing their identity and false resumes, then they have to deal with the twisted core who is now in charge of a prison. One can imagine the methods of a sewing man who can make Chen Pinggan have a lingering fear. As soon as Chen Pinggan appeared, a group of young martial artists, no more than 10, gathered on the side of the martial arts field. Wearing a blue shirt and long gown, he turned sideways and at the same time flipped one arm, slapped back, held down the face door of a sneak attack young man behind him, pressed it to the ground and slammed his head 3 times. Then his body turned floating, his hand grabbed a fiercely swept whip leg, his right hand raised his elbow high, and one fell suddenly, that is, a heart elbow hitting the boy's heart, and the latter slammed into the heart. On the ground, Chen Pinggan's toe was picked again, and the boy rolled a dozen times in the air, limped to the ground, trying to get up several times to no avail. He vomited blood. The girl named Sun Yin had a knee bump, and Chen Pinggan hit her waist heavily with a leg. Sun Yin flew out on the spot, collided with another woman Wu Fu and fell out together. In an instant 10 people surrounded and beat each other, and there was no need to say hello to each other. The cooperation was not unwieldy, and they all fell to the ground in the end. Jiang with a blue nose and swollen face sat on the ground, raised his head high and had a nosebleed. The tomboy back then, the big girl now, Yuan Zhaohua, sat on the ground and she slammed her fist on the ground. Su Gong and Mumming Ali rubbed his heart and grinned. Jiang Yun, Su Gong, Yuan Zhaohua. The three of them have the best qualifications and the fastest to learn boxing. With the gift of a brand new world, Jiang Yun has won martial arts 3 times, and Su Gong and Yuan Zhaohua have each won twice. In addition, many people have received a martial arts gift. In fact, this has a lot to do with Ning Yao's breakthrough, especially after she has truly secured her position as the #1 person in the world, coupled with the fact that Feixingqing has received some kind of blessing from heaven and earth. It makes the Wufu who hides from the cold palace. Of course, these former children are indeed diligent in martial arts, and they are able to endure hardship, and they have never squandered their own talents and external opportunities. I just have to admit that this kind of martial arts that relies on the strongest in a certain realm is more hydrated than any other world, and it has a lot of water. If you are in the Howren world, which school can have nearly 10 people, and have one martial arts so densely, what is it that does not open their own martial arts shop? Standing in place, Chen Pinggan smiled and said, "If it's the kind of point-to-finish discussion and join hands for a long-distance trip, there is no big problem." Shiwu climbed high and couldn't come. The line of Wufu who is hiding in the Han Xing Palace really needs 20 to 30 years of fighting to truly share the worries of Feixing City. At that time there were 1 or 2 warriors in the remote travel realm, and it was very safe to travel outside, and they didn't really need the guardian of the sword repair. If it was a premeditated sneak attack aside from Zheng Dafeng and the 2 boxing masters, then a sword repairer in the Golden Core realm who had been to the battlefield in Feixingqing could completely kill through the cold palace with one flying sword. Chen Pinggan moved from near to far, pulling up the young martial artists one by one, except for women of course. The hidden officials only need to stomp their feet lightly and they can stand up. Sun Yi in Yuhu Street, she has a younger sister named Sun Zhao, who left her hometown with a Jinjiaza female sword fairy named Song Pin in her early years. After she got up, she asked, "His Lord Hidden Officer, how is Sun Zhao now? Is there any shame?" Chen Pinggan smiled and said, "She is already a sword repairer in the sea viewing realm." Sun Yin nodded and said, "Make do with it." Hidden in the cold palace, the people who taught boxing in history were the old mother by Lian Shuang of Ning Mansion, the young hermit Chen Pinggan, and Zheng Dafeng, a foreigner. In fact, Qin Pingan only occasionally gives advice. It is not a master in the strict sense, but the children who are hiding in the cold palace, who cares about this, compare Master Zheng with the master hermit if there is nothing to do. Qin Pingan walked to the two martial artists of the golden stature and said with a smile, Master Ma, Master Lu, if you can make a heavier shot in the future if you can. As for the medicinal materials that boil muscles and bones, 3 meals a day you can ask for more medicated food, so you don't have to worry about the reimbursement of Xuanhuan's line. Seeing the gentle look of the young hermit and the tone of discussion, the two were a little surprised and at the same time a little relaxed. Today, with the host of the hermit speaking in person, I think it will be better to discuss it in the spring mansion in the future. Who doesn't know that the accountants of the Xuanhu family line in the matter of making money are so close to respecting the young hermit as the first ancestor? The pure martial artist who has been hiding from the Han Xing Palace has been in an embarrassing situation over the years. He is like a concubine on the hill of criminal officers. It is not very pleasing. In addition to money matters, he can only get in but not get out. It's not annoying, but it's not something worth boasting about. The Quan Mansion won't take the slightest, except that the two of them, the Master Zheng Dafeng, and the 3 teachers who teach boxing, Quan Mansion will give it every month. Salaries are a lot of money, and all the children need for martial arts training, boxing, and bones are distributed in sufficient quantities. As much as they want to hide from the cold and travel palace, there is no difference. It's just a few trivial words and certain eyes and faces. No one is stupid, they can hear and see clearly. In addition, those who practice martial arts hiding in the cold palace, in this ascending city where swordsmanship is like a cloud, will inevitably feel that they are a dwarf, talking and doing things, and then they are bound to follow. Just like that Jianghu with the best martial arts qualifications, he will soon be a golden martial artist. He is already the mainstay of hiding in the cold palace in the future. If he goes out and meets the sword repairer of his peers on the road, how can he feel in his heart? Will there be no regrets? Although Jianghu still babbles all year round when he goes outside, but in fact the louder a person speaks, the more guilty his heart is. Qin Pingan held his fist and said goodbye. I won't delay your teaching. The woman Wufu asked, does Master Qin teach boxing for the children? If you call the other party a hidden official, it seems inappropriate. After all, the hidden official today is Ning Yao. Since the other party is a mountain-level martial artist, it shouldn't be an exaggeration to call a master, even senior. The pioneering school is the master and the one with higher fist is the teacher. The 2 martial artists from other villages are no better than the native swordsmen of the Great Wall of Jiangxi. Although they have been teaching boxing here for many years because they rarely go out and walk around, they have only a little understanding of the many unique customs of the Great Wall of Jiangxi. Many rumors and deeds about this last hermit are actually not quite understandable. Just like a female martial artist surnamed Lu, she really wondered why Jianghu couldn't get around the 3 questions with Xianxia every time they talked to xuanhuan. They were clearly defeated in 3 consecutive games, and they could still speak so happily. Even when it comes to questioning a fist with Yufu, he almost never talks about how the young master punches fiercely. Instead, he only talks about being knocked down by Yufu. Not only Jianghu but almost everyone is too happy. Qin Pingan shook his head and smiled. No. The burly man surnamed Ma cautiously asked. After Qin Zhongshe returned to his hometown, did he ever ask Xianxia again for boxing? Qin Pingan nodded and said, I had a questioning punch but I still lost. The man is not strange, it is strange to win Xianxia. The woman couldn't help asking, dare to ask Master Qin what realm is Xianxia now? Obviously she is an admirer of Xianxia. Qin Pingan said, when I asked Xianxia about the boxing, he was returning to the real level. The woman's eyes were complicated, but she was cleverly hidden soon. Qin Pingan knew her thoughts, probably because he felt that a mountain-level martial artist would be a little overwhelmed to go and ask a fist at the end of his life. Xianxia. It's just that Qin Pingan didn't explain anything. When the 2 golden martial artists began to teach boxing again, Qin Pingan just stopped for a moment on the edge of the martial arts field, and soon left silently. For the 2 boxing masters, waiting for the man in the blue shirt to leave, the mood at the moment can probably be regarded as relieved. The first 10 people in the hiding place all saw the young hermit give them a thumbs up before leaving. Walking out of the gate, Qin Pingan looked back at the plaque. This hideout palace that once belonged to the priest's line was indeed weird. Hide from the cold? But it is a pity that even in the summer palace, there is no written record of the priest's line, as if all records were deliberately destroyed. Only in the blank space of the secret file that recorded the criminal officer's line, Qin Pingan saw a sentence similar to the endorsement. It was the handwriting of the former hermit Xiao Dang. It was crooked and easy to identify. The physical body of every pure martial artist is a pantheon full of incense. Sword of Coming Chapter 9:14. A Line of Xuanhu. Chen Pinggan took Xiaoma through the corridor and visited Gao Yeho. Gao Yeho stood at the door of the house to greet him, jokingly said, "How does it feel to visit my own site, isn't it good?" Today in Feixingcheng, who doesn't know that the government office that supports the hermit official Chen Pinggan the most is not even the summer palace where the number of sword repairers is sparse, but this spring palace that intends to shake the sky. There was once a young sword repairman who was a thief stealing the couplet and couldn't make a couplet, and he directly released a sentence. Whenever I hear a sentence saying that the second shopkeeper is not, I'm sorry, he'll come to Xuanhu to do business in the future, just wait to be put on shoes. Chen Pinggan moved a chair and sat down and said straightforwardly, "God of wealth, you can't thank me first?" Xiao Mo stood outside the door, and he could see that the sun was very popular here. It was the monks here, and it seemed that not many dared to greet the sun. Takano Ho wondered, "Where did you start talking about this?" Chen Pinggan tweeted, "How about pretending to be confused with me?" Takano Ho smiled and said, "I still ask the hidden official to speak clearly." Chen Pinggan shook his head, "Forget it, just treat it as if I was playing the piano to the cow." Takano Ho smiled and said, "It's better to say it differently and show the blind to the blind, it's more accurate. Scolding others first, scolding yourself was the unique secret of the summer palace. I scolded myself harshly first, what can you do with me?" Chen Pinggan looked around. The decoration of the house was so simple that it was almost shabby, and there was not even a plaque in the study room. Before walking along the way, he glanced at the houses along the way. Only hands are familiar. Gentlemen love money. These plaques are placed in the Xuanhu office. How strange it is to look at. In fact, Gao Yeho had already figured it out at this moment. Chen Pinggan was talking about his sister Gao Yuqin, who followed the female sword fairy Li Kai to Luzhou and Beiju, and the Jianxiu who went with him was the nickname Little Hermit. Young Chenli. Is it a brother-in-law for yourself? If Chen Pinggan hadn't mentioned this one today, Takano Ho would not think about it at all. As soon as Chen Li's sword was O Ming, it was the relic of a certain sword immortal in Luzhou and Beiju, so Chen Li went there. Sword practice while practicing is a good arrangement for the summer palace. Moreover, my sister was in her hometown and had a very good impression of that Pang Yuanji. She had been a follower for several years and had a posture of not marrying Pang Yuanji, which made Gao Yeho worry. At the time of the Great Wall of Jianxi, Gao Yeho, who was born in a poor alley, had a good relationship with Pang Yuanji, but a fool could see that Pang Yuanji didn't care about the love of men and women, so the sisters' unrequited love was of little significance. It is difficult for both sides to achieve a positive result. Therefore, if it can happen, the younger sister Gao Yuqing and Chen Li can be married in that foreign land, and the younger sister will be able to take care of them. Of course, Gao Yeho would like to thank Chen Pingyan. Since Chen Li has the nickname of the little hidden official, and he has great admiration for Chen Pingyan, if it is about something, Chen Li can really follow Chen Pinggan, and it is not bad to think about it. Otherwise, Howren is a world of colorful flowers. Chen Li's aptitude for practicing swords is too good, and the boy's skin is extremely brilliant at the time. If you don't pay attention, you will be the second of the rice sword fairy. When Gao Yeho thought of this, he was a little worried. He stopped calling any hidden officials and called his name directly, Chen Pingyan. If Chen Li doesn't like Yuqing himself is wishful thinking and can't blame anyone, but if it's Chen Li Mingming likes Yuqing, but he dared to change his mind and let him down, then I will ask you to settle this account. Of course, Chen Li will definitely not be able to escape. Gao Yihe's love for that sister was once known to everyone on the Great Wall of Jianxi. The 3 times I took the initiative to ask the sword with others, it was because Gao Yuqing was dazzled on the road. 2 people of the same age, one drunkard and bachelor, did not end well for the 3 of them. In other words, if the younger sister and Chen Li were in front of him, Takano Ho would also want to sap Chen Li. Chen Pinggan smiled and said, "Although it is unreasonable to ask me to settle accounts, I have confidence in Chen Li's conduct and Gao Yuqing's vision." Takano Ho felt a little more comfortable. Unwilling to go in circles with Chen Pinggan, Gao Yeho asked directly, "Is it the account book check?" According to the rule, the hidden official and 1 line of sword repairs have this power. They are responsible for monitoring the summer palace in Feixingcheng. Even Qishou and Gao Yu can check them, not to mention a few account books. This is not right. Chen Pinggan smiled and said, "It must be your Xuanhu family line, and take the initiative to send the account books to the summer palace on schedule." Takano-ho shook his head and said, "There is no such rule." Qin Pingan leaned on the back of his chair, shook his blue shirt and long gown and raised Erlang's legs. Regulations, traditions not always have a good start. Takano-ho still shook his head and said, "Don't think about it, I won't agree to this matter. Unless the Hermit Lord convenes a meeting in the Patriarch's Hall, we pass this matter, and our Xuanfu will follow the routine." I thought that even if the talks ended here, even if the two sides broke down, Gao Yeho was even prepared for the worst. The big deal is Qin Pingan made a big fuss in Xuanfu. Anyway, it was not that Qi Shou had not been cut down by Ning Yao, who was temporarily leading the hermit. He, the leader of the Spring Mansion, was cut down by a real hermit, and it seemed to be nothing. Never thought that Qin Pingan gave a hum. Brother Gao has become more calm. In this way, Takano-ho was playing drums in his heart, and it was better to be harassed by Qin Pingan than to be overcast by this guy. Gao Yeho was in a mixed mood at the moment, and suddenly he missed the days of the Abbot Ning Yao's summer residence. Don't worry about it, there is no circumstance and it's business, refreshing and refreshing. Gao Yeho curiously asked, "Is there really nothing serious about coming here today?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "I really didn't. I just asked Brother Gao to tell the old story. Why, I think we have no friendship, and think that I have been a high-ranking Brother Gao who became a high-ranking official." Qin Pingan lowered his head and took out something from his sleeve, and gently tossed it to Gao Yeho, "Even if it is a gift for the establishment of Xuanfu." Gao Yeho held it in his hand. It was a small piece of wood made of old sandalwood. The style was quite elegant and weird. It had a curved ruler shape with inscriptions and signatures on it. It should be an old object, but Gao Yeho couldn't guess what it was for. The 4-character inscription, "Look up, follow the rules," and there is a line of slightly smaller handwriting below. It can be said that the rules can be called a national scholar, and it is reasonable to be a good law. Qin Pingan smiled and asked, "Do you know what it is for?" Takano-ho said in a huff, "Don't sell off, just say it." Qin Pingan said, "It's a seal. It's not worth the money. You may not be able to sell half a snowflake on the mountain, but I have treasured it for many years. I gave it to you. You can eat ashes. Don't give it away." Takano-ho gently put the seal on the table, nodded and said, "I will cherish it at the first sight." Gao Yeho wondered, "Is this going away?" Qin Pingan said, "Go to the conference hall of your spring mansion to see will it be out of compliance?" Gao Yeho shook his head and smiled and said, "What's the matter? You really need to worry about it. The entire Xuanfu government office was moved by the hidden official. You can just walk around except for the treasury and book room. There used to be 4 private residences on the upside-down mountain, namely Chunwanzai, Maihuiwanzi, Sara Mansion and Shuijing Palace. Liu Yuzhou, Liu's son of Liu Kaishan, once offered to give the entire mansion to the Great Wall of Jianqi. The Great Wall of Jianqi was indeed emptied by the Great Wall of Jianqi. Feishincheng Jianxiu very much loved this friendship. The Shuijing Palace, belonging to the Yulong sect, is the only private house that is not related to the Great Wall of Jianqi. As for the sword immortal Xiao Yunyan's Chunbanzhai and Mrs. Yanyan's Plum Blossom Courtyard, because they are both set up with restricted formations, one can be folded into a palm-shaped pocket mansion, and the other can be uprooted. They both arrived in the city that year and eventually followed Fei Xingcheng came to the colorful world together. Mrs. Yanyan was able to become Lu Ji's maid, and received a refuge with this voting certificate. Now she is also a member of the Ancestor Hall of the Dragon Elephant Sword sect, a monk Howren. If she wants to trouble her, she has to take a good look at it, and will it be deployed, and on the road inexplicably. And all this was dominated by the hermit official Qin Pingan. Chunbanzhai and Yifang Jianfang were allocated to Xuanfu. Gao Yeho put aside the affairs at hand, personally led the way, and led Qin Pingan and Xiao Mo to the lobby of the Spring Banner studio in the past years. In fact, Qin Pingan's understanding of the many walls and secret rooms of Chunbanzhai in the past is probably no less than that of Gao Yu. During the period, I passed by the account rooms with rich ink fragrance. Most of them were young monks who were curious about the young hermit. Many of them came from the Yen family and the Nalan family. Among them, there were women holding fans and standing leaning against the door, seeing the blue shirt. But didn't say hello, as if satisfied with seeing one side. She held a folding fan close together, and before sitting down on the embroidered stool, she gently brushed the roundness to avoid folds in her dress. The woman suddenly looked back and smiled at the door. She was 1 generation lower than Nalan Xuanhuan, who was in charge of the house in the past. According to the genealogy, she is the aunt of Nalan Yutsai. It's a pity that the incomprehensible blue-shirt man outside the house walked quickly across the corridor outside the door without squinting his eyes. Qin Pingan asked, "In that plum garden, do you want to gift the spring mansion to the next female sword repairman in the Jade Pure realm?" Gao Yeho nodded and said, "There is this plan. At present it seems that Luozhini, who is a hidden official line, is the most likely. Between Feishing City and the Eight Hills, the boundary has been delineated for the construction of Jiangxian's private house in the future. For example, the three brothers in Shizhou paid their own money and bought a piece of land, intending to rebuild a dustpan. It's just that, like Chongyukshan Pavilion, Dingyun Pavilion, Wanheju, Jiazhanku, etc., these private homes of Jianxian with their own mysteries are difficult to rebuild. If there is no more, it can only be no more." Chen Pingyan came to the familiar lobby, stopped for a moment and crossed the threshold. Takano Ho sat at the threshold with his back to the courtyard and facing the chairs. He took out a pot of wine from his sleeve and asked, "Drink or not?" Chen Pingan leaned on a pillar with his arms around his chest, looked at the 2 rows of chairs and shook his head. "Miyu Sun Jiyuan, Gao Kuei Yen Ming Nalan Saihuan. Xia Songhua Li Kai Kuxia Yuan Qingshu Xia Ji Song Pin Puhi Xiao Yunyan." Plus the last new hermit who was present. At that time rushed to the Downfall Mountain, and a total of 14 sword repairmen were present. Looking back now, it turns out that most of the sword repairs are from other villages. Chen Pingan moved and chose to sit on a chair near the door. It was the position of Xiao Jianxian, the owner of Chunbanzhai, who was somewhat responsible for closing the door and hitting the dog. Chen Pingan smelled the mellow wine scent from the door, and couldn't help turning his head and asking, "What wine?" "It's very fragrant." Takano Ho smiled and said, "I heard that it is a genuine Xianxia wine. I asked someone to secretly buy a jar and distribute a few pots by myself. The price is really expensive. I'm worried that I can drink it all at once, but I buy it. When I was drinking, I made an agreement with the restaurant and didn't let them publicize it to the outside world. I don't know whether the wine is true or not. Anyway, after I tasted it, I think it's worth the price." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "I haven't drunk the drinks before, so I don't want to make a rash judgment, but for the price, Brother Gao is mostly taken as a bully and killed a pig." Takano Ho smiled. Looking at the chairs on the opposite side, Chen Pingan remained silent for a long time, and finally said, "Gao Yeho, we must let Feishingcheng remain Feishingcheng." Takano Ho joked, "A guy from the awe-inspiring world, isn't it a bit weird to say such things?" Chen Pingan raised his right hand, condensing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into a ball, using a strand of pure infuriating energy as the rope, raised it high and then gently pushed the ball with his left hand. Then the ball swayed. Chen Pingan watched the ball sway in 2 directions again and said to himself, "My senior brother Cui Yang, who is the husband of Dallas' son today, I heard that he still Song He, the prince, has seen the beginning and end of 2 things. One is a border prefecture and the other is located in Jianghu. There has also been a scandal. The former's handling skills were extremely arrogant, and the people's grievances were boiling. Regarding what the people didn't raise, it seemed that nothing happened. The officials in the Jianghu region handled it very beautiful. Indeed, there was no concealment, secret papers, official documents, diaries, etc. They were dealt with immediately. See, there is no leaking, no cover, no pressure from beginning to end. Everything seems to be exposed to the public as if everything is clear. In fact, here the local government has reached a tacit agreement with it, and then it is settled under the table. Even if the criminal department of the Dali court investigates it, it seems that there is nothing wrong to settle the account after the fall, because there is no one who embezzles or accepts bribes. There is no dereliction of duty, and as far as the people of a county are concerned, the people's sentiments are very good. They only think that the government has handled them properly, vigorously, and they are very happy. But the world can't contain the fire. As long as things are exposed, they will only get worse and want the situation. To prevent it from getting out of hand, you must use a larger wrist to press it down, and it must be better covered." Gao Yeho asked, "I am worried about the future of Ascension City. The working style of many swordsmen will change from one extreme to another, and they will gradually become an official in the great land of Jianghu. They are skilled, drip-proof and practice swordsmanship. Doing things for officials. More and more sophisticated and sleek? Don't worry about me," Chen Pingan said blankly, "because it will definitely happen." Takano Ho suddenly became dumb. Chen Pingan broke the ball and slowly said, "Sword repair in the lower 5 realms, see sword repair in the middle 5 realms, sword repair in the middle 5th realm, see sword repairs in the upper 5 realm, Yupu fairy sword repair in the 2 realms, I saw the sword repair in the ascending realm. Of course there are others who are not sword repairers, but I saw sword repairs. By the time the 3 government offices in the Summer Palace, the sword repairers will have official status, and they are becoming more and more hierarchical. Walking on the street, they dare to call Dong Sanging and Chen Shi the same names as before. Directly call you Gaoyu and Qisho? The life and death enemy of a Taoist person is himself, forming a golden pill, nurturing the nascent soul, facing the inner demon, and waiting for the upper 5 realms to return to nature and seek truth. It is a difficult journey. The same is true for the enemies of Fei Xingcheng. But don't worry too much about this kind of thing. Since you can't avoid it, prepare early. The situation in Feishing City is actually very good now. Back then, the 2 of them had a relatively rough deduction in private. I was relatively pessimistic at the time, and I had to be a bit optimistic about Saro Miao Jianxian. Not to mention the rapid development of Feishing City over the years, and its ability to be orderly, has far exceeded the expectations of Shou Miao Jianxian. This shows that how well are Qi Shou and Gao Yeho doing. Qin Pingan stood up and said with a smile, "There is a lot to do, but there is a long way to go." Takano Ho did not get up. He still sat on the threshold and said, "The academy is about to be established in Feishing City. I am willing to mix up with outsiders, so if you have ideas, I have heard it, you can ventilate with the summer residents and wait until the next time the ancestral hall is discussed. The suggestion is to be dismissed, and you don't need to be a villain." Qin Pingan shook his head and said, "In fact, I don't have any ideas. Qi Shou has no small selfish intentions, and he has vision in mind. If a person has a long-term perspective, it is not easy to rush for quick success. Ambitious and ambitious are a pair of synonyms." Takano Ho seemed to have no intention of letting Qin Pingan go, and asked, "About the name of the academy as well as those plaques and couplets, who are you going to write?" Qin Pingan had to sit back in his chair. Among the Fuyao survivors in the north, there is no shortage of writers and scholars who are full of poems and books. The ink in my stomach has long been given to 2 copies. Gao Yeho was born at the bottom of the city. He has depended on his sister since he was a child. He has played a lot of part-time jobs and earned everything. For the first time in his life he went to Taixiang Street. He became a sword repairman and got the old sword Xanhuan after he went to the battlefield. Burning Weiss' favor and then being recruited by the Nailan family as a family swordsman. After a few years, Takano Ho took advantage of the opportunity to become the Nailan family's quick son-in-law, married a virtuous woman of the same age. She was also a Jianxiu. Only the female appearance and sword training aptitude are very common. In fact, Nailan Xiaowei first intentionally let Gao Yeho marry another one, but Gao Yeho did not agree. Feishingcheng and the 4 surrounding cities of the vassal have established a school, and preparations for the construction of a college are currently underway. The children's reading and literacy, except for the book Shu Wen Jie, which was highly recommended by the Summer Palace, most of the text comes from the stone tablets scattered in the streets and alleys in Feishing City. Books. Those ancient steles that were once ignored by anyone have now been collected one by one and moved to several schools, like a forest of small steles. Most of the writings on the stone tablet are soaked and stripped, faintly discernible, either in line or in regular script. The characters are strong and the morality is considerable. It is completely different from the style of the later generations. Few rocks, ancient characters full of moss. Who would read it if it weren't for a visitor? In addition to learning words from the master, Meng Tong also has 2 subjects of arithmetic and geography. The children all have to learn to take the exam. The latter is compiled by the Summer Palace and the criminal officer in a joint effort to introduce the colorful mountains and rivers. Rivers, local products. As for the Shuoan Jiezi, the editor was the Master Su, who was hailed as the sage of Xiaoling characters by Howren. In addition, the selection of the classics of the 3 religions and the Summer Palace is extremely cautious. For example, there is only 1 book of rites in Confucian books. As well as a separate piece of encourage learning, it is not because the old scholar is a hermit, and the Summer Palace has widely promoted the classics of Wenxing. Taoism is the Huang Ting Jing, and Buddhism is the Srangama Sutra. In fact, in the final analysis, all schools have only one purpose: to ensure that the children in Feishingcheng can read and hyphenate. You don't need to know everything, but you can't know everything. Qin Pingan asked casually, "How often does the school skip classes?" Gao Yeho had a headache. "It's too much. Why not too much? The school has to arrange a few teachers to block the roads in those specific streets and alleys, and catch them one by one, catch the chickens and then run and catch them. I'm fighting there every day. It's already a good time." At the beginning, almost every day in the school was empty, and it didn't work to persuade me. I just didn't want to study, from children to their parents. I seem to think that this is a shameful thing. The Zhuxiatang is discussing this issue. I almost couldn't help it. I asked whether to pay for school or not. If a child gives a few cents a day, of course Xuanhu will pay. I was only rejected by Qishou, and persuaded me not to say anything. Qin Pingan shook his head. Qishou is right, but you can't open this hole. When Gao Yeho chatted about this, he talked a lot, stopped drinking, smiled, and said, after 2 or 3 years, the children who are willing to take the initiative to go to school finally have a little more, and the result is that there will be more children who are willing to go to school. New trouble, children from places like Yuhu Street, Taishiang Street, and that some classmates in the poor streets and alleys fight when they disagree. They like to hug each other and fight each other. They feel that studying is too boring, but they should fight harder. It is often the teacher who still cares about their. The dog jumped, so in the past few years I went to the school to be a teacher and they complained and complained. The daily mantra just can't be taught. Apart from making troubles in the school, they are bound by hands and feet. Every day before school is over, the 2 groups of people make an appointment. The teachers don't know how to manage and they are not easy to manage. When the next day was in class, all of them had bruised noses and swollen faces. The teachers were angry and funny. Speaking of this, I really want to thank Guizhuzhou. She took the lead and laid down a few rules for the children. It can be regarded as 3 chapters. If the 2 groups want to resolve the grievances between the rivers and lakes, first, both parties must use their bare hands, and secondly, learn at home. Those who have practiced martial arts cannot fight off the field. They can only be the high-ranking general who is responsible for dispatching troops and generals. Third, before starting, you must put your school bags in the care of 1 or 2 people. No one can take care of them. School bags are used as weapons. Whoever dares to break the books in it, don't blame the selfless and polite officers of the inspectors she personally appointed. Finally, the rivers and lakes are grieving against the rivers and lakes. No one in the school can do anything, or else just do things. Don't pay attention to it, it can't be regarded as a real old world. Qin Pingan held back a smile. Bamboo wine reached Luapa Mountain, and he didn't tell me this. Gao Yeho suddenly asked, do you have a disciple named Pei Qian? Qin Pingan nodded and said, what's wrong? Gao Yeho smiled and said, our child King Guizhuzhou did not become the leader of the martial arts. She said that she has a senior sister named Pei Qian, who is tall, powerful and capable of fists, so she herself is just a dog-headed sergeant. Qin Pingan couldn't help but tolerate his laughter. It's not without reason that Pei Qian has nothing to do with Guizhuzhia's side. Takano Ho Tsk said in amazement. Can you imagine that afterwards, there were more than 100 schoolchildren at every turn, and they arrived at the agreed battlefield, divided into 2 groups, the main battlefield swarmed, and there were all kinds of roundabouts and detours. Sneak attacks are all used military techniques. Especially when it snows in winter, it is a lively school. The 4 schools in the city are all coming to Feixingcheng to gather, and hundreds of children are on the side of Taishiang Street. They were crowded together, and many of them were wearing open-crotch trousers. They had snowball fights together. From time to time, the gates of the city would open, and an ambush soldier would be shot out of a certain mansion. Qin Pingan asked, are there any who secretly wrapped snow and hit people with rocks? Takano Ho was speechless. Really? Takano Ho squinted his eyes and said, some little rascals before a fight, they like to roll their sleeves and pants slowly and learn from someone. It's pretty decent. Qin Pingan laughed. An old hidden official in the summer palace, of wealth in the family of Xuanhu. Talking about children fighting in groups, they can even talk with eyebrows and laughter. Qin Pingan left Quan Mansion and came to Taishiang Street. It was already the time when the sun was setting. He raised his eyes and sent flying birds away. Feixingcheng is a city without walls. Because it is not needed. Bring Xiao Mo to the door of a mansion. Qin Mansion on Taishiang Street. There will be a round of rising sun here, and soon the whole colorful world will be looked at. Because the real owner of this mansion is the former Qin Shi. In the Great Wall of Jianxi, there have been constant quarrels about the strength of the small group of peak sword immortals, especially Dong Sanging, Xiao Deng, Qin Shi and Qi Tingji. The specific ranks of the 4 are divided. Of course, Qin Pingan is also very curious, so once the boss sword fairy was a guest at the summer palace, he asked this question. The boss sword fairy had always not mixed with such rankings, probably because he felt that the new hermit had no credit and hard work. I made an exception and gave an answer that is not the answer. Dong Sangjing's killer power is the greatest, Xiao Xing's natal flying sword is the best, the swordsmanship is the highest, Qi Tingji's swordsmanship is the highest, Qin Zai's kendo attainments are the highest, and Dong Sanging was injured in his youth too heavy, Xiao Yan loses in uncertainty, Qi Tingji loses in impureness, Qin Shi loses in relatively weak body and too high heart. Qin Ji looks like a teenager. Before Qin Ping's salute, Qin Ji waved his hand and said, "Forget it, so that both sides are not awkward." The maid clasped her fist and said, "Qin Hui, I have seen Lord Hidden Officer." Qin Pingan smiled and clasped his fists in return. "Congratulations, Miss Qin, who has entered the Jade Realm. If it weren't for Qin Hu's current identity and state to be leaked, the plum garden outside Feixingcheng would already belong to her sword immortal's private house. 2 sit and 2 stops inside the house." Qin Pingan smiled and introduced, "Unfamiliar, the Taoist name Shizhu. Just call him Xiaoma. It is an ascending sword repairman from the wild world, who has been sleeping in the bright moon and bright color for many years, and asked Yuanxiang about the sword. I have cut down on Yangji and Zhu Wei. The implication is that the stranger is just a pure sword repairman, and he has no grudges with the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Rao is Qin Huideo's tenacious heart, and at this moment he is also shocked with a face that cannot be concealed. That is, the young hermit said it, otherwise she would just be listening to a joke. An ancient sword repairman who lived to a long age? Looking at Yuanxiang with Long Jun, they are all the same generation? Xiao Mo said, Xiao Mo has seen old sword Qin Qin. Qin Ji was equally surprised and stood up and clasped his fists. Sword Qi Great Wall, Jianxiu Qin Shi, it's fortunate to see him. Qin Pingan followed Qin Ji and got up and took a seat. Qin Ji asked, "Do you want me to help you think of a way to let you go to the Patriarch Hall to discuss matters?" Qin Pingan shook his head and said, "Forget it this time." Qin Ji didn't force it and asked with a smile, "No wine?" Qin Pingan said in a hurry, "It's too hasty. Next time I go back here I will definitely have a drink." Qin Ji disapproved of him and said, "Hurry? What is it? It's not easy for Ningyao to talk about this kind of thing. She is a woman. I'm surprised your kid is not too courageous. Why only meet this? It's so boring. Besides, even if you don't serve wine you won't be able to cook mature rice with raw rice?" Qin Pingan was embarrassed, but the other party was an elder after all, and it was hard to say anything. Qin Ji shook his head but didn't say much. He relied on the old and sold old language. Too much was easily annoying. He just asked Qin Pingan about Qin Sanqia's current situation. After hearing Qin Sanqia's general travel process, Qin Ji was obviously not quite right. Satisfied, gave an evaluation of stepping on the watermelon rind. I asked Dong Huafu, Yanzhua, Qin Li, and Gao Yuqing about the practice of these 2 generations of young people after they left their hometown, but Qin Ji was quite satisfied. Qin Ji asked, "How about Qi Tingji's dragon elephant sword sect?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Accepting more than a dozen young swordsmen as disciples, Sect Master Qi is now in the wild world and is responsible for garrisoning a ferry. Thank him." Qin Ji laughed at himself. Sure enough, people will change. Qin Ji suddenly asked, "Do you think it is appropriate for Qi Shou to be the lord of the city?" Qin Pingan said, "You can watch for a few more years. After all, after Qi Shou has entered the fairyland, it is actually not appropriate, but Qi Shou has the final say." Qin Ji nodded, agreeing with the young hidden official's statement. Perhaps today's Feixingcheng Jianxiu is not clear yet. The 2 people who most hope that Qi Shou can be the city lord and be good are the 2 in the house at this moment. Qin Pingan hoped that Qi Shou could sit firmly on one of the temporarily hanging seats. As long as Qi Shou could truly convince the crowd, then Ningyao would not have to be distracted. Qin Ji is not very happy to be some city lord himself, but now he is more mindful, and he still has to see if he can go further than the cultivation realm of the previous life. However, Qin Ji was the first city lord, who had been personally arranged by the eldest sword immortal. The only people who knew about this were the young hermits except Qin Ji himself. Qin Ji was really afraid that Qin Pingan was not righteous. In order to make Ningyao more relaxed, one day he was at the Patriarch Hall and moved out this decree in public. Qin Ji asked again, "Is there a quota for the enshrinement and guest of Feixing City in the future?" Qin Pingan thought for a while. Personal suggestion, the best number should not exceed 30% of Zhu Shirtang. Qin Ji asked, "Deng Liang will leave Feixing City in the future, and the Judu Mountain Xia sect created by him, do we need to exchange courtesy and sang in Feixing City and arrange a chief worship?" Qin Pingan shook his head. "You don't need to stare, the intention is too obvious, it will become a potential thread with hidden dangers. Once the branches and leaves are scattered, it is the root of the split between Feixingcheng and Deng Liang's next sect." Qin Ji smiled and said, I think it's better to have obvious intentions so as to save people's hearts. Feishing City doesn't have the idle time to calm people's hearts. There are some problems, but the lack of beating is used to it. Qin Pingan smiled and said, anyway, it's not an imminent thing, so we will discuss it again? Qinji nodded and said, yes. After Qin Pingan and Xiao Mo left, Qinji continued to read. Qin Hui stood by silently. She grew up in the Qin mansion since she was a child. She is not only a dead man but also an assassin. Qinji asked, how is it? Qin Hui replied respectfully, if a slave and maid antagonizes him, there is no chance of winning. Qinji Xiao asked, what if it's a sneak attack on the battlefield or a well-prepared assassination? Qin Hui shook his head and said, most slaves are still going to die. Qinji smiled and said, do you know what a real genius is? There are two types. One is Ninyao, which is easily higher than the two realms of Qishou and Gaoyu, and the other is Qin Pingan. Firen and Shouchen is like this. As long as he fights with others in the same environment, he can be invincible. It is rare for Qin Hui to take the initiative to ask, and cautiously said, Master, how many 14-level monks can be accommodated in a colorful world? Qin Ji flipped the pages of the book lightly and smiled and said, there can be many 14 realms or there can be only one. It depends on the attitude of the world's number one person. In the night, a small alley, a small house, dimly lit as the second-in-command of criminals, she has lived here all these years. Her identity is still a mystery, but no one dared to ask the roots. After all, as the principal of the Wufu line of hiding in the cold palace, she also manages a prison, and her status have surpassed the old deaf children of the year. Today, a rare guest came to the door. Nian Xen opened the courtyard door, and brought Qin Pingyan and a young monk with a yellow hat and blue shoes into the main house. Qin Pingan took out the old tobacco rod and soon began to vomit. Nian Xen frowned and asked, what's the matter? Originally thought that the man in front of him should be a Jade Pure Realm swordsman now, plus the return to true level of the boundary Wufu. Qin Pingan explained, it's not a small price to go to the barren world and it's a lot of downfall. Twisted Core nodded without asking. There was a knock on the door. Xiao Mo went to open the door, and saw a rickety man with a hip flask in one hand and sauce wrapped in oil paper in the other. Xiao Mo immediately smiled because he recognized the identity of the other party. Said, Luapa Mountain enshrines a stranger, meet Mr. Zheng. Mr. Zheng just called me Xiama. The man looked embarrassed and said, how do you feel like being raped in bed? Nian Xen turned her head and looked at the entrance to the courtyard. She said with a black face and solemnly, Zheng Dafeng, please be careful when you speak to me. Zheng Dafeng smiled brightly and nodded to Xiao Mo. Since he is from his own family, there is no need for polite greetings. He strode into the yard and said solemnly, Shanj, I must explain it. Actually, I don't come here often. I am not familiar with the Nianxin girl. After taking his seat, Zheng Dafeng looked at the mountain owner who was smoking a dry cigarette, and asked with a smile, when did you develop the habit? Qin Pingan smiled and said, what happened after I went to the Yang family pharmacy? Zheng Dafeng put down the hip flask and oil paper bag, raised his palm and shook his head, saying, the way is far worse. Turning his head to look at Xiao Mo, Zheng Dafeng asked sincerely, Xiao Mo, our brothers have not seen each other for many years. Can't we drink? Qin Pingan originally wanted to tease a few words, but he thought about it again and his face turned weird, so he resisted the words that came to his lips. Xiao Mo immediately got up, picked up the jug, poured a bowl of wine for Zheng Dafeng and himself, smiled and said, it's really been a long absence. Because Xiao Mo was at the door just now, and at a glance he recognized Zheng Dafeng's dual identities. In addition to being the gatekeeper of Luapa Mountain, he was also the gatekeeper of a certain place a long time ago. However, the Zheng Dafeng at that time was handsome and heroic, with a big frost armor on his body. Zheng Dafeng stepped on the bench with one foot and asked, have you been to the hiding palace? Qin Pingan nodded, it's not bad. Zheng Dafeng said, yes, it's not bad, but it's only good. It's very troublesome. These children are like being pressed by the great wall of sword qi, and their fist has never really risen. Even the best qualified jiang, even he will feel like a dwarf facing Jianxiu. This kind of idea will remain an invisible bottleneck if it is not dispelled for a day. The most troublesome thing is that if there is such a bottleneck, it will not delay the breakthrough. This is difficult to make sense. Now I, the boxing master, can't hold their heads and ask the sword repairers of the same age who are above the top to fight for their lives. In fact, it was Qin Pingan. If he was a martial artist born and bred on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and had never met Cui Qing, had never practiced in a bamboo tower, he would be insurmountable. But during the daytime at the hiding palace, Qin Pingan was really satisfied with the young martial artists. It was a heartfelt approval. To a large extent, from Jiangyun and Yuan Zhaohua's bodies, Qin Pingan seemed to have seen himself. It's like an elder who is already high enough to see a junior who can only be considered as a qualified person. Although the latter has not spoken bravely, but in a pair of eyes, it seems that he has been chanting a word repeatedly. I can definitely become a sword fairy, right? Qin Pingan felt that such words were really beautiful and moving. Zheng Dafeng sipped his wine, shivered immediately, sighed and slowly said, "If you stay in Haoren except Jiangyun, you might get a martial arts gift by chance and everyone else don't think about it." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Anyway, it's not in the Haoren world. When Jiangyun is in the Golden State, you will spend more time thinking about it and the foundation will be very good." Zheng Dafeng said, "Why don't you find a sword repairing scene, come to the infighting between Jian Repair and Pure Wufu?" The two sides guarded each other and fought a solid battle. Regardless of whether they win or lose, they are both against Jiangyun. Good thing. I'm a boxing master who only receives a monthly salary. I can't even count as a sesame officer. I don't have that great ability. Let the steward of the two hills of the hermit or criminal officer control the fire and select them. Not only is the state of the sword repaired, but also has requirements for his xinxing. Otherwise, for this kind of thing, one side asks the fist and the other asks the sword. Those baby bumps in the ascending city, one is impatient and you have to ignore it. Once you talk to Jiangyun and the other's life and death face each other, not to mention hurting feelings, I am afraid that someone will be injured, especially the root of the road, and even more afraid that it will affect the whole body and break the delicate balance of the three hills of Feishing City. Qin Pingan nodded. "It's really not suitable for you to come forward and make this happen." Zheng Dafeng laughed and said, "This is called Jiang Shangzhen looking in the mirror. The reputation of our chief Zhou will surely spread to Qingming world when we open the door next time." Qin Pingan laughed and thought about it for a while. "Find someone to discuss this matter, I'll take care of it, but you have to be ready to fight." Zheng Dafeng nodded. "Girl Nianxin, I'm still idle when I'm idle. Don't you drink a couple of sips with brother Dafeng?" Twisted Core squinted and sneered. Zheng Dafeng took a sip of the wine and said with a faint look in his eyes, "If you don't drink it, don't drink it. What is Dafeng doing?" Qin Pingan hesitated for a moment and still asked, "Can you draw a half-catty Jinchi talisman, or can it be used on the children in the hiding palace?" Zheng Dafeng nodded and said, "If you can paint, you can also use it." Qin Pingan was a little puzzled. Before, he thought there were taboos here and there were some exquisites such as the prohibition of teacher transmission. Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, "According to my master's statement, for no reason, why is it for nothing? Furthermore, my senior brother was scolded in the backyard of the drugstore, and it was rare to be scolded by the master. Didn't Li Er just want to be a good person at that time? If it wasn't for the kid Gao Xian who bought the golden carp in the Dragon King basket first, Li Er got the master's reminder at that time, and the later Luapa Mountain? The second treasurer of the Great Wall of Jianqi and the last hidden official? I see. The so-called double cultivation of blessing and wisdom in Buddhism is both the easiest thing and the most difficult thing." Zheng Dafeng put down the wine bowl, hugged the back of his head with both hands, burped alcohol and said with a smile, "But since you have spoken, I will use the two talisman. In fact, he is a martial artist at the top of the mountain. It's just that on the side of the hiding palace, he has been boasting that he is a great master of the eclosion realm who travels far and wide. Being dismissed by the children is really what Zheng Dafeng asked for." After becoming a mountain state, Zheng Dafeng began to practice boxing deliberately and slack off. He was indeed lazy. And it's still lazy. Because once he became the first stop martial artist in wuxialover, Zheng Dafeng couldn't help but slacken his efforts. "I am far from the storm and the storm may not be far from me." Zheng Dafeng feels that the current stable life is very good. Never tidy up the table and chopsticks, only wipe the stools, the most diligent on behalf of the shopkeeper. Is my brother Dafeng the one who sent the ant? Wrong, it is my Dafeng brother's unfinished daughter-in-laws looking for it, but they haven't been able to find their husband. Zheng Dafeng asked, "On the side of Luapa Mountain, who is looking at the gate now?" Xiamili helped to keep the door for the longest time. "After patrolling the mountains every day, I went to sit at the door. But now I am a Taoist named Nianjing who is taking care of the door. He has just arrived in the town for a few days." True Taoist and fake Taoist? It's really hard to tell. According to the current statement, of course, it is a false Taoist who has no salvation, but if you follow the old almanac you can be regarded as a true Taoist. Zheng Dafeng nodded. I don't think much about it. Qin Pingan smiled and asked, I didn't even think about finding a wife here? Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, I am not the little gangsters. Every day I yell, I can't enter the summer palace, so I'll marry a female sword repairer with a hidden official line. I have been away from home for many years and I don't want anything in the town. I just miss the meat buns from Madame Mao's family. They are big enough. Of course there are also Huang Erniang's drinks and the bowls are not small. Well, it is Hu Feng's grandpa that happy event shop. By the way, do you know that Huang Erniang's baby bump? Qin Pingan nodded and said, I don't know much. I only heard that he was a young talent, the seed of reading. Later, he went to the school opened by the Qin family in Long Wuxia to continue his studies. That's it. Otherwise, Huang Erniang's dead ghost husband is named Bai, and her son is called Bai Shang. Qin Pingan asked, It's another name for Autumn, one of the white merchants? Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, Otherwise? And that Hu Feng, if I remember correctly, you are the same age as you, the one who often went to Laozishan with Dong Shuijing to pick up broken pieces of porcelain. How should you both meet each other? Qin Pingan nodded and said, I have seen it many times, but I have never spoken to Hu Feng. Zheng Dafeng revealed the secret again. Hu Feng's surname is Hu, and his grandfather's surname is Chai. Don't you think it is strange? Qin Pingan angrily smiled and said, How do I know that Hu Feng's grandfather's surname is Chai Bu and Hu? When he was a child, Qin Pingan didn't dare to approach the wedding shop, and the old man who walked along the streets to do the sewing business never walked through Mud Bottle Alley. Zheng Dafeng rolled his eyes, shook his head and asked, Apart from Laozishan, what else? Qin Pingan was silent. Is that very grave? In fact, there were only a few places where children in small towns often visited. Enjoy the coolness under the old locust tree, listen to stories, fish and swim on the stone arch bridge in the back of the green cow. Go to Laosi Mountain to pick up broken pieces of porcelain according to your preference. Go to the fairy tomb to put paper kites and play the house. Qin Pingan's heartstrings tightened instantly. Played every family? Zheng Dafeng shook his wine bowl. Zouzi has been to Liju Cave Sky. If I remember correctly, it was a stall at Xinghua Lane. Later there was also an ant with a heart higher than the sky and thinner than paper, that is Zhou. The younger sister is now, and I actually went to the Liju Cave. Since half of the marriage book was taken by Lu Qi to the poetry of the Qingming world, where did the red threads on her hand come from? This thing. Anyone can refine it? Even if it is Mr. Sanshan Jiuho, his old man's Taoism is enough to reach the sky, and he can't refine it. So many red threads, how did she come from Lao Chai? I asked for it. It is said that the second shopkeeper sits in Zhuangwudi, and the young hidden official counts as an all-out plan. If you want me to see, it's really not very good. Qin Pingan smiled and said, You are old, you have the final say. A picture of the long river of time about the town. Knowing that Brother Cui Yang must have moved his hands and feet, and deliberately deleted a lot of inside information. But Qin Pingan never expected that so much truth would be erased. Zheng Dafeng dipped his finger in the wine and wrote 5 words on the table, just forming a circle, and slowly said, It was Zhou Zi who first created the theory of the 5 elements. The 5 elements inhibit each other. The golden aquatic wood makes fire and the native gold, the golden wood inhibits the water and the fire inhibit the gold. The golden carp of Gao Xian, the paperweight of Zhao Yu, the little loach you gave to Gu Kan, the fire dragon of Xiuxiu girl bracelet, the 4-legged snake next to your house. The knowledge here, get bigger, think about it, think about it. Zheng Dafeng said, I think luoxiourgénie is a bit weird. Qin Pingan returned to his senses, confused. What? Luoxiourgénie, there is absolutely no problem. Zheng Dafeng laughed. Qin Pingan's mind was still in his hometown and the god's grave and asked, Are there more comings? Zheng Dafeng said, It's almost like that, the mountain owner, you can count the index by yourself. Can you count with one hand? Isn't it enough? Nian Xen heard a general idea and said tentatively, Raise Gu? Zheng Dafeng spouted a sip of wine, wanted to stare at the Nianxin girl, but was reluctant, so he waved his hand and said, Don't talk nonsense. Xiao Mo said softly, It's a kind of invisible circulation, everyone has a chance to get everything. Zheng Dafeng laughed and said, It's not so mysterious, it's a bit more vivid, that is, some people are sitting at the bank, everyone is at the gambling table, some people continue to lose their chips, leave the table and make money elsewhere, perhaps borrowing money. It may be that you have picked up money. In short, as long as you have money you can continue to return to the table, but in general this table is still less and less people, and the chips on the table naturally gather more and more. It is over when there is one person left. Until that moment, the man sitting in the village left. That's the old man in the backyard of the Yang family drugstore, Zheng Dafeng's master. Zheng Dafeng picked up the wine bowl on the table and drank it. Qin Pingan hesitated to speak but stopped. Zheng Dafeng glanced at the dry tobacco rod in Qin Pingan's hand, and smiled. It's nothing, in fact I was a little aware of it before I left that year. What I couldn't say at that time was often the at the time for the rest of my life. Leaving Nyangsen's house together and walking in the alleys, Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, "Go to the wine shop for a while? It's closed and the door is closed. Just open it again." Qin Pingan nodded. When he arrived at the wine shop, he helped Zheng Dafeng reopen the door. Qin Pingan found that there was a fresh object on the counter table, a green bamboo tube filled with bamboo carving wine-making chips. Qin Pingan randomly drew out a bamboo chip and wrote, "Hey, what the is what you say, you can do it at 4 o'clock. Everyone in this room persuades you 10. Qin Pingan asked with a smile, "If you win this bamboo stick, everyone has to drink a bowl?" Zheng Dafeng nodded and said, "In order to maintain the business of your shop, I have tried my best, but the drunks were very noisy at first. After half a month they all felt that drinking and boxing were more comfortable, but don't fly to the city, the restaurant in China is still very popular until now. There is no way out of the fragrance that blooms in the wall." The text on the wine order is varied. For example, there is the old and the new 5 must equally divided and each drink 5 points, that is, the winner chooses 10 people at will. If the number of people is not enough, it means that the full seat will drink half a bowl. In addition, there are people serving as wine supervisors, similar to sitting in the village, and drinking supervisors to prevent people who are fined for drinking from raising fish under their feet. Qin Pingan randomly drew out a bamboo chip again, his face turned black. "Fear 2 bowls inside. Recognize drinking 1 bowl, not 3 bowls." Zheng Dafeng craned his neck and glanced at him. "You are so lucky there is no one. Xiaomo, why don't you fill up 3 bowls of wine for our mountain lord?" Xiaomo smiled and didn't move to get the wine. Zheng Dafeng waved his hand. "Since I don't drink, I should go back quickly, otherwise I have to sleep at the door again." Qin Pingan leaned against the counter and looked at the wall. Zheng Dafeng threw the key on the table. "I can't stand it anymore. You can close the door by yourself later. You don't have to come to open the door tomorrow morning. Louis has the key." Picking up a jug of wine from the wine shop, Zheng Dafeng returned to his residence alone. Not far away, walking in an alley, walking slowly with good luck, he heard some movement again, stopped. Zheng Dafeng coughed and said, "Aren't you sleeping?" Inside the dark room there were women laughing and cursing and men cursing. Zheng Dafeng stood on tiptoe and leaned over the wall. He kindly persuaded you to fight, and said, "Forget about quarreling in the big evening, but you will fight again. Do you want Dafeng brothers to be peacemakers for you too?" The room sounded of men getting out of bed, putting on shoes and copying guys. Zheng Dafeng immediately rubbed the soles of his feet. At the wine shop, Xiaomo smiled and said, "Mr. Zheng's style remains the same." Qin Pingan smiled and shook his head, left the key on the counter, closed the door of the shop, and returned to Ningfu with Xiaomo. After walking 6 steps in the martial arts field for about half an hour, Qin Pingan returned to the house, went to the side room to light the lamp, looked at the plain seals on the table with the same material and muttered, "Isn't it? Those seals are all carved from leftovers of frosty jade." Qin Pingan actually wanted to ask Dongbu how she got that piece of frosty jade back then. In the early days of Hanging Mountain, in the narrow alleys of a dead-end road, there was an inn that could be said to be an unknown crane. It was the first time that Qin Pingan took the Osmanthus Island to the Suspension Mountain. He lived in the small inn. The shopkeeper was a young man, and there were a few shop assistants who were not too keen on business. It was very far behind that Qin Pingan learned that in this crane inn, from the shopkeeper to the shop assistant, none of them are fuel-efficient lamps, all of them come from the Sui Chu Gong in the Qingming world. He rushed to the Wawaishan demon, that is, the heart demon Taoist, natural of the palace Lord Wu Shuangjiang, the white-haired boy in the jail of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. I just don't know if the frosty jade or some frosty jade that flows into the Great Wall of Jianqi, did the crane inn do anything? Qin Pingan hesitated for a moment, but still called Xiaomo with his heartfelt voice. Xiaomo grabbed the frosty jade material pieces one by one in the palm of his hand. After a while, he shook his head and said, "There is nothing unusual. The implication is that Wu Shuangjiang did not separate a piece of mind and hide it. At least not among these prime chapters on the table." Qin Pingan remembered something. The husband said that he had been in the Great Xuandu Temple and met Wu Shuangjiang, who was among the 14th realms, as a guest Taoist temple. The Lord Wu at the time looked at the weather slightly unstable, a little bit. A fly in the ointment. Logically speaking, let alone what it is to be among the 14th realms, all Qi practitioners at the beginning of their respective breakthroughs need to stabilize their realm. But Wu Shuangjiang, can you use common sense to guess? Assuming that Wu Shuangjiang really did this, his mind must be somewhere in wuxialover, maybe in Feixingcheng or at the top of the mountain where Sui Qigong was built in wuxialover. This kind of behavior is more than just a risk-related act. It is the top taboo of cultivation when it comes to insufficiency and retreat. What's more, it is breaking the bottleneck of the Ascension realm and trying to enter the 14th realm. And this incarnation of the mind is no better than the great monk's yang god body or the yin god traveling far away. When leaving the real body, it is destined to be no higher than the realm. Once it falls into the hands of other monks, the consequences will be disastrous. He is not an outright lunatic and he can't do this kind of activity at all. But to Wu Shuangjiang it really seems to be nothing. Qin Ping tentatively shouted, "Palace Master Wu?" Shouted again but there was no response. Just call that Wu Shuangjiang by his name. Still nothing happened. Qin Pingan glanced at Xiao expressionless. In a school in the summer city, there is a teacher looking at a young teacher, walking under the moon with his hands folded, looking at a pair of handwritten couplets. The upper beam meets Ziweixing by chance, and the vertical column is lucky to be on the ecliptic day. This humble teacher is a native of the Great Wall of Jianghu. Because he is a practitioner but not a sword repairman, he has been working as a servant in the house of Sun Jiyuan, a sword repairman in the Yupu realm, and has lived in the school for the past few years. I just accepted a book boy last year. In fact, he was born as a pitiful and extremely natural plague god. He traveled here with a Fuyao cultivator, but the boy himself didn't know about it. In this way he would be unaware of it. As for the wandering monk, he was naturally a puppet who asked 3 questions. It's not that you can't follow that line and do some grand deductions, but the teacher doesn't want to reveal his identity for the time being, so he just chooses to cut it off. Anyway, he only needs to guess, which is more accurate than that fortune-telling. After hearing 2 sounds of Wu Gongzhu and Wu Shuangjiang, the teacher tutored, "Could it be a fool?" In the early morning of the next day, Qin Pingan went to the wine shop. Not long after the door was opened, there was no business early in the morning. Qiu Lang and Lu Yi, as well as Feng Kangle and Tao Ban were all there, gathered around a table. Chat idle. The girl from the past, Lu Yi, who has been married as a woman, said in surprise, "Second shopkeeper." Qiu Yang also smiled, but he was more reserved than his wife. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Looking back, when you opened a wine shop in the summer city, I might not be able to come to congratulate me in person, but the plaques and couplets of the new wine shop are all wrapped in me." Lu Yi hurriedly gave the shopkeeper a blessing, and Qiu Long stood aside and smiled from ear to ear. Feng Kangle, the stubborn kid in the early years, is a big man. Tao Ban went to the stove and soon brought a bowl of noodles to the second shopkeeper. Feng Kangle complained, "Second shopkeeper, why did you come here?" Qin Pingan took the bowl of scallion noodles and a pair of chopsticks and laughed softly, "There is no way, there are many things, I can't help but do whatever he wants." Feng Kangle nodded and said, "That's right, I'm thinking about making a lot of money. I haven't made a lot of money in so many years." One lying on the table, one holding his cheek with one hand, just staring at the second shopkeeper who had been reunited after a long time. They are not cultivators. From a child to a teenager, and then from a teenager to a young person, they are all so fast. It seems like a matter of blinking an eye. If they want to become a middle-aged person, they won't be slow. Qin Pingan rolled the chopsticks noodles and smiled, "See if I can be full?" Tao Ban grinned. Feng Kangle asked, "Would you miss the wine shop after being away for so long?" Qin Pingan nodded and said, "Yes." Zheng Dafeng yawned and walked to the wine shop. The first guest at the wine shop today surprised Qin Pingan. He was a suave young man with the appearance of a poor scholar, still dressed in black. When this man saw Qin Pingan, he used a name that no one had ever heard of in Feixingcheng and said happily, "Brother good guy." Qin Pingan put down his chopsticks, "Yo, it's Brother Mu Mao. Brother good guy, I haven't seen him in a few years and my style is better than before. I don't need to drink when I meet in a foreign country and my heart is warm. It's easy to talk about it. Brother Mu Mao is not bad. To be honest, if Brother Mu Mao doesn't come again, I will take the initiative to visit the house, and I should do my best as a landlord. To be honest, I used the pseudonym Chen before. In order to treat people with sincerity so that the good guy wouldn't be able to find me, I changed back to Mu Mao's real name. Coincidentally, I changed my name to Dou Yi earlier, but now I have changed back to my real name. Presumably the good guy won't faint now, right? It's hard to say separate people. Zheng Dafeng sat aside a little confused. Are you two brothers who have been separated for many years? Chen Pingan explained, in the ghost mythical valley of Luzhou, Beiju, I met this brother Mu Mao by chance, and I didn't know each other if I didn't fight. The scholar in black smiled and said, where, it's just as you see it before, and the gods are beautiful, giving me the opportunity to fight side by side with the good guys, to fight against the enemies to make money together, and the brothers to work together to cut money. He held his fist high at Zheng Dafeng and shook it vigorously. Presumably this is the legendary treasurer who has no dross in his chest and is known as the prodigal son who is quite turbulent. Zheng Dafeng clasped his fists in return. An imaginary name is an imaginary name. Chen Pingan smiled and said, if you come to Jianxi Great Wall earlier with Mu Mao's intellect, you will definitely be able to enter the Summer Palace. The scholar in black waved his hand and said, I dare not dare. Chen Pingan asked, are they here? The scholar in black smiled and said, no, it's just me. Chen Pingan suppressed the doubts in his heart, and did not break the casserole to ask the end. The guy in front of him, although his real name is Yang Ningxing, is just not all Yang Ningxing. Xuanhuan, the cave master of Tianyu Cave of Luxiazu, his only son Shu had heatstroke, came to Wuxia Tianxia that year, and soon chose a place of geomantic omen to create a transcendent platform. With this, Chen Wen, who took the initiative to come to the door, he quickly became one, and the latter became an assistant and helper. As for the guy with the pseudonym Yang Hengxing, his real name is Yang Ningxin from the Chongshen department of the Dayuan dynasty in Luzhou, northern Zhu, and he is the elder brother of this Mu Mao brother. Of course he is dear. Yang Ningxin was in wuxialover and soon from the Golden Core realm to the nascent infant realm, and at the same time from the Golden realm to the Far Journey realm. He is good at talisman, and he has no particular attention to walking the rivers and lakes without revealing yellow and white. A magic weapon, it is simply a mobile treasure house. As a result, it has attracted the coveting of all forces. Yang Ningxin has always shot hard and snowballed, and finally attracted nearly 100 practitioners. The besieged, hunted and counter-killed. And Yang Ningxing, known as the Little Heavenly Monarch, in Baijiluzu, is more hopeful than his elder brother to inherit the Yunxiao Palace, and then it will be natural to take advantage of the trend as the protector of the Great Source Dynasty. Yang Ningxing refined the mirror back of the 3 mountains and 9 Ho house of the Baojing Mountain in Ghost Mythical Valley. After arriving here there was almost no twists and turns, and he successfully entered the Yupu realm. It's just that the two brothers seem to have a bad relationship when they were young. They have not entered the colorful world together, and they have not seen each other in the past few years. Shu Heatstroke, a well-deserved son of heaven, has a prominent father and a rich family, and his mother is still the younger sister of the female fairy Tsongqian. At the beginning there were 5 servant girls, sword servant, beside him, who followed him into a new world. They were named Xiaoping, Crimson, Sai, Daxian, Huaying, and they were all middle 5 sword repairers. Now they are 2 golden cores and 3 longmen realm. This shows how Tianyu Dongshin's pair of mountain Taoists spoiled the only son, and the depth of Tianyu Dongshin's background can be seen. In fact, they are just taking care of the food, clothing, shelter and transportation of Shu Heatstroke. After all, Shu Heatstroke is one of 10 young candidates in the world. Qin Pingan asked, the young man of Fuizone? The scholar in black shook his head and said, I've seen it from afar, but there is no intersection. The basic techniques of Fuxi sect are somewhat similar to those of Judu Mountain. They are all composed of green words and green chapters, but in addition to asking gods to bring their truth down, Fuxi sect can also invite ghosts and immortals. At that time the Lord Jihai invited a god, Catch the Willow, and a ghost, Huabei. At that time both realms were in the Yuaning realm. As the guardian of the next sect lord, he followed the young man into the colorful world. The scholar in black asked, Can you ask me something for the Shu brother, over there from Tianyu Cave Tian? Qin Pingan said, There has been a civil turmoil but the problem is not big. In fact, not only Luxiazu Tianyu Dong Tian Jinjiazu Chaopa sect, but also Baiwa Fudi, and even the ferry of Lu Kaishan on Iazhao has encountered a dangerous design on the mountain. The black-clothed scholar nodded and said, This is the best. After listening to the Lord Shu I can finally rest assured. With this news alone, we can ask our Lord Shu for 1 or 2 maidservants. The cultivator is most afraid of in case. But once that what if comes and passes, it is a great thing. After all, the possibility of just in case is almost negligible. The scholar in black sits cross-legged on the bench, always feeling a bit sloppy. Qin Pingan asked, "Why don't you return to Transcendental Station to enjoy the blessing? No matter how good the scenery is, after all, it is such a big place with few people and just a few faces. The key is that every tomorrow will be similar to today." The scholar in black curled his lips. "Unlike here, people come and go every day, the streets and lanes are bustling, full of vigor, and every tomorrow makes people look forward to the next tomorrow." Then he was suddenly strangled by a white-clothed young man, presumptuous. "Did the left guardian of Qilong Lane borrow your courage? How dare you call my husband a brother?" Sword of Coming Chapter 9:15. Yang Ning's face was flushed with his neck tightened, and he had to slap the arm of the man behind him vigorously, hoping that the other side would be merciful. They are all friends who don't know, so why bother? The white-clothed boy seemed to be very angry. Instead of letting go of his arms, he fell into a tan, moved a little and pulled Mu Mao's body backwards, his back almost flat on the ground. Yang Ning was really dizzy and said with difficulty, "Brother good guy, take care of it, hurry up and take care of it, don't save yourself, your student is born with supernatural powers and shots too hard." "I only saw a guy with a young face with a red mole on the eyebrows and a murderous face." The white-clothed boy turned his head and looked at Zheng Dafeng, bent his knees and squatted slightly, first twisted one of his hands severely, causing Yang Ning to roll his eyes straight. Did not care about life and death, just smiled brightly. "Brother Dafeng." Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, "I haven't seen him for many years. Brother Chui is still a beautiful young man." As far as friendship is concerned, Zheng Dafeng naturally has a better relationship with the old cook in Wei Shanjun. The three of them are more jealous of this big white goose, and can only say that they are not alienated or close. Zheng Dafeng asked, "Why are you here?" Chui Dongshan grinned. "Xuanhuan had a clever plan." Qin Pingan reminded, "Dongshan, it's almost there. If this continues, Brother Mu Mao will pretend to be dead, and he will come back to me for a sum of medicine." Chui Dongshan let go of his arms and raised Brother Mu Mao. The latter rubbed his neck with one hand and coughed. Chui Dongshan helped beat his back and said with a smile, "Blame me, I am so enthusiastic. It is really for Brother Mu Mao. I've been fascinated for a long time. I can't help myself without meeting. Brother Mu Mao won't hold grudges?" Yang Ning smiled awkwardly, No. In the eyes of the air trainer and the ordinary master, they are two completely different worlds. Once the air trainer starts climbing, he will see a whole new world. Suddenly, like opening the eyes of the sky, the people around you are slender, eyelashes trembling, and the needles of the clothes will be as large as the mesh of a fishnet. The trembling amplitude of the crow's feet when women speak is clearly visible, and the gaps in the powder on their faces are like crisscrossing of the ridge. The sound of footsteps nearby, even every breath, heartbeat, falling in the ears of the monk, will sound like thunder. So every Qi practitioner, at the beginning of his practice, needs to adapt to this tremendous change. In addition, all magic powers as well as sword repair flying swords, more or less, will involve some Qi ripples. A cultivator facing this clue is like an ordinary master sitting by the water, with others throwing rocks into the water. The splashes and rippling water patterns that are aroused are the spiritual ripples between the heavens and the earth. So someone approached the wine table unconsciously, and this Yang Ning was surprised that she would be attacked by others, strangling her neck, and having no strength to fight back. It was even more shocked. This is a colorful world with one of the few monks in the upper 5 realms, and it is not Beiju Luzhou where the big wild dragons and snakes dormant everywhere. I want this nascent soul realm to have eggs. A wine table, Qin Pingan, Zheng Dafeng, Chui Dongshan, Yang Ningxing, just one person and one bench, but Chui Dongshan squeezed a stool with the Mu Mao brother, bumped his shoulder and said with a hippie smile, "Brother Mu Mao, little brother, I know a little bit about physiognomy. I can see that your luck is so good. It's a good season of fortune and numerology. When you get here you will definitely have a big harvest. It is better for our brothers to meet frankly, set up a stall and come to the scene." "The burden of bartering?" Yang Ning said with a face, ashamed to say. Chui Dongshan lifted his feet, twisted his figure, stood up again, and quickly strangled Brother Mu Mao's neck again with lightning speed. Yang Ningxing immediately said, "I'm not so ashamed. In fact, there are little gains. How can Bao Zhai do it?" Fucking, as expected of the students brought out by the good guys, they are almost out of the blue and better than the blues. If they turn their faces, they turn their faces faster than turning the books. Back then, the good guys didn't talk about justice like this in the Ghost Valley. Qin Pingan ignored Chui Dongshan's absurd behavior, just picked up the wine bowl, bumped with Zheng Dafeng and drank each as if it was the lively and current wine and food. The wicked have their own grievances. This is called bittern tofu, one thing drops one thing. Chui Dongshan sat back to his original position. Don't worry about setting up a stall, first drink the drinks in place. Mr. doesn't like to talk about his journey, and occasionally mentions some landscape stories, often in a few sentences, but this brother Mu Mao, Mr. really said a few more words. And talking about the scholar in black, the husband smiled a lot when he spoke. In the early years in Luzhou, Beiju, Qin Pingan had reunited with Jiang Shangzhen. The latter revealed the secret. The Yunxiao Palace Yang Ningxing, known as the Little Heavenly Monarch, is a well-deserved natural Dao kind, and he will do that extremely dangerous cut. The three-corpse move intends to condense the evil thoughts in the heart into a mustard seed, and then cut it out. In this way, when Yang Ningxing breaks the bottleneck in the future, he will become a jade from Yuaning. During the period, the heart demon is in trouble. Obstacles will be much smaller. The act of slashing the three corpses is a unique way of the Taoist school. Buddhism also has the same way of subduing the heart and the horse. It happened that Qin Pingan had seen these two things with his own eyes. In addition to Yang Ningxing, he also encountered a white-clothed monk who cut a cliff as a cave dojo. He had been with a heart ape all year round. As for the scholar in black who said that he and Qin Pingan were fighting side by side, sharing the accounts to earn money, it is really not a lie. The two sides fought all the way in the Ghost Valley, tricked each other, calculated each other, and finally got their own gains, but said that Yang Ningxing got the old dragon's cave. That very valuable golden scorpion fish, and the term very valuable, was an evaluation that came out of Jiang Shangzhen's mouth. The things that Jiang Shangzhen thinks are valuable, shouldn't they be worthy of the name? So this account, Qin Pingan after many years, has always remembered very clearly. It turned out that after a hard work he still made a small profit. Brother Mu Mao secretly made a big head? Yang Ningxing saw the white-clothed boy surnamed Chui, took out a folding fan of yuzu from his sleeve, twisted his fingers, opened it with a snap and convinced people with virtue. Dare to meet someone in the same way? Brother Mu Mao, brother, I have a unique secret technique that can help you out of Yang Ning's control. Otherwise it seems to be free and easy, but in the end, it is still unavoidable to make wedding clothes for others and practice hardship, and the result is a dish on the table. Why bother? Chui Dongshan has a sincere expression on his face and said with a serious and earnest voice, why don't we make a big deal with our brothers? This kind of burden is the only one in the world. Please cherish it, there will be no such shop after passing this village. Yang Ningxing smiled and shook his head and said, Brother Chui, why bother me? Even if a great sword immortal like Bai Chang cuts the red line of marriage, he also cuts the line of cause and effect drawn by the avenue. Chui Dongshan shook the folding fan vigorously, sneered and said, there is a specialization in the art industry, so Bai Chang is a green onion. Yang Mu Mao turned his head to look at Qin Pingan, wondering, Brother good man, this Master Chui is really your student, not the preaching teacher who led you up the mountain? Qin Pingan smiled and said, it's a student. Chui Dongshan twisted the turning fan and changed his side to face Yang Ningxing, refusing to accept beating to death. Yang Ningxing caught a glimpse of the four characters above, one body leaned back and his face was full of horror. He hurriedly clasped his fists and said, it's no wonder that I fell in love with Dao Yu Chui at first sight. I had only a few words, so I expressed my heart, Yang Mu Mao's foundation. The way of being in the world is all in the 8 characters on both sides of friends Chui Dao Yu. Chui Dongshan took out a small celadone dish from his sleeve, then raised his sleeve and shook it. Some peach slices fell out and looked at Mr. Qin Pingan shook his head. Chui Dongshan twisted a piece of candied fruit into his mouth, and then pushed the porcelain plate to Zheng Dafeng and said vaguely, Brother Dafeng, quickly taste it, it's very rare delicacy, it will be hard to eat in the future. Zheng Dafeng is not polite. He grabbed the candied fruit and put it into his mouth. After chewing it, he immediately chewed out the doorway and said, good craftsmanship. Qin Pingan picked up the porcelain plate and handed it to Yang Ningxing. The latter carefully twisted a piece of candied fruit with and looked at it as if it were made of dried peaches. Qin Pingan put the porcelain plate back in front of Zheng Dafeng. Asked, Brother Mu Mao, what are your plans next? Yang Ning chewed slowly, suddenly looking radiant. It turned out that his soul and 2 souls were like a long drought in the rain, and benefited a lot, just like swallowing a panacea that was refined, and the corner of his eye looked at that one. Porcelain plate, there are 3 pieces of candied fruit, he said. Continue to wander, since it is from the south, I plan to go to the north to see if I can meet a brilliant Mingjun, please be me national teacher or something. Next time the good guy passes by, I will be the host and must be hospitality. Qin Pingan nodded. Yang Ning asked instinctively, "Brother good guy, I finished the stall with Dao Yu Chui but I really left." Qin Pingan still only nodded. When Yang Ningxing saw that the good guy didn't get in, he had to bite the bullet and asked, "I'm really not invited to the summer palace. Maybe I'm a passionate person and I stayed behind. It's not a sword repairman, it's always okay to be a guest clerk. It's also good for Fei Xingcheng and the line of hidden officials to do my best." Qin Pingan took a sip of the wine and smiled and said, "The summer palace is small, where there is room for the incomparable Mu Mao brother, and the twisted melon is not sweet. I think there is no need to keep it." "Not sweet? Why is it not sweet? Like candied fruit on the table if you can eat it 2 or 3 times a year? The bitter melon that breaks heart can be sweet as honey. Besides, the good guy doesn't understand me. Go outside. I'm the most able to endure hardships. I don't have to pay any salary when I become a guest of the summer palace." Yang Ningxing forcibly swallowed the candied fruit that was quickly chewed in his mouth, quietly circulated the aura of Xiao Xiandi, and dragged it to several natal qi residences to store, and then reached out to the porcelain plate, wanting to have another piece. As a result, Cui Dongshan closed the folding fan and knocked on the back of his hand hard, causing Yang Ning to end in angrily. "Why should Brother Mu Mao stay close and seek further distance? Don't want a cheap ready-made one? How can you be a bag fast?" Cui Dongshan shook the breeze and smiled and said, "If I didn't guess wrong, you have been to the north, you have been a real person protecting the country, you have your own territory and you have a puppet emperor. When everything is ready you only owe Dongfeng. Go to the Yashang Yao Qing or one of the direct disciples of the national teacher Bai O, so that you can get what you need from the Qingshan dynasty in the Qingming world, and quietly negotiate a business? You are protecting yourself. The Qingshan dynasty can to get a large enclave and many immortal mansions of the tribe. I believe Brother Mu Mao's current fortune. The hope is still great." Yang Ning's expression astringent, silent. Cui Dongshan took advantage of the hot railroad. "But before the door opens next time, there is still a young man, Mu Mao brothers Yuanying realm, traveling all the way seemingly peaceful, but since I will meet me today I will meet tomorrow. Who, since it is a great thing to meet me, whoever meets me next time, logically speaking, it will be suspended. I declare in advance that this is not my cursed brother Mu Mao." Qin Pingan is confounded by Cui Dongshan. Cui Dongshan repeatedly said that the black-clothed scholar had good luck, which is actually the truth. If the luck was a little bit worse, as one of the 3 corpses killed by Yang Ningxing, it should have disappeared long ago. This is also when Qin Pingan and the scholar in black were parting, why there was a feeling of sadness that the 2 sides have this parting and never meet again. Yang Ning smiled and looked at Qin Pingan. "My dear brother, I still believe in you more. Why don't you tell me the truth? This fellow Cui Daoist really has the best of both worlds." Qin Pingan nodded and said, "Yes, but it's still not a once-and-for-all method. But it is guaranteed that Brother Mu Mao can increase his age for hundreds of years out of thin air without looking for the Yao Yaxiang. Whether you can get along with Yang Ning, whether you can enter the Jade Realm or even become an immortal, and whether you can find the way to break the knot in the future depends on Brother Mu Mao's own chance and luck." Yang Ningxing seemed to have taken a reassurance pill, stroked his palm and exclaimed, "Sure enough, it's still a good guy who trades fair and it's childlike. Don't say anything else. This good guy has a lot of defensiveness, and he has no intention of taking the initiative to harm others. This is not what a good person is. The reason why this brother Mu Mao, who has Yang Ning's nature and one soul, came to the wuxia world to experience, is actually Yang Ning's unexpectedness and chose a more lofty avenue. Treasure hunting, missing things, practicing to break the realm, are all blindfolds. You have to get in touch with Yao Qing, the first assistant of the Qingshan dynasty. When the door is reopened, you will go to the Qingming world and meet the Taoist master. Yaxiang Yao Qing is the real pursuit of great future. This matter is the decree of the true body Yang Ningxing. As one of the 3 corpses, Brother Mu Mao, he must not be disobeyed. Moreover, this action is also a kind of self-help of the scholar in black. Because once the plan fails, Yang Ningxing can only take a step back, recovering, refining and fusing the Yang Mu Mao, who is one of the 3 corpses, and reintegrating into a complete Yang Ningxing. Once the black-clothed scholar and Yao Qing fail to agree and return without success, Yang Ning has his own means and there is no more Brother Mu Mao in the world. Qin Pingan suddenly asked, "Is the true Yang Ningxing has entered the wuxia world through Tongyi's Hao a long time ago, and secretly went to the Qingming world?" The black-clothed scholar looked sad, raised the wine bowl and took a big sip, wiped the corners of his mouth with the back of his hand. His eyes were dark and unclear, staring at the light ripples in the bowl on the table. "Obviously, my only way out was long ago. The guy is blocked. With Yang Ning's temperament, How can he let me leave it alone and rely on me, the bad embryo he least looks at, to take refuge in Baiyujing? Unsurprisingly, he is already in the 5 cities of Baiyujing. Somewhere on the 2nd floor, I started practicing Taoism. He raised his head and smiled, holding the white bowl with his palm and shaking it gently. No matter how good the drink is, it will only be in one bowl. But there is nothing to regret, it is a good drink after all. Cui Dongshan sighed and said, Yao Qing is feasible, but Yang Ning's nature may not be feasible. In terms of qualifications, roots, and blessings, the little Tianjun of Luzhou and Beiju is still a lot less favorable than Yao Qing's blessedness. Of course, if Brother Mu Mao thinks him being alarmist, I can't stop him. The method of proving the Tao by slashing the 3 corpses is both mysterious and dangerous, and not everyone can do it. In history, many Taoists who have walked this path have fallen short of their achievements and suffered many future problems. Even if it succeeds, of course it is of great benefit to the Taoist himself, but for the 3 corpses, it is often a kind of death and disappearance, and the end is like the life thing that has been tempered, returning to the soul, and life is short. Such as the autumn of vegetation. However, there are few exceptions in the history of Taoism. For example, Qingming Xianxia in the Qingshan dynasty, where a large group of 5 tomb youths emerged, the first assistant Yao Qing, the Taoist named Shouling, this Tao sect Gaozhen, who is often invited to give lectures and preach in Baiyujing Jade Imperial City, made a feat. Yao Qing not only killed the 3 corpses, but also produced 3 more zombies out of thin air, all of whom were immortal. One person with 3 dharmakayas practice together, the avenues are related, and the well water does not offend the river. Yao Qing is outside the body of the yin and the yang god, which is equivalent to an extra friend of the avenue, of 2 immortals and 2 jade. The 3 monks who came out of the 3 corpses are similar to ghosts but not the same. Yao Qing himself, as the deity, is also a monk at the peak of the Ascension realm. Qin Pingan asked, Yang Ningzhen, your brother, intends to reach the top of the mountain in wuxialover, and then go to Bai-O, hoping to let her help to feed the boxing? Yang Ning shook his head and smiled, this is not clear. My brother's thoughts are always wild and unpredictable, making it difficult for outsiders to guess. Bai-O, the national teacher of the Qingshan dynasty, is a woman pure martial artist, with a hand-halberd, iron chamber on her waist. She is the 3rd person in the martial arts of the Qingming world, and she is undoubtedly the ultimate of the 1st floor. Yang Ningxing seems to have finally made up his mind, this deal is done. Even if there is still a bit of a lot of ties, it is better than a puppet. In this way I am free and he is also relaxed. Yang Ningxing is even more able to practice avenues in Baiyujing. For me, Yang Mu is more than his Yang Ning's nature. In the long run it will be a good thing after all. Xiaomo stayed in the shop and looked carefully at the innocent signs on the wall. Cui Dongshan beckoned vigorously, Xiaoma, come on. Xiaomo walked out of the shop quickly and asked with a smile, what's wrong with Mr. Cui? Cui Dongshan asked with a smile, Xiaoma, can you see that line of cause and effect with distinct primary and secondary? Xiaomo glanced at the scholar in black and nodded, it can be seen that this long line of cause and effect of Zijin Dao Qi has spread to the sky, and with someone else in the world, it formed the scene that Taoist priests call Ida line of sky in the early years. Generally speaking, Xiaoma never actively explores the heartstrings of others, nor does he care about the other's realm or his or her origin, because it is unnecessary. In ancient times, many gods who fell to the world due to various reasons, if the punishment was not too severe, the old heaven would allow that to walk the world with the body of sin. This is the beginning of a part of the world's immortals and their re-entry. The sky hangs down a long line pulling the earth. This is the so-called skynet that is full of negligence and not leaking. The small fish swim freely among them, cultivated Taoism and become the big fish of the climate, and it is difficult to break free from the restraint until death. Later that little master's unparalleled knowledge was largely due to this matter. The saint separates heaven and earth with his own avenue, and the price of this saint is not to be among the 15 realms. It's not that it can't be done, it's that it's unwilling. In the ancient times, because of these phenomena of heaven and earth, a small group of Taoists who were blessed to the soul accidentally discovered some circular and orderly circulation of Taoism, and later generations gradually evolved many channels. For example, among them there are hopeful champions. Cui Dongshan asked, can you cut it open? Xiaomo nodded and said, now it's okay to no matter what's going on, it's okay to completely cut off this long line, not to mention that I haven't done this kind of thing before and I promise to be unscathed. If this fellow Yang, be cruel in exchange for a free body at the price of falling a few times, I can help to cut out the small half grain of Taoism from his heart, and then keep the thing and one day return the old master. It is a sum of money that has been cleared, or else be cruel, let me help smash Dao seeds with a sword and ruin that person's future, no problem. Qin Pingan smiled and said, Brother Mu Mao, what do you say? The scholar in black rubbed his hands and smiled, just disconnect the line of cause and effect temporarily. The old saying goes well, and you can stay on the sidelines so that you can meet in the future. Qin Pingan nodded and said, it makes sense. So our brother Mu Mao began to hold his breath, and was ready to prepare himself for the collapse of a small world of human body, mountains and rivers, and so on. Several of Yang Ning's destiny left to him have already been set up in various large mansions. Wait, gather the moral energy from all over the place, like soldiers and horses gathered, one after another, to rush to a crucial jianghu important place, and be prepared to stay in line so as not to accidentally fall down and hurt the roots of the road. As a result, the guy who was called Xiaomo by friends of Cui Daoist just walked up to him, on the top of his head, opened his 5 fingers, twisted his wrists as if to pull gently, and finished work. The scholar in black still waited patiently for a while, seeing that Xiaomo was already sitting on the empty stool, and then he was confused and tentatively said, is this done? This young monk in the yellow hat and blue shirt, when he is a sword repairman in the Ascension realm? You good guy, can you repeat the same trick, join hands in the game and partner to cheat me? Qin Pingan smiled and said, why don't you take a good look at the weather in your own world, especially if you look closely at the movement of the small half-grain Taoist species, whether it's true or not, it's clear at a glance. Cui Dongshan hurriedly came to behind Xiaomo, raised his elbow and rubbed his shoulders for Mr. Xiaomo. Tough, too hard this shot, the loss is immeasurable. Xiaomo wanted to say that it's not hard work, it's just a small effort, but it's harder to resist mentioning it. After a while, the scholar in black showed no more joking expression. His face was solemn and asked Qin Pingan, how to repay? Qin Pingan smiled and said, I will pass by somewhere in the future. Master Yang remembers to do his best to be a landlord. The scholar in black raised a hand, spread out his palm and promised, before opening the door again, if I really become the protector of a new dynasty, I can change the method and give it to the 500,000 people in Feixiangcheng. Cui Dongshan looked at Mr. and asked with his eyes, is this transaction at a loss? If he didn't make any money, the students would go on his own initiative and wander around with this brother Mu Mao. Qin Pingan nodded, indicating that there was a profit, and turned back to the burden of the two of you. The black-clothed scholar was relieved, as if a huge boulder on Dao Xian was removed. Dao Xian was a little clear at this moment, and he vaguely felt an opportunity to break the ground, such as the peeling off of bamboo shoots and revealing the embryonic form of a wild green bamboo. Suppressing his surprise, his expression was complicated and said, from today onwards I am Yang Mu Mao, worthy of the name. Sure enough, every time you meet a good man there must be something good. At the moment, there are outsiders present, otherwise you will have to hang your shoulders with him and say from the bottom of your heart, the good man is really my blessed general. Qin Pingan raised the wine bowl and said, Brother Mu Mao, I'm taking the initiative to take care of things this time, so next time we meet again, don't let me do the wrong thing to make up for it. Yang Mu Mao laughed and said, how can we not spare any good fortune? Zheng Dafeng smiled and gathered the bowls, then everyone in the room will drink 10. Qin Pingan drank a bowl of wine and asked, have you come to Feixiangcheng from the heat of Sichuan? Yang Mu Mao shook his head and said, no, otherwise it's his ostentation. It has long been known to passers-by. Shu Heatstroke is very different from our two brothers. The sons of wealthy families are both delicate and noble, going out and paying attention to thieves. Moreover, this guy is a tired, lazy person. He doesn't like to move. He has a good life. He is more popular than others. He drank with me one night and said that he was going to be in the Jade State. When the next day he really gave him whatever he wanted. As soon as he entered the Yupu realm, Yang Mu Mao couldn't even be sure whether Shu Heatstroke was accumulated or on a whim. In fact, the monks on the mountains in the world know well, whether it is the 10 young people in the world or the 10 candidates who are slightly inferior, as long as they are on the list, they are all expected to exist. As long as you are on the path of spiritual practice, don't be too arrogant and overwhelmed, and you won't encounter big accidents. It can be called a flight candidate for sure. Like Ningyao Fei Ran, now he is in the Ascendant Realm and he is still a sword repairman. A first person in the colorful world, a savage co-owner. If it is a pure wufu, there is hope that it will reach the end of the real world, and even have the opportunity to fight for the legendary god arrives, with this fist, I am the god. Qin Pingan casually said, how does he feel about Feixiangcheng? Yang Mumao said without hesitation, very good, so good that it can't be better. The reason why the heat of the Shu came to the colorful world at the beginning was to blame his parents for not allowing him to travel to the Great Wall of Jianghu, and where did xuanhuan let it go? Therefore, I have never been to the Great Wall of Jianghu. I was cited as the biggest regret in my life by the heat stroke in Shu. The master of Shu Dong was extremely guilty about this, so he kept the only son down the mountain in secret. Qin Pingan was puzzled. Is it a sword repairer? Yang Mumao nodded and said, it is indeed a sword repairer. Because Shu Heatstroke has already been on the border of transcendent Taiwan, handing swords with a group of banned monks, and they have not been killed, so there is no taboo about Shu Heatstroke as a sword repair. In addition, Shu has 2 natal flying swords, 1 dog. Once it is sacrificed, the sun will be scorching, the earth will be roasted, and within 100 miles the aura is fumigated and the Huang Maishan is just like the natal magical power. On the contrary, the heavy rain is majestic, the world is gloomy, and the rain is extremely evil. The air trainer is in it, like being trapped in the ruins of an ancient battlefield in the wind, and wind is just the rank of the 2 flying swords, and it can't be called a small world for the time being. Qin Pingan glanced at Xiaomo. Xiaomo nodded, it was true. Qin Pingan continued to ask, could you tell me something about the heat stroke in Shu, and Kairantai would like to conclude an alliance with Feixingcheng? Yang Mumao thought for a while, this is more difficult to say. The Shu heatstroke guy is too lazy. Even if he has a good impression of Feixingcheng, he may not be willing to engage in some covenants. Shu Zhongshu has a habit when he was young. As long as he takes the initiative to do things, he will pursue a certain kind of extreme, so he is not lazy at all. If he really becomes an ally with Ascension City, he might take the initiative to ask to serve as an offering here. If the chief offering is not made, he should step back and get a second place. It is estimated that you criminal officer Yingguangquan Mansion 3 channels, within a year, everyone will be annoyed by him. Extreme? Qin Pingan was puzzled. For an analogy? Yang Mumao said, for example, recite Taoism. Qin Pingan was surprised. All? Yang Mumao nodded and said, all. Qin Pingan is like listening to a heavenly book and he doubts. 3 holes for supplements and 12 categories with a total of more than 1,200 volumes. Although there are many editions, the fewest one should be tens of millions of words, right? Yang Mumao nodded and said, yes, he also specially selected the Dao Zong version with the most words. Although he has never forgotten since he was a child, he can read 10 lines at a glance, but the mother of Shu Heatstroke almost didn't feel distressed back then. Shu Heatstroke is indeed a bit of a headache. After all, he had just started to practice at that time, and his realm was not high, and he was only a cultivator of the lower 5 realms. So Shu Nanyu made an exception and assumed the posture of being a father, and he was not allowed to endorse it, otherwise. I went to the ancestral hall to shop on the floor. Shu Heatstroke turned to practice for half a year, and soon entered the middle 5 realm before continuing to endorse. In the end he remembered all of it. Now he can recite it backwards, not bad at all. Cui Dongshan was surprised. There is a future. Zheng Dafeng rubbed his chin, sighing, the young people nowadays are more lively and vigorous than the other. Qin Pingan smiled knowingly. Understood, Shu Heatstroke is still a person with obsessive-compulsive disorder, a bit similar to Lu Mao of Huanhuan. Yang Mumao showed a rather enviable look. It is said that the Fulu Yuxin once passed by Luxiazu and rested in Tianyu Cave. He saw the young Shu Heatstroke who had just begun to endorse, and he became a lover of talent. It's just that the mother of Shu Heatstroke was reluctant to let her son be a Taoist priest. In the eyes of the woman, Yu Xian's intention at the time was only to collect Shu Heatstroke as a descendant, not the closed disciple. After all, Shu Heatstroke he is the only child, and he will definitely inherit Tianyu Cave in the future, so the matter of apprenticeship failed. Being able to become Yu Xian's direct descendant, even if it is not a closed disciple, this kind of good fortune is indeed enviable and not enviable. Yang Mumao chuckled and said, what's more, the reason why Shu Heatstroke didn't come to Feixing City was because this guy had some messy quirks and particularities. He said that there was a summer residence for hidden officials in Feixing City, and he didn't quite deal with his name. Therefore it is not suitable to visit here. Qin Pingan waved his hand, your baggage fast, I don't mix and I don't have any money. Cui Dongshan took Yang Mumao Pai Dian to the shop, and the 2 of them squatted behind the counter and began to barter. Less than half of the incense kung fu, the 2 of them left the shop and returned to the wine table. One wanted to pour each other, and the other said that I came to me and love each other more than brothers. Jianghu Mao Yuema drank a jar of wine, just slightly drunk, got up and left and then traveled north. Since there is no need to find the Yaxiang Yao Qin, he settled in the north with peace of mind. Chen Pingan took the lead in walking the streets and alleys, and sent Yang Mu Mao to the north of the city. Cui Dongshan and Xiao Mo followed behind. Because they were walking, they were acquaintances with the second shopkeeper. They kept greeting each other. During the period, Chen Pingan would stop and chat. Sentence. Yang Mu Mao called the chief inspector. Send you 1,000 miles away, you must say goodbye. The good guy can stop. Chen Pingan stopped, hugged fists and said with a smile, treasure everything. From the beginning to the end, Yang Mu Mao didn't ask about the identity of Xiao Mo. He just came and called Xiao Mo alone. He solemnly said, Great grace does not say thank you, the younger generation will remember it in my heart. The mountains are high and the rivers are long. The opportunity to repay Mr. Xiao Mo, Chen Pingan explained on behalf of him. Brother Mu Mao's meaning is that he has some thighs. How about one hug? Yang Mu Mao is also a scumbag, does not deny the matter, and smiles heartily. The one who knows me best is also the good man. Xiao Mo smiled and said, Since Dao Yu Yang is my son's friend, he is Xiao Mo's friend. If you are lucky enough to see you again in the future, no matter where you are, Dao Yu Yang needs help. If you have something to say, you don't need to be polite. The heartstrings of this black-clothed student are quite interesting. He reunited with his son after a long absence, and he really meant to be close to him, but he deliberately didn't say anything. And his son seems to have a somewhat inexplicable look at this person. Probably this is the so-called sympathy? Back then, in the whole world, there were only a handful of fellow Taoists who could make Xiaoma feel this way. The Bixiadong cave master by the Luobao beach was one of them. All words are cumbersome. Just looking at each other and smiling is not against your heart. Yang Mu Mao stared at the young sword repairer in the yellow hat and blue shoes, and couldn't help asking, Dare to ask the senior realm? Xiao Mo treats it frankly, it's not the 14th realm. Beyond the 14th realm, the realm of oneself depends on the realm of the person being asked about the sword. Cui Dongshan is overwhelmed with joy. Yang Mu Mao knew it in his heart. At least he was a sword repairman in the fairy realm. It is very likely that he was really a hidden sword repairman in the ascending realm. Could it be that the elder sword immortal left the guardian of the last hidden official? Is it the criminal officer who hasn't appeared in the Great Wall of Jianxi for many years? Or a more hidden priest? Forget it. Thinking about what happened, Yang Mu Mao curbed his thoughts and said with emotion, This time, I didn't go in vain. First I met my old friend in a foreign country and I met 2 new friends. I taught people refreshed and refreshed. Chen Pingan said heartily, The feeling of I'm not me is uncomfortable. So you don't really need to think about my help today. Yang Mu Mao asked cautiously, Is the good guy reminding me to don't think too much or don't think about it? Chen Pingan smiled and said, Is that a pun for me? Yang Mu Mao hesitated for a while and asked, I don't know who is wearing my gluttonous robe now. The rank of that robe is not high, but it has hidden mystery and it can be improved all the way. It was once a treasure in the treasure house of the Chongxian department of the Deyuan dynasty. Otherwise Yang Ningxing would not choose to wear this robe went out to explore the beach of bones. Chen Pingan stretched out his sleeves and patted brother Mu Mao's shoulder. I didn't drink too much and talked a few drunken words. Be careful of your feet in the wind. Yang Mu Mao laughed loudly, his figure turned into a cloud of black smoke, and he drifted away to the north in an instant. Watching Yang Mu Mao go hundreds of miles away, Chen Pingan turned and walked back to Feishing City, and said, Dongshan, that cottage, it's better to return Xuandugwan. This time, Chen Pingan came to Feishing City temporarily, but of course he still missed Ning Yao. In addition, Chen Pingan originally wanted to find Cui Dongshan once before leaving wuxialover. After all, the Lubro xianxia sect that Cui Dongshan first wanted to create is in this colorful world. On the side of Gongdalin, the old scholar once gave Chen Pingan an address. The route was clear and not too easy to find because there were many obstacles in the mountains and rivers, but it was not as difficult as finding a needle in a haystack. Said that it was to make Chen Pingan, the closed disciple, free, so he went over there to take a look. The old scholar said righteously at the time, Since your husband and Bai are also good friends of brothers, then you are naturally Bai's younger generation. It is your duty to do things like cleaning up the elders and you can't shirk them. Cui Dongshan nodded and said, Of course I just relaxed there so as not to be intercepted by Yujing. I will not stay for long. I will leave as long as Xuanhuan Taoist takes over. There is no difference. Mr. Student looked at each other and smiled at each other. With Dao Chang's son's temper he can't give a peach to him? Long Hushan, whose surname is Great Celestial Master Liang Shuang, once asked Cui Dongshan where Yangshan was outside. Cui Dongshan didn't conceal it, saying that he was in the place of cultivation in Bei, and he was helping to take care of the abandoned thatched cottage. Bai also built a thatched cottage as a temporary place for cultivating in a place of victory in the colorful world. A peach tree with roots hundreds of miles deep, it is the top 10 Mo de Deo edge in the colorful world. In the past he traveled to a new world with old talents. Bai also wielded swords, handed swords non-stop and opened up the world. Bai also possessed an immeasurable good fortune. It's just that Bai Yi didn't want that place, but he was going to give it to Xuanhuan to repay Dao Changsun's grace of borrowing a sword. One of the 4 fairy swords, Tai Bai, was based on Bai Yi's earliest plan. He would give the peach tree and thatched cottage to Xianhuan, but then something happened suddenly. Bai also returned to Haoran alone with the sword to Fuyaozhou. The fact that couldn't return the fairy sword became a knot of Bai Yi's heart. Fortunately, after being reincarnated, a man wearing a tiger hat child was taken by an old scholar to Xuanhuan to practice. Before that, the old xianxia had taken the time to visit the cottage, and by chance he was not at home. How diligent and thrifty the old xianxia was, he picked up all the fallen peach petals under the tree, cleaned it up and installed a big one. Though this is the most suitable wine to use. Bai Yi is good at wine, but he is not good at wine. Old scholars can only do their own work. As for the remaining peach petals from the wine, you can also ask the white paper to make a few fortunes. 10 peach blossom letterheads. Next to the peach trees, the old xianxia did not take less of the 10,000 years of soil recorded in the old almanac of the Confucian temple as heavenly soil. The ground near the cottage is about an inch or 2 shorter. In fact, these are nothing. Bai also returned to the dojo. Even if he had seen it, he probably didn't see it, but the old scholar never let go of the branches of the peach tree and broke away dozens of peach branches. So after Bai Yi returned to the cottage, there was a special sword for the old scholar. Chen Pingan curiously asked, "Did you come to Feishing City by means of the Sanshan talisman?" Cui Dongshan's little chicken pecked at the rice. It's really hard to escape Mr. S. eyes. His Yangshan's body, he casually compiled the identity of Shanzawa Yishio that year, swaggering into the colorful world from Tonggishao. The only seedlings of the Fuzong, and the pseudonym Yang Hengxing Yang Ningxin, in fact they left Haoran at about the same time. At that time Tonggish's janitor was his uncle Zhua. What? You are not convinced? Do you recognize one? After Cui Dongshan entered the new world of Zanshin, he began to travel alone, and finally found a place that could be opened up as the next sect. The water transport is rich, the clouds are gorgeous, Cui Dongshan is happy to see it, and at first sight he sets up several formations. He took hundreds of miles of mountains and rivers as his own, and named a small hill as Dongshan. Without any trouble, Cui Dongshan also drew 2 paintings, which were clearly named Mustard Seed and Mountain River. With memory, it is tens of feet long, and the painting has millions of miles of magnificent mountains and rivers, but it is called Mustard Seeds. But another picture scroll, which clearly has only a little ink, was named Mountain and River by Cui Dongshan. Cui Dongshan scratched his face and said regretfully, "When the students are here, they are a couple of monks who have been a matchmaking bridge. Of course, those men and women need to be sincere enough to be the matchmaking mountain. But even so, the students still failed to create this. Fang Tiandis' first pair of Taoists on the mountain was 1 step late, it was really just 1 step too late, and they could only watch that lucky fate missed." Chen Pingan shook his head and said, "It's definitely not just you who looks like a step late. By Yujing in the east, as well as the masters hidden among the refugees from Fuyazhou and Tonggishao, have made similar attempts, and they are destined to be the same." Frustrated. Heaven's heart is unpredictable and people can't be counted by the sky. As long as you have the heart, you will definitely slow down. There is no solution. Don't underestimate this world's avenue, you can only rely on those secret heavens to decide on your own. Dongshan, don't do similar things in the future, they will be booked and they will also be paid back. Chen Pingan raised his head to look at the sky and murmured, "God's will can't be violated. It's not just casual talk." Cui Dongshan nodded, "If it weren't for this, I would follow my heart and choose the next address first, and then immediately rush back to the south. Among the gang of Tonggishao migrants, I would choose 1 or 2 with dragon spirit. Casting the net widely and doing the act of helping the dragon for a few people who are qualified to be the kings of the world is really hitting the wall with manpower to create a Taoist couple, and dare not deliberately pursue that first humanity merit." Chen Pingan smiled and turned his head to comfort him. It seems that you don't do anything, just take it naturally and follow the trend, maybe you will be a little surprised. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, listen to Mr. Heaven and Earth are born. Like a child gradually opening up. A brand new world, and the world is full of surprises and opportunities arise everywhere. The first hanging statue, the ancestor hall on the mountain, where the gods worship the incense, was acquired by Feixingcheng. Therefore, all the sword repairs in Feixing City can actually get an invisible shelter. If it weren't for the favor of this avenue, the casualties of Feixingcheng Jianxia would have more than doubled amidst those weird landscapes and unexplored realms. The first Yupu realm in the colorful world, the first fairyland and the first ascending realm. And the number one person in the world recognized by Wuxia Tianxia Avenue. Are all Ningyao who broke the border and everything is like a smashing bamboo. In addition, Ningyao is still a sword repairer and has an extra gift. In addition, she was the first monk to kill the weird, who competes with. So even a monk from the 14th realm from another world who dares to trespass into the colorful world, as long as Ningyao asks the sword once, there may be back and forth. Cui Dongshan asked, is the sir aware of collecting gold, fine and copper coins? Is there any progress? Qin Pingan said helplessly, I'm really worried. Sword repairs natal flying sword. If you want to improve its rank, there are only two ways to go. One is to refine the flying sword. For example, it is a shortcut to sharpen the sword with the help of Zhenlongtai, and the other is even more difficult. It is to find more natal powers. Qin Pingan's caged bird and the earliest well-end moon, through the battle with Wan Yaozong immortal Han Yushu, and the later battle of Tuiyue Mountain, the latter has been upgraded to a higher level of rank, and now has the present Qin Pingan made a rough derivation, and relied on a 14-level Taoist method borrowed from Lu Qin. At that time, one sword had successfully differentiated hundreds of thousands of flying swords. Qin Pingan had done a rough deduction. The future will be refined. At the peak of Eguchi Moon, relying on Qin Ping's own kendo realm high enough, it can roughly support 1 million flying swords in one go. In addition, Qin Pingan had been trying to use Jing Zongyi's many flying swords to reveal a truth in the Tao of Mind in the Dongtian Taoist Temple in Xindu Mountain. This means that Jing Zongyi's refining not only has a final direction, one is to increase the number of flying swords, and then he has found Jing Zongyi's second natal supernatural power, so Qin Pingan at this moment is equivalent to having one from nothing. There are roads. Only the bird in the cage has been stagnant. But Qin Pingan had an idea during the retreat, but he couldn't really try it for the time being. The reason is simple: lack of money. And maybe this kind of sword making is a bottomless pit. It is not the lack of 3 kinds of fairy money, but the gold essence and copper money, or trace the origin, the lack of the golden body fragments of the landscape god, or the glazed golden body that collapsed after the soldiers of the overhaul. The latter is hard to come by. Du Mao's ascension failed at the beginning. In order to fight for one of the glazed shards, even the sect Qi Zhen personally took action on the Aquarius Island side. The former is relatively simple, and it is only relatively. In fact, in the vast world today, which dynasty does not want the golden body fragments of various gods? Which big sect does not want to buy? Ordinary monk who can really buy it. Because Qin Pingan wants to truly elevate the caged finches, which has become a small world by itself, to a realm of the avenue loops without omissions. This requires Qin Pingan to create a complete river of time in the cage. In this realm, who is not a caged bird. That Lu Kai, who is still in Hanzanji, has 2 flying swords, and he specifically restrains Qin Ping's 2 natal flying swords. When will you come? Lu Kai will try again. If you come to find me, I will find you. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, Zhang Li long life is not an outsider. Qin Pingan nodded and said, I won't be polite to Changming. Cui Dongshan held back his laugh. I'm afraid that the long-lived fellow will give it all as soon as he gives it, and my husband is also worried. Qin Pingan laughed at himself. If something like worry is spread out, it's probably going to be beaten. Cui Dongshan asked, where is the Song family? Qin Pingan said, of course he will speak, but you have to find a suitable opportunity to avoid being raised on the ground. After all, it's not the senior brother of our spring palace. He likes to come and be killed by others. Cui Dongshan whispered, where is the teacher? Qin Pingan felt helpless and didn't say anything. This world's weird. Ningyao can not only kill one, in addition to one of the ancient 12 high positions, there are actually others. It's not that Qin Pingan is hypocritical, but I don't know why, I always feel that something is wrong. Of course, there are Iazhao and Luxiazu, these 2 continents that have not been hit by the war. The mountains and rivers are stable, and the native mountains and waters of the two continents are not damaged. This means that all the golden bodies of the great monks and the great sections. Fragments can be bought and sold, of course, provided that the price is right and high enough. In addition, like the Liu family in Iazhao, there are also Baozhai who had dealt with Yuanyangzi once, and Taiyu Dongshan where the heatstroke of the Shu is located. The fairy Tsongchen is located in the sect, and this woman fairy herself is also the land of Song Ai. Lord plus 100 Flowers blessed land, as well as the old ascended monk who had been friends with Dalong Chilong Xianxian. These people or Shantao's hands are rumored to have a different amount of family background. The key is gold and copper money. With the golden body fragments in their hands, they are not the kind of indispensable things. At most they are waiting for the price or they are looking for a buyer depending on the eye. Chui Dongshan sighed, if it's not for patching mountains and rivers, Tonggishao where our next clan is located is the best source of golden body fragments, and you can bargain at will. Qin Pingan smiled and said, just don't think about this kind of thing. Chui Dongshan asked, when will Mr. return to Shindu Mountain? Qin Pingan said helplessly, it's tonight. Chui Dongshan wanted to say something but stopped. Qin Pingan said, you guessed it right, I was planning to go and take a look at the sycamore tree before Lichuan. There are 9 majestic town buildings in the world. There are only 2 of them. The symbolic significance is greater than the actual use. Among them is the town demon building in Tonggishao. It is almost the same as the Jinbei's building, it is really just a scholar. Doing some superficial work is almost the same. It's just that this town's demon building is unusual. It's not the architectural form but a long-lived and infinite phoenix tree. According to legend, this ancient tree is so old that it has survived for a long time. The patriarch of the xianxia, in simple terms, is that it is older than the first person to cultivate the Taoism in the world. Therefore, even the brother Jun Chen once said that when he was young he liked to travel around and had seen this towering tree. Possibility, it's just a possibility. The only Taoist priest who can prevail in this tree is the old master of Taoist Taoism in the East China Sea. During the war, the old master did not take care of the wild world at all. Instead, he gave out the iron ring made by the Taoist ancestor to help Howren the world protect the sycamore tree, and he has never been intimately involved by Wenhai. Chui Dongshan wanted to say something but stopped. Obviously, it is still the choice of Mr. Don't Worry. The surprised Xiaomo. The son just went to take a look at the phoenix tree. On the side of Sect Master Chui, how could it be like going to Longtan Tiger's cave? Qin Pingan smiled and said, in doing something artificial, can it be the same as yours? Chui Dongshan's expression is a bit low. Xiaomo became even more weird. After that, Qin Pingan did not return directly to the wine shop, but temporarily changed his mind. He took the 2 of them to fly across Feishing City and came to the boundary of Zifu Mountain. After falling down, he stood next to the ridge of a rice field. The rethinking rice presented by Deng Liang is temporarily limited by the soil and can only be ripened once a year. It has very high requirements on water and soil and is not easy to plant. Later, when the land is fertile, it can be ripened twice a year. A young farmer's gas trainer rushed over immediately, his eyes were full of alertness and he asked, who are you, don't you know the rules? Just listen to the green shirt guest laughing. My name is Qin Pingan. The man was stunned on the spot. After he recovered, he asked in a low voice, will the hidden officer stay for a long time? Qin Pingan shook his head and said, he'll leave soon. The man hurriedly said, the hidden officer, don't go in a hurry, wait for me to get paper and pen, don't worry. Qin Pingan was confused. Soon the young monk who came to Feishing City with his master to discuss life, took a writing brush dipped in ink and 2 prints, and brazenly asked, my lord the hermit, can you write your name? It would be even better if I could add a gift of good fortune. Qin Pingan was embarrassed as if it was the first time he did this kind of thing. I am not a literary magnate like Su Ziliuki. The young monk was full of hope. Qin Pingan had to take the imprint and brush, and wrote his name on the pages of the Yinpu of Baijiangxian and Yinpu of Jianxian, respectively, and wrote a gift for each after drying the ink. Handed it to the young monk, never thought that the other party blushed, took it in a hurry, bit the scalp and asked tentatively, his master, can you write the year, month and day? Qin Pingan smiled and wrote down the date again, adding 4 words at the end, in the bank of Tianlong. In fact, the smiling Qin Pingan was more embarrassed than the flushed young monk. Make up your mind, this kind of activity really can't be done anymore. The young man is holding a writing brush and embracing the imprint, and thanked the approachable hermit. Looking at the farm monk who left happily, Chui Dongshan squatted on the ridge with grass roots in his mouth. Qin Pingan sat aside, reached out and grabbed a handful of soil, held it in the palm of his hand and smiled. Okay, don't be depressed, it's not a big deal. Cui Dongshan was still worried and said softly, Mister, don't you want all the merits that he has finally accumulated? With Mr. S temper, as long as you go to the sycamore tree, you will definitely do that. Once you do that, not only will you be destined to have no merit, you will even lose all the merits of the previous Confucian Temple merit book. Qin Pingan looked ahead and said calmly, I can keep a little bit and I will need it next time. It's not enough, just forget it. Cui Dongshan chewed on the grass roots and asked, in this case you will be in a quagmire. What about the Sir's practice? Qin Pingan asked, isn't it practice? Cui Dongshan was silent. Xiao Imo was like listening to the two students playing dumb riddles, because he heard Cui Dongshan mention the sun's practice. He couldn't help but ask, Cui Dongshan, can you tell me? Cui Dongshan sighed, 6-year-old stars circle the sun once and 12 years is the first era. Xiao Imo became more and more like falling clouds. Cui Dongshan had to explain in detail. At that time Tongji's Hao fell, mountains and rivers fell and rituals and music collapsed. Under the deliberate persecution and traction of the barbaric military account, all kinds of people have ugly hearts and all kinds of rebellious behaviors. People and things are countless. How did the children born during that period come? Are their biological parents really a husband and wife? They are not. Whether it is counted from the day the wild world occupied Tongji's Hao, or recalculated after the Yaozu exited the Haoran world, it doesn't matter. Is there a difference whether it's already a epic or a epic? These children are destined anyway and no one can escape. If Tongji's Hao is still in the wilderness of the world, I won't talk about him. The origins of those children are not the slightest difference in the eyes of the wild monks, but in the eyes of today's Haoran world, they will be heretics. Is a kind of sordid kind who may be dirty with a few words. Those children came to this world as if they were born with sins. They shouldn't have come, but they have come. Even if these children will survive in the years to come. After passing the pointers of others, withstanding all kinds of verbal abuse from the backbone, avoiding many man-made disasters and natural disasters, because even if they are lucky enough to grow up, they will never be restored to the orthodox mountains and rivers of Tongji's Hao. What is accepted by Qi luck, let alone practice, may just be alive. It is a kind of hardship, not necessarily death, not necessarily early death, but this life will definitely endure hardships, suffer a lot, maybe their life. I will always feel that life is better than death, unprovoked misery, inexplicable disasters and unsuccessful things. It is said that God's sins are forgivable and self-inflicted sins cannot live. But these children seem to have no choice. But if you don't care about it, time after time, after the time of Jiazi, it's like a stubble of mountains and grass has passed and it will also pass. Cui Dongshan fell back on his back, no longer speaking. Xiao Imo sat cross-legged, turning his head and looking away. Qin Pingan sits on Tianlong. Xiaoma did not hear any rhetoric. The man in the green shirt just said softly, I think this is wrong. Sword of Coming Chapter 9:16. Qin Pingan got up alone and walked along the ridge because an old friend came. Qisho came from Wuxia City, now the leader of the criminal officer line. Qisho opened the door and said, if you don't come to Quan Mansion to find me, I will have to hang a heart, so I might as well take the initiative to send it to the door and ask for a few curses. Who doesn't know the young hidden official in the summer palace with strange stories like a big basket of natal flying swords, swords piercing the heart? Qin Pingan smiled and said, we are friends with Brother Qi. Now Brother Qi is promoted again. I have no time to pat on the horse. How dare I point fingers at a new criminal officer? The two walked side by side on the ridge and Qisho said, I heard that the former criminal is called Haosu? Ning Yao returned to Feishing City last time. She didn't elaborate on the process of your wild trip. So far I am too. Just know his name. For Jianxiu, who is in the line of criminal officers, he has always had a small knot. That is, he has broken his family tree, because he took office as a criminal officer until the end of the war and never showed up. In contrast, the line of hidden officials, generations of hidden officials, has an orderly inheritance. Regardless of the reputation of the hidden officials, the level of realm, the size of the battle, it is well documented and the pedigree is clear. As for the previous hermit Xiao Sun's betrayal of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, it is not just the current Jianxiu in the Summer Palace, the entire Feishengcheng, there is not much complaint against her, so now talking about Xiao Sun, there is no taboo, not only will not deliberately avoid it. Not to mention, in the opposite there are quite a lot of regrets. The three Jianxiu who defected with Xiao Sun, the janitor Zhang Lu, Luo Shan and Zhuan in fact do not swear verbally and occasionally they scold that Zhang Lu is a waste of money. Since he has chosen to betray, he might as well simply follow Xiao Xing and travel around the world. Chen Pinggan nodded and said, Hao Su came from a long broken blessed land in Fuyaozhou. He spent his early years on the Great Wall of Sword Qi and stayed in the prison of old deaf children. Therefore his reputation is not obvious. In fact, his swordsmanship is very high. After returning to the Howran world, I directly found the master behind the destruction of his hometown's blessed land, an old ascending realm in the Middle-earth divine continent, named Nanguangzhou. Hao Su had his head cut off by Hao Su and left him at the gate of the mountain. Su walked through the barren world with us and he slaughtered the ascendant demon Profound Garden in Xiandan City, which was equivalent to having in confession at the Confucian temple to make up for the merits, so now he has gone to the Qingming world. Hao Su I will repair Dong Wafis Dao Yuanyu sword a bit. Qi Shou took out a seal that he had bought from Yan's silk and satin shop and asked someone for help, and said with a smile, Unfortunately, I have never been able to buy the best plum edition of Mr. Kong Jie's Kong Yang Ji. Chen Pinggan glanced at the seal, and knew that it was the seal engraved on the square base, but I have not reached the quartet, which is quite in line with Qi Shou's situation and mood. Neither has been to the Howran world, nor is it considered to have been to the wild world. The world is so vast but it can only be located in a corner. After all, Qi Shou is high in heart. Qi Shou held the seal in his palm like a handle and asked, The ancestor of my family? Chen Pinggan joked, Where does the old sword fairy Qi need you to worry? It has long been famous in the Howran world. The Dragon Elephant Sword Sect also has Lu Ji, and 2 soaring cases are all sword repairs. No one is afraid. In addition, Xiao Yunyan and Mrs. Yanyan offer to the 5 realms to help with general affairs. The dozen or so named disciples collected by Qi Lao Jianxian there are all very qualified and are known as the 18 swordsmen. The first-class sword fairy embryos, the Dragon Elephant Sword Sect will not take 100 years, and only need to collect more Gesh Qing and pass on more disciples, and it will become the most top-notch sect in the world. Qi Shou hesitated for a moment. It seemed that some words were difficult to express. He stopped and squatted down. After putting the seal in his sleeve, he reached out to grab a golden ear of rice with reconsidered rice on the side of the field. As a result, he suffered a sentence from Chen Pinggan. Why do you owe your hands so much? Chen Pinggan sat aside, then picked up a stone, raised his cloth shoes and scraped the mud lightly, and smiled casually. Firen is now recognized as a wild co-lord. Brother Qi is good. He hasn't even become the lord of Feishing City. I was only said to be half a city owner, and I have to fight the injustice for Brother Qi. Since you are embarrassed to speak, then I will help you build a step. Qi Shou slowly said, Qin Pingyan, am I not going to be that city lord in my life? Qin Pinggan asked, Why do you have this question? Qi Shou said, Intuition. Qin Pinggan smiled and said, You're not a girl, so a woman's instinct is accurate. Qi Shou asked a series of questions. What's the matter with the 2 empty chairs in the Zushitang? Is it your arrangement? Or is there something special, such as the matter that the old sword fairy confessed? Ning Yao did not say why. The outside world has guessed for so many years and there is no definite answer. The most credible point of view is that of the 2 suspended seats, one is reserved for the future city owner, and the other is reserved for the number 1 person in the colorful world. This is true, it is more in line with the style of the boss sword fairy. Qin Pinggan shook his head and said, I don't know. Maybe it was the boss sword fairy who made Ning Yao arrange like this. I'll look back and ask. In fact, what Qin Pinggan really wants to ask is actually Qin Ji, or the old sword fairy Qin Shi in his early years. Qi Shou asked, If it is for you to guess? Why do you think it is? Qin Pinggan thought for a while and said softly, The past is over and the future has not yet arrived. The 2 chairs will be empty forever. They are not empty. Anyway, they are like 2 sword repairmen sitting next to each other. But not a specific person, not Qi Shou who is still struggling to become the lord of the city, or even Ning Yao who is already the number 1 person in the world. It is just all the sword repairs who have not been forgotten in the past, and the future will become the future. All of the sword repairs. Qi Shou thought about it and felt that Qin Pinggan's provisional answer was quite reasonable and very interesting. He couldn't help but exclaimed, Sure enough, he is a scholar. Qin Pinggan angrily smiled and said, If you finally talk to you a little bit, you just don't know what is good or bad, right? Qi Shou has arms around his chest, looking at the golden rice field just like the seal in his former prime minister, and the side paragraph says that the house is full of people, sure sui feng, and the muscles healthy. Otherwise, with his friendship with Chen Pingan, how could he take care of the business of the Yan's shop? Just pinch his nose, hold his heart, and ask someone to help by the seal of love at first sight. Qi Shou was silent for a moment and said, although it is the most impossible thing, but my instinct tells me that the sword repairer with the latest engraving on the top of the city is not my ancestor, Ning Yao, or criminal Haosu or Lu Ji. Chen Pingan smiled, spread a palm and lightly touched Tian Rong. There is only one thing that makes me feel the most satisfied. Well, I'm very happy to have done this. Qi Shou turned his head and glanced at the guy's side face. His eyebrows were flying, and his expression was indeed somewhat rare and cheerful, an undisguised sharpness. Chen Pingan raised one hand, put his fingers together, swiped it down, wiped it horizontally, and then spread his fingers apart. Repair the wild sword who has a natal flying sword leaf in, the Hui Ting of the Red Leaf Sword sect. Split a sword in half, then cut it at the waist, use the Daomen mind board to refine and kill his soul, and then strip off this guy's real name of the monster race. It's very enjoyable to kill like this. If it wasn't for the time I had to ask others. Sword, I actually still have a lot of methods waiting for Hui Ting to take it away. Qi Shou, Nailan Xuanhuan, and Miyu all belong to the sword repairmen who are known for their fierce methods on the battlefield, but when they heard Chen Pingan's words, their scalp was still a little numb. I just heard that Hui Ting finally died, which made Qi Shou really in a good mood. He turned sideways and took the initiative to clasp his fists and said, "This thing is done beautifully." Chen Pingan said, "But Hui Ting was trying to save a friend at the time, and it belonged to him to die. Probably in the eyes of the monks in the wild world, he also belongs to the hero?" Qi Shou sneered and said, "This guy just didn't fall into my hands." Chen Pingan tweeted, "What if it falls into your hands? Can you do hewitting under the eyelids of Toyua Mountain and the culprit? You have to know that the chief disciple of this wild great ancestor is still a person who can't hide deeply. Lu's Ascension Realm Sword Repair." Qi Shou asked curiously, "Then how did you let Hui Ting fall into the trap, and how did you make the culprit too late?" Chen Pingan did not give an answer. There is always such a small group of monks in the wild world who hate the Great Wall of Sword Qi most, but they cannot kill them. For example, when Hei's thoughtful disciple, Sword Immortal Shouchen, and this sinister, special-purpose assassination of female Jianxiu Hui Ting. And Hui Ting looked particularly hateful. No matter how hateful he was good at hiding his identity on the battlefield and liked to pick up military exploits. However, in history he had repeatedly asked the sword head-on. Moreover, his sword was not accurate. Will deliberately target whom, and Hui Ting only chooses the female sword repairer of the Great Wall of Sword Qi to improve the rank of Fijian's favorite, regardless of level or age, and every time he succeeds he immediately withdraws from the battlefield. Those women who were beheaded by Feijian would end up miserably, and their souls would be detained by Feijian and then refined, like the slow burning of a wick. Qi Shou asked, "The location of the academy has been selected properly, don't you go there to see it?" Chen Pingan shook his head and said, "Let's talk about it next time. I will return to Howren World soon." Qi Shou curled his lips. There are figures of elders everywhere. After so many years, it seems that they are still not clean, and it is really annoying. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Brother Qi, this flattery is a bit of a standard. When I reach my Luapa mountain I can at least be an outside handyman." Qi Shou intends to stand up and leave, and Chen Pingan suddenly said, "Farewell is imminent, then I will speak to the new criminal officer as a senior hermit?" Qi Shou nodded and said, "Listen to your ears." Chen Pingan stretched out his palm and patted Tianlong next to him. "Don't think about erasing the traces, you have to cover them. Over time the achievements will be yours." Qi Shou was surprised Chen Pingan was so open-minded. Just a second thought, Qi Shou immediately felt that something was wrong and asked, "Are you not going to return to Ascending City? You won't open the door next time?" Chen Pingan said, "How is it possible? I will definitely come here often." Qi Shou smiled and scolded, "Then what are you talking about with me?" Chen Pingan sighed, "Senior fellows should treat each other with admiration for 3 days. Now Brother Qi is not easy to cheat." Qi Shou got up and left. Chen Pingan suddenly threw a seal over, "I'm here for you." Qi Shou took the hand. The seal was not boundless, only the 4-character seal. Qi Shou smiled knowingly, put it in his sleeve and thanked Chen Pingan. The way is right. In fact, during the years when Chen Pingan was not in Feixingcheng, there were some arty guys who wanted to make money by selling seals in batches with the second shopkeeper, who wanted to make money by selling seals. Anyway, there is no capital for this stuff. The content of the printed text is nothing more than copying. It's just a book. I always think it's a simple trick with no threshold. As a result, one of the seals could not be sold, let alone one by one. The second shopkeeper just threw his cheeks on the ground. Wah. Before Qi Shou Yufeng returned to Feishing City, he smiled and said, "Mutual encouragement." Qin Pingan nodded and said, "Mutual encouragement." Xiao Mo squatted beside the white-clothed boy and comforted, "Sect Master Cui, the gentleman has something to do and what not to do. Some things have to be done and some things don't have to be done. You and I are relieved. It is better to bring up your spirits and see for 100 years. Thousands of years later, perhaps today's loss is the promise of the Great Road." Cui Dongshan squeezed out a smile. "I understand the truth, but I feel a little distressed." Xiao Mo smiled and said, "If you think so, it will make the son add more thoughts. The husband will only love the students in turn. But I also think that with such a seemingly mediocre self-disturbing, the two most intelligent people in the world, Gongzi and Sect Master Cui, are not so smart. Maybe they are the real students? It looks like some nonsense. Practicing swords by himself and asking others about swords. Xiao Mo thinks it's okay. Only to persuade others, it is indeed not Xiao Mo's director. It's really much harder than handing a sword." Having been quietly listening to Xiao Mo's words, Cui Dongshan shook his head vigorously and said, "It's not nonsense." After Qin Pingan and Qi Shou recounted their old days, they returned along the Tianlongjiwen road and found that Cui Dongshan seemed to have a good chat with Xiaoma and had a smiling face. "We went back to our own wine shop in Feishingcheng. When I heard that the second shopkeeper had not only returned, I also opened the door personally today. The old patrons swarmed in immediately. Many of them came temporarily from the 4 vassal cities, Yujian anyway. It's either a drunk or a bachelor. Of course there are both drunks and bachelors. Soon the wine shop is overcrowded, but it's not the same as before. They don't grab the wine table and like to squat on the side of the road. The second shopkeeper always likes to drink on the side of the road." Listening to the talk of those old friends, everyone was talking loudly and the alcohol was soaring. It was still the same as in the past. The second shopkeeper listened to more and talked less, not to say anything else about this meal, at least drank a lot of deeply hidden. The wine trays have revealed their identities, such as the old Jin Dan Song Yue. The dusk was heavy, and when the wine shop was about to close, Qin Pingan, who drank often during the day, asked Taoban to move out a few jars of Dumb Lake wine, and then asked Feng Kangle to talk to his father and help fry a table of homemade wine and vegetables. Zheng Dafeng curiously asked, "What are you doing? What good is it for me to get drunk? Besides, you've vomited 3 times. Can you really handle it?" Qin Pingan said arrogantly, "Don't talk nonsense until one party gets drunk." Zheng Dafeng laughed and said, "Then make an appointment in advance. No one is allowed to persuade him to drink, but he is allowed to drink by himself." Qin Pingan agreed without hesitation. Xiao Mo and Cui Dongshan sat at the next table. Only Qin Pingan and Zheng Dafeng drank 2 bowls of wine before they drank 2 bowls of wine. Then a young-looking man in green shirt came and walked slowly to the wine shop. Zheng Dafeng glanced at him and recognized him. He seemed to be a teacher from a school in the city. His surname was Wu. He had been to the wine shop several times over the years, but he was not a frequent visitor. If it was spread flat, it would only be once or twice a year. The next time I came, I would go to the shop to look at the accident card. Mr. Wu came to the shop before, and he always drank the bowl of Zuhedangshan wine with a snowflake money, but the last time he came, it seemed to be replaced by a bowl of Dumb Lake wine, and he took away a jar. The reason why Zheng Dafeng remembers so clearly is that the bookish spirit on the other side is relatively rare in the Great Wall of Jiangxi. Like him, he belongs to those who have a poem and book spirit, but he is not as outstanding as his own. Xiao Mo squinted his eyes, immediately changed a wine table and said in his heart, "My son, this person is not easy. He behaves strangely as if he knows that I am not easy to deal with, but deliberately let me know that his is not easy." Xiao Mo hesitated for a moment and gave a guess in his mind, "Is it really that palace master Wu?" Qin Pingan nodded and said, "It must be." Then Qin Pingan glanced at Xiao Mo, still smiling. Xiao Mo was a little wronged and I didn't laugh at him at the time. Qin Pingan got up and made a salute. Wu Shuangjiang just bowed his hands back. Wu Shuang landed on the seat and said, "At the school under the pseudonym Wu Yu, there is evidence to check on the summer palace. You can check it out if you are interested." Hearing this pseudonym, Qin Pingan was speechless. Zheng Dafeng was puzzled again and asked, "Similar to brother Mu Mao but also an old friend?" Qin Pingan introduced, I am the master of Wu Palace, who is the master of the palace. Zheng Dafeng suddenly said, no wonder. Wu Shuangjiang smiled and clasped his fist. I have never spent a coin in these years, and I have heard Mr. Zheng's witty words for free, and every time he just brought it to drink. Zheng Dafeng still stepped on the bench with one leg, put down the wine bowl, held his fist in return and said, Mr. Wu passed the prize. Qin Pingyuan was silent for a long time and asked, which calendar? Wu Shuangjiang nodded and said, it was my handwriting. But I have already paid back the favor of Feixingcheng. Helped Feixing City solve 3 small hidden dangers, otherwise the expansion of Feixing City would be delayed for at least 30 to 50 years. It was not by Yu Jing's plan. Dao's second child disdained such actions, and that Dao ancestor's close disciple, a young Taoist with the Dao name Shan Qing, of course had very good practice aptitude, but he did not have the brain and the courage. Don't underestimate the long-term vision and meticulous methods of some strategists. There are always some people who may only have a few pennies in their pockets, but they dare to think about being rich, a world thing. It is whimsical that ordinary people dare to think so, but there are always a few people who want to do it. However, Wu Shuangjiang is not in the mood and has no obligation to explain the matter to Qin Pingyuan. Currently, Feixingcheng is only using this new calendar, but if the entire colorful world passes through this book and spreads the world in the future, then Wu Shuangjiang has his own means to make up for the second favor. Xiaomo went to get a pair of bowls and chopsticks and handed them to Wu Shuangjiang. Wu Shuangjiang smiled and nodded in greeting. Welcome to go to Qingming World to be the last year's exclusion. Xiaomo smiled and said, it depends on what the sun means. Cui Dongshan came to this wine table with a wine bowl, and sat on a bench with Xiaomo, sitting opposite Wu Shuangjiang, and said with a grin, you can touch Palace Master Wu wherever you go. Wu Shuangjiang said indifferently, it's by fate. Cui Dongshan exclaimed, the Lord of Wu Palace is the Lord of Wu Palace. He is in harmony with his spirit, and he knows everything beyond the world. Now he knows everything in the palm of his hand. Wu Shuangjiang said, there are some things that are not only done by Zhoumi and Xiuhu, others can't do it. Cui Dongshan asked with a smile, if you want to come to the Western Buddhist country, there is also a clone of Palace Master Wu who is waiting to suddenly resuscitate someday, right? Wu Shuangjiang's true body should still be wandering in the wild world. No matter where Wu Shuangjiang travels and has everything within his sight, in the interconnected awe-inspiring world and wild world, the Huawei Tianma who stays at the Chaotu shop in Qilong Alley is now the outer door handyman disciple of Luopa Mountain. Huang Ho, everything is like seeing each other with her own eyes. Seeing that Wu Shuangjiang pretended to be deaf and dumb, Cui Dongshan couldn't beat him. A good man from the Huayan Dharma realm, go for the Daluo Tianren. Palace Master Wu is really generous and a good method. Qin Pingyuan was shocked when he heard this. Mr. mentioned that Wu Shuangjiang left the pass. At that time he took the initiative to show up at Daxuandu Temple and went to see Daochang's son and Bai Yi. The weather when Wu Shuangjiang first entered the 14th realm, the husband gave an evaluation of the flaw in the beauty. Previously in Ningfu, Qin Pingyuan saw the seals made of frosty jade, and mistakenly thought that Wu Shuangjiang was just separating out a mustard seed. He passed the Crane Inn and Upside Down Mountain early and was hidden in the Great Wall of Jianxi. It turned out that Wu Shuangjiang removed it. Besides, he stripped of his mind and went to the Western Buddhist country? Doesn't you take the 14th level seriously? A cultivator must have such a high level of Taoism, how good his cultivation qualifications, and what exaggerated conceit is he to dare to act like this? Is it? Qin Pingyuan instantly turned pale and hurriedly lowered his head to drink. Wu Shuangjiang took a sip of wine and smiled. It's not just the master teacher and Qi Jingchen who can do it. Wu Shuangjiang can do it. It's not the simplest way to learn. It is difficult to open the mountain, but as long as it is visited by the predecessors. After a path is out, climbing is easier after all, just follow behind. Cui Dongshan said in a deep voice, no, you leave earlier and go earlier. Qi Jingchen only started this matter in Lizhu Cave, trying to cast the roots of the 3 teaching questions for one family. As for the head teacher of Baiyujing who is old and old, he may have thought of this unprecedented road a long time ago, but the 3 people, including Li Shixing, really put it into action. It was also a very later thing. Wu Shuangjiang shook his head and said, there is a problem here. Of course I know that it is a very high road, but I don't have the confidence to pave the road by myself, so I stayed at the foot of the mountain. The seal that Master Guan gifted to Gao Yeho is nothing more than to follow the rules, and it will be much easier. As for Tianlong, Master Hermit and Qi Shou made an analogy, saying that the act of covering did not dare to expect too much. In the end, I just Pick up the leaks, at most it is to build a wall. The predecessors built a strong and reliable corner. It doesn't matter if the descendants add some waste bricks and thatch on the top. It can also shield the wind and rain. I did not prove it by this. Dadao's confidence and strength, not to mention the ambition, do not need to go too far on this road. Cui Dongshan sneered and said, "It is exactly the same as the 4 imitation swords of refining, they are all picking up people's teeth." Wu Shuangjiang smiled and said, "Then you also try it?" Cui Dongshan raised his sleeves and pointed his finger at Wu Shuangjiang. "Don't irritate me, I'm a young man with a big temper. I'm a young man with a vigorous and prosperous temper. I can't stand the stimulus if I don't care about my head." Before, in that night boat, the husband was sent to wait for him by this Wu Shuang. At that time the 4 people joined hands. By coincidence they are also 4 now, but the chief of the week was replaced by Xiaoma. Have a fight. What's more, it's still in Feixiangcheng right now. Once the teacher chooses to give her sword with all her strength, tsk. Wu Shuangjiang glanced at the eager white-clothed young man. "I am just the Jade Pu realm, so why bother to excite people like this? One Cui Dongshan is enough." Qin Pingan glared at Cui Dongshan. "Respect the Lord Wu Palace." Zheng Dafeng persuaded the drinker. "Brother Cui, hurry up and mention one." Cui Dongshan had to drink a full bowl. Wu Shuangjiang gently shook the wine bowl and reminded Qin Pingan, "This time I'm actively looking for you. I don't want her half of the Taoist guardian to seem to be advancing bravely and diligently on the path of spiritual practice, but somehow they will be planted within 100 years. A big somersault, the way is not successful, but it will also affect her moodiness. She is the most soft-hearted. If one day she will never stay out of the matter, then I will come back to you again. What is the meaning and meaningless thing? So you, one thing must be clear, it's time to pay attention to those 14th realm cultivators, as well as the ascended realm cultivators who have the hope of reaching this realm. This is not a matter of the horizon, it is the immediate matter. If you are not careful, it is the person in front of you. Like me?" Qin Pingan nodded. Although he had actually had similar concerns for a long time, he has realized the many changes after the changing of the sky. It is absolutely not allowed to have swordsman pay min first, and then the night ship Wu Shuangjiang, and then someday someone will come again. The same thing can be repeated, but there are no more than 3 things. But Qin Pingan had to admit that if Wu Shuangjiang does not appear today, his attention is far from enough. At least in Wu Shuangjiang's eyes, it is definitely not enough. Wu Shuangjiang smiled and asked, "Qin Pingan, you would never think that except for me those cultivators at the peak of the Ascension realm, whose realm has been stagnated for thousands of years, are in a daze every day, right?" Cui Dongshan slapped the table and dismantled it and said, "Wei Xiaoma is sleeping." Xiaomo smiled and nodded, very cheering, "A dream of 1,000 years, full sleep." Wu Shuangjiang turned a deaf ear and said, "For thousands of years, the height and depth of Taoism in the world has not been improved by several big steps, and even the matter of knowledge has not really been separated from the stalemate of the early philosophers. As for the larger literal barrier, not to mention it, but with the continuous integration of Taoism and human nature, the breadth of Taoism brought about by it is not comparable to that 10,000 years ago." Xiaomo nodded. "I've been around with the sun, I've seen it roughly and thought about it a little bit, but it's not as concise as Palace Master Wu said." Cui Dongshan said with sorrow, "Xiaomo, are you surrendering to the enemy?" Xiaomo smiled shyly. He was just discussing the matter, but he was still a little apologetic, so he brought up a bowl of drinks. Qin Pingan humbly asked for advice. "Except for the great monk who participated in the riverside meeting, I've seen them all. Now, what kind of ascendant realms are there that can hope to cross that threshold?" Wu Shuangjiang gave Qin Pingan one by one, pointing the country. 14 realm monks. Don't talk about the great monks of Yaxing and Wenxing who are in a proper place. The head teacher of Baiyujing, the first disciple of the Taoist ancestor, was missing. Except for the Confucian Li Shixing from Tianfulu Street in Lizhu Cave, plus the Taoist Zhou Li from the gods to King Xuanzang to see the pipeline hidden, the last one is left, and it is still covered by clouds. Bai also reincarnated, Aliang fell into the realm and Lu Cha fell into the realm. The preacher master of Jianxiu is brilliant, and the old throne big demon Qiyun, the old monk with the pseudonym Lu Fian, has long been reduced to Wenhai Zhoumi's belly lunch, and it is Zhoumi who wins the battle and eats it by himself. Then except for the Sui Chu Gong Wu Shuangjiang, who refined the heart demon into a Taoist companion, there is also Baidi City Zheng Zhongzhong. 24 per person. This is a great magician who has worked hard to prove, how to prove that I am the ancestor of Taoism. Da second child Yudo. He has a feather robe handed down by Taoist ancestors, and holds the Dao Zong, one of the 4 immortal swords. It is rumored that the Grand Master has actually handed over the entire Baiyujing to this junior. It is no wonder that Yu Do will be regarded as the first person to practice the Taoism other than the ancestor of the 3 religions. 3 palms teach Lu Qin 5 dreams and 7 attitudes. Others are among the 14 realms. It is a kind of harmony, and Lu Qin is more like a kind of prosperity. The wild world, the rise of the Hall of Valor. As the preacher of Jing Juzhong, Qin Qinglu, the dragon slayer, there is no real dragon in the world and he will fall into the ascending state. If there is a real dragon in the world, he will rise to the 14th state. The way of harmony is similar to the establishment of a Buddhist aspiration. Mr. Sanshan Jioho. If you really want to trace the origin of the so-called 72 talismans, the originator of the world's talisman, at least half of them must be recognized as ancestors with this person. Zozi. One person occupies half of the yin and yang family. Apart from the many Taoist traditions in the world, he has a new face, self-reliance, and combines the 5 elements. Chicken soup old monk. The monk is very clear. Said to be half the power of a 14th level monk, and a half 14 level monk's defense. It is rumored that even if it is against the previous ascending level sword repairer, the old monk stands still, the sword repairer can cut 3 times. Days and nights. The old blind man of 100,000 mountains in the wild world, his way of coordinating with Taoism is still a mystery. Guan Taoism and Old Guanzhou. Adao some kind of time. Wu Shuangjiang said, you have to pay special attention to one person, the female crown Wuzhou in the Qingming world. She has the name Taiyin. I was on the riverside and I have seen it. Her method of harmony can be roughly called refining things. In the entire Qingming world, it has only collected 18 relics of ancient gods for thousands of years. The ownership, circulation and inheritance of each heavy weapon will be recorded one by one in the White Jade Kyoto. In addition to one of the ranks of our continent, the extremely high magic weapon has allowed her to obtain the magical powers of the 12 high-ranking gods, the Forge. In addition, her 5 elements belong to the natal thing, and they are all antiquated relics of Thun-influenced, unlisted, unrecorded. No matter the rank is not high, if you use the number to make up, the weather is very impressive. In addition, she is known as the #1 refiner in the world, capable of casting semi-immortal soldiers or even immortal soldiers as a monk of the 14th realm, but for so many years, no one knows how many immortal soldiers Wuzhou has in his hands. Maizhou Daoxing is extremely tough. It shouldn't be possible to enter the 14th realm with only refining objects. On the contrary, it will become a burden for her to cross the sky. So she took a shortcut. She took her own Tao, the skin, hair, muscles, bones and flesh were all refined into a state of emptiness. In the end, she used her own nothing to carry the being of many natal things. Therefore this move was called disconnection by Lu Qin, which was a very appropriate one. It's a metaphor. But not many people know about this incident. It's a secret leaked by Lu Qin at Sui Chugong. Hearing this, Zheng Dafeng couldn't help but interrupted and said, will this auntie be too cruel? Who dares to marry her? Wu Shuangjiang smiled and said, it's hard to say whether anyone dares to marry her. Anyway, there is no Taoist couple in our continent, and she has a very high spirit. Of course, she does have this qualification. Chen Pingan heard Lu Qin talk about a group of martial arts masters in the Qingming world. Lu Qin did not mention our continent less, and his words were only slightly less hard work. Wu Shuangjiang took a chopsticks dish and took a sip of wine. If it weren't for Baiyujing and Yao Qing, the white lotus root with a short halberd would have died suddenly. It was not Yao Qing's secret protection. Having reached a certain agreement with Wuzhou, Bai O root will never become a female national teacher of the Qingxin dynasty, and she will not be able to enter the end. If I didn't guess wrong, Wuzhou has already followed you. So you have to be careful. You have 2 narrow knives for execution and slashing. The youngsters have spent money in the bustling city, and the crooked heart is not a human being. Wait until those 3 are gone someday, and then before you reach the 14th realm, you just have to meet our continent, huh? Qin Pingan nodded and said, I will pay attention. To travel secretly in the Qingming world in the future, in addition to hiding from Baiyujing, she must avoid our continent, and she will definitely not be able to find a trace. Qin Pingan doesn't want to learn from Liz Hen and conceive potential. Was followed by a 14th realm cultivator who was determined to kill and overtake, and then came to the door. Once there was no defense and no countermeasures, the consequences would be disastrous. Fu Lu Yu Xian He Dao Xingha. It was the most sacred master himself who opened the way for him, so it was almost a foregone conclusion that Yu Xian entered the 14th realm. Brother around. The great master of Dragon and Tiger Mountain Zhao Tianlai. The fairy sword 10,000 ways. Lu Jubao the god of wealth Ai Zhou. Pei Min, one of the three great swordsmanship in the past years. Xian Du Guan Guanzhu Sun Huaizhong. The fifth person in the world who can't be touched by thunder in Qingming. Qingxin dynasty, Yixiang Yao Qing. Cut the three corpses and then refine the three corpses. Once the three corpses are recovered, it is very likely to be one of the 14th realms. Chaoga, Dao number re-examination and ascend to the pinnacle. She is now Su Jun's Dao companion. In her early years she was one of the 10 people in the world of Qingming. Only because of the long retreat she was gradually forgotten, so that afterwards several sect masters from practice to death never met this female ancestor. The year-old night watchman nicknamed Xiaobai. The little white in my house, to a certain extent, actually has a certain avenue conflict with Yao Qing. Yao Qing's road number is Shou Ling Xiao Bei's so-called night watch is actually a kind of soul guard. I asked him to come upside down Xianxia and set up a stork inn. Why do you think it is? Is it really just to help me find her? Since I am a mustache, I am already in the Great Wall of Jianghu. Do I need to do this? Su Zi and Lu Qi now have hope. It depends on who can fill in the position that was left earlier. This great dispute is a dispute between scholars and scholars. There is no need for the two sides to fight. Wu Shuangjiang drank a bowl of wine. It's just a pity that Xuanhuan and Liang Shuang. Nan Pasuazhou is mellow, Xuanhuan who carries the sun and the moon on his shoulders. In order to prevent Lu Cha from returning to the barren world, he did not hesitate to die. Unfortunately, the Confucian scholar is not domineering, and the article fails to pass the sky. The great celestial master Liang Shuang, who originally relied on water milling kung fu, to continue on a certain road, with great hope to break the boundary. As a result, the assassination of Zhou Mi failed, resulting in lifelong hopelessness in the 14 realms. The rise of military strategists is unstoppable. The ghosts and immortals with different paths, the circulation of the money of the immortals, the flying sword spreads the letter, the mirror flower water and the moon. Outside the Sanjiao family, among the hundreds of scholars, there will definitely be people taking advantage of the situation. If it were not for the rules of the Saint of Rights, the ancestors and masters of the philosophers and hundreds of families would definitely not be in the Ascension realm. And once they are in the Ascendant realm, the road to He-Dao afterwards is very clear, and there is no need for any other attempts. Wu Shuangjiang suddenly asked, "Have you had contact with that Wei Shi?" Qin Pingan shook his head and said, "I only heard about it but I haven't seen it. Originally planned to visit Iazhao next time and visit this old god. Like Liu's family in Iazhao and Juda Mountain, there all must go." Suddenly, Qin Ping's expression turned weird. Wu Shuangjiang smiled. "Before leaving Haoran world I did fight Wei Shi and I regret it now. I shouldn't make him worse." Wei Shi of Iazhao has taken a lot of his own nicknames, among which the more famous is the 37-Peak Master, an extremely prestigious old monk in the Ascension realm. Is just in an awkward situation similar to Su Zixu Bei, as if the main road is cut off, and he has come to a dead end. Now Wei Shi seems to have completely given up on the matter of entering the 14th realm. Wei Shi was first born in Shanzai-Xiu, who turned out to be famous, and can be described as the most popular at the moment. When this person was young, among the younger generation of monks in Haoran Jiuzhou, he was known as invincible in the same realm for 500 years. The Golden Core and Yuanyingdi Fairyland in the middle 5 realms, plus the Jade and Fairy in the upper 5 realms 2 realms, sweeping all the way, invincible in all directions, learning from Taoism, catching and killing each other and never loses. On the mountain or compete or fight, Wei Shi won 96 games in a row. This record was broken by an extremely disgraceful and serious water injection until it was broken by a certain dog. It is rumored that the real fire dragon has suffered a loss in Wei Shi's hands. Also, the old sword fairy Zhou Xinji Huayin, among the 10 Middle-earth people, has also lost Wei Shi. It was only after Wei Shi entered the Ascension realm, but instead he stagnated and was constantly surpassed by the defeated men of the year. It may be that the greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. Not only the hometown of Iazhao, but even Zhongtu Shenzhou regrets it. I don't understand why Wei Shi, who has a great road, is so not guaranteed in the late festival. It is reasonable to say that Wei Amnesty is the one who has the most hope to become the newest monk of the 14th realm. So in the last 1,000 years, Wei Shi was often ridiculed by the Huolong real person. The ancients are sincere not to deceive me. As for the 97th match, where Wei Shi lost to is a mystery. Wu Shuangjiang gave a shocking inside story. Wei Shi didn't have enough stamina to practice as the rumors in the outside world, nor did he never find a certain path that fits the avenue, but after only 100 years after he entered the Ascendant Realm, he tried after a retreat, but the success fell short. For this reason Mr. Sanshan Jiuho made a special trip to Iazhao, which is tantamount to taking the initiative to help Wei Shi, who had high hopes, sideways gave way to half a road and a door. Unfortunately Wei Shi himself failed. Seizing the opportunity he was still too anxious. He wanted too much for the 14th realm that seemed to be within reach. In the end the bamboo basket was completely empty. The great cultivator at the peak of the Ascension realm who has reached a perfect state, more or less, will fail once or twice, and will be forced to change the path under his feet. He has a good foundation and can make mistakes twice, but if he makes a mistake, everything will stop if he makes a mistake. Pardon is the latter. Qin Pingan asked, Huolong? Wu Shuangjiang said, I have missed it twice, once because he failed to improve the Lei Fa, and the other was the combination of water and fire, but still failed to unite, so it is difficult to enter the 14th stage. It is very difficult. The Fey concubine in the wild world was dragged down the river by Qin Pingan and took away nearly 40% of the water transport. The old ancestor Zhu Wei who moved to the mountain, negotiated the ownership of the Toyue mountain in private with the savage co-owner, but the result was also in vain. About the latter, it is Wu Shuangjiang's conclusion after finding Zheng Juzhong in the wild world. I am absolutely willing to do this business with a sword to cultivate a brilliant temperament, and exchange a Toyue mountain for a savage world in exchange for a brand new 14-level cultivator. Speaking of this, Wu Shuangjiang smiled and said, These two accounts you have to forget it. It is enough to provoke hatred for cutting people and money, not to mention that you have directly blocked their opportunity for harmony. It is indeed not shared. If one day they are lucky enough to be among the 14 realms, one word of advice, don't go to the barren world lightly. What's more, there is that barbarous co-lord's brilliant and close disciple Zhou Qinggao, all of whom are your old friends. I believe I will treat you with hospitality, the last hermit of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Qin Pingan asked curiously, that hard-working martial arts master really has such a good cultivating aptitude? Wu Shuangjiang nodded and said, It will only be better than you think. Wei Shi will be inferior to this person, so as long as he is willing to go to practice, he can definitely become the 14th realm. Qin Pingan, guess what, this is a hard work, sitting alone on the peak of Leap Moon all year round, what do you want to do? Qin Pingan thought for a while and tentatively said, See if the world can throw a punch and smash the moon in the sky? Wu Shuangjiang smiled and said, It's still pure martial arts, better to understand pure martial arts. Worry not only for the monks in our continent, but also for the Wufu Baio who has become a climate. He has been in a foreign land and cherishes the mountains and rivers in his years. Fortunately there is a Xuandu temple that can rest. Sun Huaizhong always mentions a certain Qin Shaodao friend, he is still very close. Haoren has this treatment in the world, after Bai Yi, it seems that you are the only one. Qin Pingan said helplessly, Thank you Dao Chang's son for your love. Wu Shuangjiang suddenly asked Xiao Mo, Among you cultivators who have been awakened by Bai Zhe, you don't know how strange a fellow Taoist can kill you. Xiao Mo is frank, desperate power, defense, escape. Xiao Mo is not the top-notch, but each ranking is still relatively high, so I really want to fight with anyone against anyone enough. You can protect yourself. Anything other than 2 or 3 can be killed as long as there is no one to stop him. Wu Shuangjiang suddenly understood. Xiao Mo was the one who brewed wine with Bixiadong master and asked Yuan Xiang for the sword? Xiao Mo smiled, the past is not worth mentioning. Zheng Dafeng hurriedly raised the wine bowl, Xiao Mo is up to me, no wonder I fell in love. Is all the same people, the hero does not mention the bravery in the past and the old nasty is not enough to praise. Xiao Mo faced Zheng Dafeng holding his bowl with both hands and drank it. Qin Pingan asked, Is there any extra gold and copper coins for Sui Chu Gong? Wu Shuangjiang nodded and said, There are some. Qin Pingan curiously asked, I don't know what the sum of Palace Master Wu is? Wu Shuangjiang said, It's meaningless if it's more or less. It won't be given to you anyway. What's more, far away can't quench your near thirst. If you want to create a prototype of a long river of time with your flying sword in the cage, you'll have to look for it. The palace asks for gold, fine and bronze coins? Why, do you want me to knock my head away from the colorful world? Qin Pingan still doesn't give up. Can't you just have a discussion? As for how Wu Shuangjiang is so knowledgeable, in the summer palace chatting with Koihu and Xuanfu, and recounting the past with Qisho Wu Shuangjiang seems to be very clear, don't guess anyway. And that long river of time, even if it is really built by itself, is not static. In the future, it will still need a steady stream of living water to increase the water level and even widen the river bed. To put it simply, in the future the wellhead moon can evolve into tens of thousands of flying swords, and the bird in the cage can create a bottomless river of time. The several magical powers of the two natal flying swords can complement each other. Qin Pingyan to become an ascending realm swordsman again, then in the Qingming world when facing Wuzhou or Bailu, you can turn around and run away without saying a word, at least the cost of fighting power. Wu Shuangjiang said straightforwardly, since everything is easy to discuss, then this matter is avoided. Qin Pingyan asked, is there a big use for exchanging the palace? Wu Shuangjiang shook his head and gave a very perfunctory answer. It's almost the same as that piece of dragon-slashing cliff. It's not really useful, just keep good-looking, easy-to-sell things that are not easy to buy. Who would think it's too much? Qin Pingyan is a little tired. So you can't be Cui Yang in your life. If he had been doing business with the Confucian temple, where is the most golden body fragments in the world? Naturally, it is a barren world. Together, the gods of the mountains and rivers without long feet can run. Where to go but to treat the human body according to the human way? What kind of psychological burden does it have? If you don't agree to Song He's appointment as the new Grand Master, Qin Pingyan is a bit self-aware. Zheng Dafeng was overwhelmed with joy. Wu Shuangjiang disapproved and said, this is the case in the world. What about the world? So restrained, how can we talk about pure sword repair on its own way? Zheng Dafeng began to fan the flames. Qin Pingyan has something that Qin Ping can't do, Cui Huang or Wu Shuangjiang, and Wu Shuangjiang is different, but Wu Shuangjiang can't do Qin Pingyan. Wu Shuangjiang smiled and said, I only said that Qin Pingyan could not be an embroidered tiger, and I didn't say that I could be an embroidered tiger or a hidden official. The two things do not conflict. Mr. Zheng doesn't need to deny the truth with the truth. Zheng Dafeng quickly drank alcohol and was shocked, pricked his hands, shook his head at Cui Dongshan and signaled you to come. Cui Dongshan was sick and said, I've beaten it but I can't. Qin Pingyan asked, is Palace Master Wu preparing to leave Feishing City? Wu Shuangjiang nodded, looking back over there are a few young people with decent qualifications who need me to personally guide the practice. Moreover, he promised Sun Huaizhong that she would be the young woman crowned by Shendu Guan. She is Shendu Guan. As the pillar of her future, I have to protect her. One or two here as agreed. But Qin Pingyan took a sip of boring wine. As one of the Taoist forces in the Qingming world, 3,000 Taoists including Sui Chu Gong monks rushed to the colorful world together. Sui Chu Gong was on the east side, and a circle of landscape and land was drawn, which happened to be built in the colorful world with Xiandu Temple. The hilltops of the vassal are located in the north and south of the Baiyujing forces. It's not like, but it's obvious that our two families are deliberately disgusting you Baiyujing. Absolutely not let Baiyujing go the old way, and then be as dominant as the Qingming world. The monk who dared to break his wrist with Baiyujing so directly. In the entire Qingming world, it is indeed only Wu Shuangjiang and Sun Daochang. The year-old monk who is not afraid of death is notoriously not afraid of death. The Taoist sword immortal line of Shendu Guan is recognized as a fond of fighting, or to be precise like fighting. Wu Shuangjiang stood up and planned to leave. Qin Pingyan stood up, clasped his fists and said, I wish Mr. Zheng a smooth journey. Selling is not righteous. Wu Shuangjiang looked at this young hidden official who seemed to have been deflated. Ha Yener is bad, now he must have already figured out how to get close to Nawai's pardon. This is Qin Pingyan's advantage of being extremely invisible to mountains and dew. There are bridges to cross bridges, roads along the road, no roads under your feet and rivers crossing the ridge. But this is not the reason why Wu Shuangjiang chose to show up today instead of leaving quietly. A sword soars and goes to the awe-inspiring world. One who does not hesitate to exchange merits with the Confucian temple, rushes to the colorful world. Such a fairy family couple, it will indeed make the onlookers take a look, and they will all feel beautiful. A pair made in heaven, lovers will eventually become family members. Wu Shuangjiang is in a good mood. He changed his mind, took out a grain of silver, placed it gently on the table and asked, what is this? Money. Qin Pingyan replied without hesitation, Silo. In addition to words, this thing is the most circulating thing in the world. Wu Shuangjiang asked, Tongye and Fuyao, hundreds of countries large and small, how were taxes paid in the early years and how much was the total? Have the books of the Confucian temple Gongdalan turned over? Qin Pingyan nodded, I copied a copy. Wu Shuangjiang nodded. A wise man will be able to see through, and it is worthwhile to tell the secrets and truths of today and say, rather than running around and toiling around, picking and choosing and exhausting the incense, go to ask someone to nod and promise to sell you gold and copper. It's better to find one or two joints and the problem will naturally be solved. Whether you do business with Baozhai or negotiate business with Aiizhou Lu Jubao, your expenses and the price you pay are destined to not be small. 3 kinds of fairy money on the mountain: snow, summer and rain, gold, silver and bronze under the mountain, plus the ticket numbers of the major silver houses. The bustling is all for profit. In the final analysis, it is a word of money. Lu Kaishan of Aiizhou, Mr. Fan the merchant, is the 2 richest people in the world. Soldiers and horses did not move the grain and grass first, and the drums of war sounded gold 10,000 taels. Why doesn't Mr. Fan compete with Lu Jubao for the title of the richest man? Because Mr. Fan doesn't care at all. Lu Jubao just makes money. Mr. Fan's avenue is broader than Lu Jubao. The world's people earn money and spend money anyway. They are the merchant's avenue, which is the best in the world compared to earning money. Lu Kaishan, which is higher and lower. Replaced by you, what a false name for the accountant. That's why the person you really are looking for is the ancestor of the merchant, because he has the same interests as you in something: Southeast Tongya, South Paseo Island, Southwest Fiao Island, Sanzhou Mountains, rivers and mountains. At the foot of the mountain, we must pursue a stable order so that we can extend our wealth in all directions. If Sanzhou's wealth is better than the past, I am Mr. Fan, and I am willing to take the initiative to offer gold, fine and bronze coins with both hands, even if it is the same as before the war. Mr. Wei Fan, after all, it is necessary to get into the 14th realm with this one move. Do you think this deal, when both parties are seated, are you begging him or he begging you? Even if you don't say who is begging, the 2 sides sit on an equal footing. Qin Pingan raised his bowl and took a sip of wine. Wu Shuangjiang glanced at the white-clothed boy as if asking something. Why not remind your husband? Cui Dongshan feels helpless. He is like setting up countless large and small gates for himself, and the most cruel thing is that he can skip certain keywords on the context, so now my brain is really not enough. Wu Shuangjiang laughed and exclaimed from the bottom of his heart, embroidering tigers are amazing. Deliberately embarrassing Cui Dongshan, this is the most wise move so that both the husband and the student cannot go the old way and prove their own ways. Wu Shuangjiang remembered something. Zheng Juzhong asked me to give you a word. One of the 3 officials of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, he may have been to the Lizhu cave. As for whether this person has left the town, it is hard to say. Served as a bull. Ning Yao ran away from home and traveled alone. The reason why he chose Lizhu Dongtian as the endpoint is not unreasonable. Ruan Qiong, a man of iron and sword, has not enough reason. Even if Qin Pingan had no intention of asking, Zheng Dafeng still took the initiative and said helplessly, I really don't know this, master has never said it. In fact, in his early years, old man Yang was on the side of the apprentice Zheng Dafeng, occasionally speaking for the first time, and a sentence would never exceed 10 words. Wu Shuangjiang finally laughed and said, you don't have to run into a 14th level monk, just feel scared. After all, not all 14th level monks are like me. Some people are really lucky. I really want to say, the minds and methods outside the realm can't actually be on the table. It's just that God rewards a bowl of rice and eats. If you are full and have a little strength, you will feel invincible in the world. Wait until the ancestor of Sanjiao Sandao. Some of the 14 realms where the mind is not cultivated enough, have tasted the sweetness first, and will soon suffer a lot. The big white goose was lying on the table, that was annoyed, and he was pretending to be an expert again. But seeing that this guy is deliberately trying to get rid of that Daos cock, I have no choice but to admit it. On the night ship, in fact, even if Cui Dongshan and Jiang Shangzhen knew Wu Shuangjiang's method of harmony, it could be described as ingenious. But the 2 whispered in private, still don't think Wu Shuangjiang can really fight Yudo in the life and death battle. Until today Cui Dongshan knows more truth, maybe there is a drama. Wu Shuangjiang saw that there was a little wine left in the bowl, so he picked up the bowl and held it up high as if it were a silent toast, and then stood and finished drinking. Cui Dongshan straightened up and drank in one sip. Zheng Dafeng and Xiaomo were similar. Zheng Dafeng smiled before drinking, old friends and new friends, good drinks and a good meeting. Xiaomo didn't say anything. On a small account book, there was an extra Taoist ant named Wuzhou. I really need to practice swords well. It has been more than 10,000 years, and I can't always be blocked by a threshold like this. Cui Dongshan took a deep breath. I really want to practice hard. First, Zheng Zhongzhong was so angry that he could hold back his internal injuries. Today Wu Shuang was again dressed as a master of Taoism all the way. Cui Dongshan poured himself a bowl of wine, also held it high and got bored again. Wish the wine to the east, listen to the sword aura like a dragon Ming wild, and watch the sword shine like a flower to spread the world and be calm. Qin Pingan picked up an unopened jar of dumb lake wine on the table and handed it to Wu Shuangjiang. Wu Shuangjiang actually did not refuse and accepted it with a smile. I helped you with a message and you will also say hello to me in Xiamen when you turn around. Because I really want to have such a girl, silly but cute and loving. The little girl would blink her eyes and tilt her head, as if she was saying that my cerebellum was broad and clever. Who would not like it? Zheng Dafeng laughed loudly, and the cards of the right guard of the Luapa Mountain are big. Qin Pingan smiled and nodded, no problem. Wu Shuangjiang took the hip flask and walked out 2 steps, turned around and smiled with Qin Pingan and the others. It's the matter here, goodbye in the rivers and lakes. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.